What would I do without you, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Millionth podcast. My name is James, joined once again by my co-host Henry, special guest Tom. For the Bond series, we are on episode 7 today, and we are talking about On Her Majesty's Secret Service. This is, I know for sure, a personal favourite for Henry, as well as myself. Tom, I'm not too sure about you.
It's my second favourite.
Yeah, this is...
well, we're all big fans of it. So.
Yeah, this is for sure one of the best Bond films of all time, like hands down, I think. And I believe it was the second Bond film I ever watched after Goldfinger. It's the one I have the earliest memory of, as well as Goldfinger, this film as well, because of one particular scene I'll talk about when we get there.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But this is a very, very special film, I think, for so many reasons. So what's your relationship with it, Henry and Tom?
I don't know. I kind of feel like I really liked this film before it was cool. Like, I don't know, because like it only seems that this has become like more popular over the last few years or something. Or maybe that's just my perception of it. But I mean, it's relatively well known. This film was like pretty like critically hated when it came out.
Really?
By a lot of people. Yeah. I mean, it certainly didn't. There's a lot of stuff going against it. I mean.
Well, you've got a lot of trivia for us today, which I'm looking forward to hearing.
Yeah, true.
I should add as well, by the way, sorry, before you go on, this was obviously released in 1969, and it has a new director. Now, I made a mistake with You Only Live Twice. I assumed that had the same director as the first 4 films. It didn't. So Terence Young did From Dr. No to Thunderball, and then a chap called Lewis Gilbert did You Only Live Twice. Not to be confused with Phil Gilbert, Henry. And then for this film, we have director Peter Hunt. And I know you've got something to tell us about that, Henry, but go on from where you were.
Well, there's
We've got a new Bond as well, of course.
Yeah, there was a whole saga of, casting the new Bond. They were originally going to offer I think they did actually offer the parts to Timothy Dalton, but he said
no
that...
way. In 69?
Yeah, he said he was 22 at the time, and he said he was too young and inexperienced to play the part.
Could you imagine, like, Timothy Dalton, young Bond, man? That would have been amazing.
Yeah,
exactly. They offered it to him way back then. That's crazy, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it was like him and Pierce Brosnan. They just kept constantly offering it to him. They just kept being like, yeah, there's this and there's that, and they both eventually played him, obviously.
But, do you know the first thing I thought of when you said that, with Timothy Dalton as a young Bond? For some reason, the first thing that came to mind was Robert Pattinson as the Batman, like a young Batman, like at the beginning of the journey. For some reason, that's like what my brain went straight towards in terms. I mean, there wouldn't be like a dark noir sort of film, but still, like.
Yeah, to be fair, I can. Maybe it's because of the actual nature of Dalton's Bond films, but I can't imagine him like being in this one, to be honest. Because
so how did they come to hire Australian
male model,
George Lazenby? Tell us about that, because I'm pretty ignorant.
I mean, this could be like a whole episode of itself, but to summarize roughly, basically he had more or less 0 acting experience apart from doing a couple of adverts. And like I said, he was a male model, and he was he'd seen all of the Bond films previously, and he was a huge fan of it, and he was basically determined to try and play the part no matter what. And so he went to the same tailor as Sean Connery's. He got the same haircut as him, and or at least to the best of the ability of the barber. And he basically went into. He also got the same Rolex as well. Oh, sorry, did I cut off for a second there?
No, I think you're good.
Don't worry. Well, yeah, he got the so he got the same watch. He basically tried to literally. He was literally like, yeah, Sean Connery's literally me, and so he met with the producers, and he kind of, and also with the director, Peter Hunt, who was he wanted to go to Switzerland with some of his mates, some of his close friends, you could say, and he because of George Lazenby, he couldn't, because they had to cast him and film scenes for him. Apparently, they had filmed. I don't know how true this is, but supposedly they had screen tested 3,000 different people or something like that, and the reason why they chose Lazenby was because of he had this kind of he kind of had just the right amount of arrogance to play Bond, and he managed to blag to them that he had done like all these like films, he like invented like films that didn't exist and so on and so forth, and that he had. But the main way he managed to get past them like verifying it was, oh well, most of them were like filmed in like East Germany and like beyond like the Iron Curtain, so it was really hard to actually verify whether or not what he was saying was true.
So George
Uh,
Lazenby was just a big like bullshit artist, pretty much.
yeah, but
Lagged
he
his
was
way
very good
past
at it. I
Harry
mean,
Saltzman.
yeah, so that's how he got his screen test. And after he actually, well, basically found out he got the part, he kind of, he like spilled the beans to the director. And he was like, "Oh, I'm a fraud. I'm not actually an actor." And Peter Hunt said, like, you just like fooled two of the most ruthless people in the business, like, and like ever somehow. So I'm pretty sure you are an actor now. Um, and that's how he ends up getting the part. So
That's amazing because even though he only did one film, his legacy is just as big as any other Bond actor. I mean, we will rank them obviously, and rankings in general usually aren't very generous towards George Lazenby because he's only
yeah,
had one film. But the one film he's been in is one of the best, and he gave a great performance. He is, to all intents and purposes, he is Bond, and very
as long as he's
memorable.
acted, yeah.
Yeah, and he's really good. He's got so many iconic things and big shoes to fill. This is the first guy who played Bond after Sean Connery,
Hmm.
You're
who
forgetting Casino Royale.
Oh yeah, of
no,
course.
I am deliberately forgetting Casino
Yeah,
Royale.
David Niven walked
I
so
mean,
he could laugh.
I'm not forgetting it. I'm ignoring it,
Hmm.
refusing to acknowledge. But yeah, George Lazenby just because it's. I mean, we'll get into it obviously when we get into the plot, but
Yeah,
like the build up to just revealing his face and his
yeah,
first line and everything, and what he actually does and accomplishes in the film is something pretty much no other Bond has ever done before or since as well. Some of the actual landmark like things he does is really is just unique to his
Hmm.
to his films, his portrayal, and it's a shame he never came back. And I mean, we know
I don't know.
what
I think
you
maybe
wouldn't have seen.
I think overall for the health of the franchise, it was probably a good thing he didn't come back.
So I mean, it's one of those things, I mean, he left us high and dry, right? So like we only have this one film to judge him by, and it's sort of like one of those things, like what could have been, and
Yeah,
that does play on your mind, and but maybe it is a better thing that we didn't get one. I mean, we'll
yeah.
never
I
know.
mean,
That's the thing.
He had a
also
contract for 5 films, or something like that.
he had a
So
contract for 7 films,
7 films. So like that would have
yeah,
been
just like Sean
really
Connery did.
long, like a
The only
saga.
person, yeah, the only person who ever actually completed their 7 film contract was Roger Moore, obviously. But
So has every Bond signed a 7 film contract? Every Bond actor? Surely not.
I don't
I mean,
think so. But
Daniel
I
Craig
think
did.
that was the original intention, that each
Okay.
one would do
Well,
7, and that's what they offered.
Sean Connery
Well, the first 3.
kind
So,
of did fulfill it as well. I mean, not officially, but
well,
but
Yeah,
we'll get to that one day. Um,
one
Tom, your
very
relationship
fateful
with
day.
On Her Majesty's Secret Service.
It was much of a grower on me. So like when I was younger, I like really didn't get like a lot of the subtext to it. So like, and I never hated it though. Like I was like, oh wow, this is interesting. And but like I just kind of, it was just one of those ones I'd kind of sit through, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. And one part of this film I never didn't like though was the Bond girl, Diana Rigg. Like, I always thought she was like, even as a kid, I thought she was like amazing and um, like really cool, and like that's the one who should like do with Bond what she does end up doing later in the film. But other than that, like it grew on me in so many ways. Like I mean, I feel like this one does development really well, character development in a way that, and we're only appreciating the value of that recently. But we'll get on to why only recently that is. But yeah, I like this film a lot. It's very, very, very excellent, top tier for me. I think for me, when I say it's like some people like try to censor it out because it's like, George Lazenby's one-hit wonder, but I fully embrace it on the other hand. And I think, yeah, if you have one film to like only be in, then this would be like right up there.
Mm.
I think there's a distinction between the best James Bond and my favorite James Bond like film.
Yeah.
And for me, and because there's like higher quality, but things that appeal to me personally. For me, I think this is like in terms of quality, like the best, in my opinion. But yeah, we'll get into this.
I think for me,
Yeah, I mean,
it's one of my it's like a top three of my favorites and a top three of the best ones as well. It just hits so many. There are some elements about it which don't age well, but the things that do age well, I mean the scenery, like the sets and everything is just stunning visually. Um, and I think the real standout for me, the thing I really noticed in this film is how good the acting is from every individual, like even the smaller parts and everything. The level, the standard of acting in this film is maybe the best of any Bond film. It's just puts it right up there above every other, like in terms of just the like how each like from Bond to Blofeld to, like you mentioned, Dinah Rigg, um,
Mm.
even the smaller what's her name, Bunt, sorry,
Irma Bunt, yeah.
Bunt.
yeah.
She's fantastic. I remember as a kid, like when she
Mm.
I don't know where they found this woman. She looks exactly what she is. I mean, and I don't mean that in like a derogative way, but she like as a child you see her, and it's like one of those where it's just like scares you, sort of thing. And
Yeah.
Mm.
Telly Savalas at the time as well was, just very inspired choice. It's interesting because everyone remembers this film as being like, okay, the new Bond, a different Bond actor, but we do get a different Blofeld actor as well.
Yeah.
Um,
He had big shoes
Yeah,
to fill as well, like
yeah,
Donald
definitely,
Pleasant.
definitely.
Yeah.
yeah, as well. The thing is I haven't sent this to either of you, but there's like kind of I think concept art more or less of Telly Savalas with like the actual Blofeld scar. But I assume in the actual novel, like because by this point, because this is a very direct adaptation of the Untitled Secret Service
Mm.
novel, him and Bond haven't met. This is their first time
Yeah.
meeting, which is something that confused like everyone and
So
myself.
this
Yeah,
is
And
this is
assume
like a
meant
all of us.
prequel.
this is meant to take
Yeah,
place
because
before You Only Live Twice in the books.
yeah, yeah, because to be honest, when it came to making these films, they made them like completely out of canonical order. I mean, they didn't even have the rights to make Casino Royale, so that doesn't help as the first. Um, but still, the last thing I want to just say before we get into this, actually has something to do with Telly Savalas because he kind of helped George Lazenby a lot in terms of the like helping him like kind of learn to act professionally.
How to
Um,
act.
yeah, literally how to act. I say that, but this is from George Lazenby himself. The first thing and basically the last thing he taught him was they had a camera in a room, and I think a bunch of other people in there as well, and he had to place Telly like place a coin somewhere, and he told George Lazenby to walk through the door and point out where the coin is. Um, but the first time he like just looked immediately at everyone around him and the camera, and then eventually he got him to just basically focus all his attention exclusively on the coin. And then he said, "Well, you know how to act now," and that was his last lesson.
Wow, that's acting school.
Yeah,
That's really interesting.
but
That's really nice how
He
like
went on
took
like
it.
an acting crash course, man. Like imagine
Yeah.
yeah,
that. This is a
exactly. But
Bond actor we're talking about. Imagine that today,
yeah, but at the same
It
at the
just wouldn't
same
happen.
time though, um, for some reason or another, I assume maybe because they're filming in Switzerland, I don't know. But most of the crew and cast got all their basically their payments in cash, so they all were like carrying these giant like suitcases around. But Toast of Us also took George Lazenby to like a basically a late night poker game, and Lazenby lost basically all of his money. And
Wow.
when Harry Saltzman heard this, he went to the location and he actually he joined in the game despite the fact Savalas was protesting, and he won back all of Lazenby's money and then told
Oh,
Telly not to victimize him like he did.
wow. What a story. That's crazy, man. I just thought,
There's
I
so
mean,
much
because
stuff that happened on the set of this.
Yeah, that's I can't I know because in anticipation for this whole series you were talking about, you've got a lot of trivia on a Majesty's Secret Service, which I'm really excited to hear. But as well, do you have anything about the director? Because I noticed, what's his name, Peter Hall. He worked on the previous Bond films as well, but in a different capacity, and
Yeah.
then became director for this. Do you have any context for how that happened?
Not really. I think they just decided to go with him because maybe they weren't too happy with what Lewis Gilbert did in the previous film, or maybe the fact that the content of this film was like
Mm.
significantly different to what they did with The Only Live Twice, for example. Like, you had to have a lot more emphasis on, like the actual relationship and so on and so forth. And kind of the nature of the action scenes are also quite different because there's a lot of skiing involved. And I assume, I don't know, maybe Peter Hunt is supposed to be good at, filming aerial combat or something
You
like
know
that.
what I want to ask you, Henry, actually, because I believe, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this has pretty much always been your favorite Bond film, right?
More or less, yeah.
And do you think it was and you also love skiing, you love the winter and like snow and everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Do you think this influenced that, or because this is from a very young age, and obviously, I mean, for those who don't know, which is everyone, we actually spent a bit of time living in Switzerland when we were young, for I believe about 18 months. So when we were young, I turned 7 in Switzerland, for example, and Henry's 5 years younger than me. So you can do the maths there. So I don't know if that very early impression in those years maybe influenced that. I don't know what it is.
I don't know.
But
I think it might have been.
what would you like attribute that to? Do you think the film influenced like from a young age your love for that, or the other way around, or what do you think?
Maybe it's the film way around. So
Fair enough. Fair
yeah.
enough.
Well,
Um,
either way, I like this
The
film
f-
and I like skiing. So maybe there's
it's the
a
first,
connection
and
there.
you know what I realized in this? It's the first Bond film, with the ski chase in it, and
Mm.
that's weird. And I was thinking about it. Does that mean that Sean Connery is the only Bond that didn't get a ski chase? Because I
Mm.
think every other one did, didn't they?
Does Timothy
Yeah.
Dalton?
Well, Timothy doesn't
Kind
ski.
of. He's like, okay, you have to bend the rules a bit, but he does, in the cello
He gets
case.
something relatively close.
Uh,
So obviously, we open up with the gun barrel sequence. It's fair to say. Is it fair to say, by the way, that On Her Majesty's Secret Service is also a Christmas film, a Bond Christmas film?
100%.
Definitely,
It's
yeah.
definitely a Christmas film. I mean, it
Okay.
takes place at Christmas. It's got a lot of, well, it's got. Do you know how Christmas trees are grown in the track? So
Mm.
Got
One of the
everything.
guys
all
gets
the
gift
classic
wrapped.
bangers.
Yeah, it's got
Merry
almost
Christmas,
everything.
007 is a line. So yeah, I suppose you're right. Okay. Well, just good to get that out of the way early doors. The opening scene, I absolutely love the opening scene of this film.
Top tier.
It's one of my favorites. Just not just of Bond films, but of any film. And it's not like, I mean, I have my favorite ones in terms of like Roger Moore ones, which are like like full of action and jokes and stuff. But this is it in terms of like this is when you say, Tom, the difference between a favorite and a best. This
Mhm.
ticks the best. Like this is objectively like just a beautiful opening for a film. But just before we do get into that, we actually start in London at
Yeah.
MI6 headquarters
Emma's
with
bored
Hugh and M.
shitless of Q, man. He's like,
Yeah,
for instance, the radioactive lint is just like, what we want is location fixed to 007. And it's like, so yeah, and then
yeah.
it
Like
cuts
he's
away to,
unveiling the cure to cancer, like splitting the atom there, and M's
yeah.
like, yeah, I don't care, move on. One of the best things about this film is the music, the score,
Yeah, you can say that.
and you're
Yeah, it's
thrown straight
brilliant.
into that. You just have this really cool like rendition of the James Bond theme. It's like tinny. There's something a little bit different
It's
about
so
it.
like it's like laid back kind of in it. It's more casual, but it's also like it's like James Bond's on holiday or something, and it's like I don't know. That's what always the vibes I got for it. And he's just like out there living the life. Like it's complete contrast from like the two old men in like some office somewhere, and then yeah, he's out in the field just chilling basically. And then
I don't know. I didn't get that at all. For me, the music is represents the film a lot because you have the traditional Bond theme, which we've heard in the first 5 films, and it's very in your face, right? It's very like out there. It's like it's loud, and we do get a rendition of it later on in this film actually, which I completely forgot about. But it's like it is Bond. But it's Sean Connery's Bond. It's very like outgoing. The music is the theme itself, but the music in general is like it's explicit. It's loud. It's there. It's in your face. This is like feels like a lot more subtle, like a lot more like sort of espionage spy, sort of stuff. I don't know that like especially when it's like duh, 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 the very specific little. There's like a tinny sound. I don't have the musical knowledge to actually like describe what that is, but I love it. And as that music is playing, you're seeing Bond, and obviously it's a new Bond, and you're just getting like his chin, his mouth, the dimple chin that he's got. Yeah, he's like the
lighting
cigarette,
one up,
and it's like, oh, it's like the anticipation. It's so cool. It's so like it's beautiful. Anyway, another car
funny
speed
thing is as well.
He's in an Aston Martin. Oh, what car is he in?
Well, it's obviously an Aston Martin, isn't it?
It is. I can't. I'm trying to remember which model it is. I feel like it's a Vantage.
He is an A car.
Might be.
I'm gonna look that up while you continue, Henry.
Yeah, I mean the funny thing is as well with this is like that wants to mention is as a kid I actually like George Lazenby's like like trying to literally be Sean Connery was kind of so good I actually didn't notice that there was a difference between them for some reason, but yeah I was quite little, so
Me
eventually
too.
I realized, but.
Me too, kind of like in a way, like when it was on like his chin and stuff, I was like, yeah, Sean Connery, maybe not. Like, and I'm like, yeah, kind of. And then I had this really weird little theory when I was younger, like the way I kind of explained the actors changing was like the last mission of the previous actor, let's say You and Live Twice for Sean Connery, was like somehow so stressful or whatever on them or whatever, it like physically changed their appearance, so they like looked different, just metamorphosized into someone else.
The end of this film turned him back into Sean Connery.
Yeah, it turns him back, goes into Roger Moore.
Well, yeah, it changes his hair color too.
Yeah.
The only I don't know really. But what was his car again, by the way, James?
It was. I can confirm it's an Aston Martin DBS. Very, very beautiful car.
But still,
and it does feature later on in the film. It doesn't get like. I mean, it does have like a mini car chase now, but it doesn't feature that. I mean, it does obviously play actually quite a crucial part later on, but not in the traditional sense. Not in the sense we've seen. Again, I think it's like you have the DB5. It's very flashy. It's very like it represents that Sean Connery era. This is still an Aston Martin, but it's black. It's sleek. It's low key. That's what George Lazenby's Bond and the music and all these ingredients. It's low key. It's not extravagant. It's down to earth. More. There's not really many gadgets. I mean, which is funny. It's ironic because the plot is probably the most extravagant. Well, maybe actually. Yeah, I think because you get Telly Savalas later on. He's explaining his like plot, and it's like, yeah, I'm going to wipe out the human species, basically, and it's like, so okay, from that point of view, it is very. But because it's delivered by Telly Savalas and it's in this film and it's in this context, it's believable. And I think maybe if he said that in You Only Live Twice, that that kind of it wouldn't have sounded. It would.
I can imagine. I can imagine Donald Pleasant saying, "And exterminate the entire population of the Earth," something like that.
Something like that, yeah. But like the way I don't know, Telly Savalas. We'll get into him later, but he's like,
yeah. Because first of all, obviously. We don't get a face reveal quite yet of George Lazenby, so because a car shoots past him and he goes and like pursues it.
But like in Goldfinger, I feel almost.
Yeah. I noticed.
I wonder if she drove like a man in the novels.
Yeah, and he's got his cigarette, like I said, Henry's, and he pulls out a telescope, and obviously, he's looking out at the beach. This is in Portugal, I believe you said, Tom, right?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the first bit is kind of in Portugal.
So, so he's this always sort of confused me when I was younger. I never really understood what was going on here, but because it's strange, I mean, and what actually transpires is that obviously we're seeing Tracy, and she's trying to kill herself. She's trying to commit suicide by drowning herself. I don't know, like
that obvious to me when I was younger.
It's not your traditional. So this is why, like, I don't want to say anything too, like, whatever, but like, it's not your traditional sort of attempt like that. So that's what always confused me when I was younger. I'm sort of like, what's going on here? Why? What? And she's like, it's very like shallow water, right? It's not like, you know. So she's walking
Well,
into it.
I assume it's a walk out to sea, but I think
It's like
maybe like
ankle
in the
deep or
context of
something.
this, not only is it so you can have this fight, you know, for the film purposes, but maybe for her, it's kind of like in the back of her mind she wants someone like, you know, to rely on to save her, but
To
she
rescue
doesn't
her,
think
yeah.
it will actually happen. I assume
It's
that's
it's a
my
bit
way
of
of
a
looking at it.
it's a bit of a strange one, but all the same, it's very beautiful. The cinematography you get here, I mean, it's just this beautiful like beach and the sunset. Anyway, she's like trying to drown herself, and George Lazenby, you know, runs out to go and
Yeah, I
save
like the
her.
shot of
I
him,
His
think.
like, yeah, that she's running and he's like trying to get like, you know, obviously trying to stop her, but
Yeah, it's interesting how like he has an instinct to tell like she's like what this deep in water, so that means she's gonna kill herself or whatever. She still has
yeah, but
Yeah,
no
uh
one
she's
like,
not just going out for like a nice evening swim, you know, or something.
yeah,
in
but who
her
goes out
clothes.
swimming fully clothed, you know, like,
I do want to comment since you mentioned the clothes. I mean, I wasn't going to mention it this early, but now the opportunity's already arisen. How beautiful the costume design is in this film.
yeah,
Yeah,
All the
she has
clothes,
very good outfits.
uh, all the clothes like that everyone wears are just an extra level above, I think, of any Bond film. I mean, fashion is very important to James Bond, you know, throughout the decades. But I think in this one in particular, George Lazenby, you know, he wears like the tuxedo and everything like every other Bond does, but he's got that. He's got the shirt which has like the. It really
Those
sticks in my mind. I always
those three
associate
orange
stripes.
him when.
turtleneck.
Well, yeah, you've got that, but I was thinking more about when he's wearing the tuxedo and he's got that white shirt, which is like the
The
seam
patch.
at the front is like
It's kind of
frilly or something. You
frilled,
know, it's
yeah.
like
Yeah,
flowering out. I don't know how to describe that, but
I think those might be plaits. I'm not sure,
it's
but
beautiful. And like I don't know, he's the only Bond. I mean, perhaps other Bonds wore it, but I always remember him as being like the most stylish Bond, the best dressed Bond. I don't know about you two, but for me, I just think his clothing's exquisite, and you've got and it's not limited to him. The dresses Diana Rigg wears are beautiful, including this one,
and
of course. So
Toast
it's also
Savalas is, you know,
almost like a mermaid, you know. This like,
Yeah, it
yeah,
is.
that's what I was
you know,
thinking. Yeah,
And but she's walking out like it's interesting when you think about it because when if you go too far out, obviously the current will just take you and then you won't be able to go back to land. So she's probably like I don't know, walking and then by the time she gets to that point, it'll be should have given up. She'd have really given up, sort of thing. But I think the reason why there's goons who come after Bond later is because they were just watching her anyway. They're probably sent to like look over her or something, and then
oh
like
yeah, they're like, well, probably similar to Domino. They're like guardians, basically from
yeah,
Draco.
maybe
It's hard to say. You know, when I was watching, I was trying to remember what the guy's name was, and I thought it was Draco, but I was like, nah, it doesn't sound right.
yeah, it
But
doesn't
then
sound
you
right unless
can't.
you say it.
no.
How do you
Like,
pronounce Draco? You can't like the way he says it in his Italian accent, Draco. You know, it sounds so like sexy. Whereas you say Draco. You know,
yeah,
it's like just like so.
yeah. A fun
You know?
fact. Supposedly, Draco is he's supposedly French, but it's French Corsican, which is pretty close to Italian anyway.
Yeah.
So that's
Well,
why.
yeah. I mean, he's like Italian Swiss. Like he's Swiss, effectively, right? I think that is his
Uh,
nationality,
No,
which
no, no.
is
This
like a
he's
blend of French,
from
German, Italian, anyway,
Corsica.
right?
So like
Um,
I know that
because
from the James
because
Bond wiki. So
yeah, I know because he asked for like some Corsican brandy or something later. So like, so yeah, that's how I made the connection. But he you know what I reckon just came to me right now. Like when she's going out into the water, like if maybe she knows that like those people are watching her, and so she tries to make it look casual so they won't think she's gonna kill herself. And when she's deep enough, she just like plunges down or whatever, and then so no one can save her or whatever. Not sure, but it's what I pieced together.
maybe, yeah, it is interesting. There is a lot to unpack. There's a lot of visual storytelling there as well. Obviously, Bond comes to save her,
hmm,
and Diana Rigg, she's like, I mean, we will rank the Bond girls, of course. I would be surprised if she doesn't end this entire series first.
hmm,
I think she's just for some reason, and you know what's interesting to me? I realized this for the first time because we are for the second time in my life. I will remind people that I am the host of this show. Has done a Bond marathon before. I've watched every Bond film consecutively
hmm.
in the space of a week. So this is the second time I'm watching it. Obviously, a week apart rather than all in the space of a week. But Diana Rigg is the first British Bond girl, right?
Hmm.
And I never really noticed
True.
that before this viewing. I was kind of like, yeah, you know, like I didn't realize that before. She, I mean, you do have Sylvia Trench, kind of, if you count that, but she's like a side piece, right? Very much a side piece. Whereas Dinah Creek is the main Bond girl, and you don't get like basically any British Bond girls actually. Now that I think about it,
The
do
reason
you?
she
Apart
was
from her?
you get Vesper
Well,
Lind,
by
who I
now.
think she was
I
like.
don't think she's English though. Is she?
I think
She's French.
the actor is English. I think.
No, the
I'm not
actress is French.
Is she? Well, I
Yeah.
didn't know. I have someone she was English, but like, um, the reason that Diana Rigg was cast, she was like a really big household name there back in the day, apparently, and she along with Telly Savalas, and they were kind
Yeah,
of
'cause she
cast.
was in the Avengers TV show, not like the Avengers in Marvel sense. But,
Yeah,
Yeah.
they were.
And she's Dame Judy Dench. She's Dame Dinah Rigg as well now, right?
She
yeah,
was
yeah,
like
she was in Game of Thrones as well. So
yeah, that's
Yeah,
true.
yeah, she's like kind of like she's a massive acting career, and she was like like well respected back then, not like George Lazenby, man.
Her and Telly
yeah, it's
Savalas
like
were brought in to kind of help George Lazenby a bit and kind of, I don't know, make it easier for him through their like professionalism and stuff in acting. So I think that was a really good choice on their part because it's like the three of them in particular really like work together, and that's what makes this film like really pushes it above like I don't know if you had maybe
mm,
some other actor or something actress.
You know what I like about George Lazenby and Dinah Rigg in particular, their characters as well. Just the fact how I think it might be of any film I've ever seen. This is why I mentioned the acting before, the level of acting. It might be the most authentic relationship I've ever seen portrayed in a film. I
mm,
really, their chemistry and like it just feels like really real, like their relationship, even though it moves very quickly in this film. But there's just something about it, like the romantic journey they take. I don't know what it is about it. It just feels really like very
Believable.
well, yeah, very
unlike
believable, well
unlike
written.
some later ones, which we'll eventually get to.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean,
absolutely.
and I think ever since then, they've either just not bothered like trying to recreate that because you can't.
Yeah,
This
you
is the
can't
funny
do
thing
that.
about
Yeah.
George Lazenby. Even though he's only had one film, he's done things and he's accomplished things within that film that I think other Bond actors either like respect and
I
didn't
think
try
they're
and replicate.
jealous
They
of
did their
him.
own thing, or they were almost like jealous of it and they
Yeah.
wanted to like they didn't get to do those things. And I think this film, I mean, more obviously later on, but I think this film on Secret Service is almost like a template for Daniel Craig's Bond. And like the things they wanted to do, like they wanted
Yeah,
I
to.
especially for
think
the last.
I think
This is
Daniel
this is the
Craig.
film they probably took most inspiration from in terms of just kind of how they wanted Bond. But they basically achieved in this film what happens across the entire Daniel Craig sort
We'll
of
get
Yeah,
into the
and the
right?
the
difference is they actually
misery
achieved it.
the misery that is No Time to Die later, but yeah. Anyway, so like obviously I think the film's success is testified to by how many later films tried to kind of lean on it, reference it, things like that. And people like, I don't know, it's just silly if people try to kind of censor it out just because it was George Lazenby's what. I don't know. Some people just seem to have like this, I don't know, deep grudge or something against George Lazenby, and they just
Maybe because
bring up
he's not from the British Isles.
they bring up like they bring up like really non-starter points against him as opposed to like disqualify him, like his so-called wooden acting, which is a complete like joke. Like it's not. It's perfectly acted in my
Yeah,
opinion.
it fooled us. So
And I'll explain why later when we get to
You know what? I don't get
bits
that
where it's
though. I
more
mean, you're
opportunity.
talking about as far as I'm aware, this is like a very like broadly respected Bond film.
yeah,
I
but
think
only now it
Not
is.
really,
Only
not really.
I
Like
want
I've
now
seen
what I
people put
wonder now. I'm connecting the dots because one thing I've kind of always known about this film is that it's one of Christopher Nolan's favorite. It is Christopher Nolan's favorite Bond film, and I might be
yeah.
misquoting, but I believe this is in his top 10 films of all time. And this is certainly. I mean, Chris Nolan over the years has always been rumored to be making a Bond film, and maybe that will still happen,
Maybe.
which would be very interesting. But yeah, this is quite famously his favorite Bond film, and I wonder if that because Chris Nolan is such a respected director and name, and he's a household name, right? I wonder if it's because of that acknowledgement that people give this film a bit more respect now. But as
yeah.
far as I'm aware, this has always been like a film that people hold to a very high regard anyway.
Well, that's the
I've
thing.
seen
It's only really
people
been kind of in the last few years that people have Well,
I've s-
maybe longer than that, but still, this was like mild when it came out.
But I think
And
it is
from-
interesting what you touched upon there, Tom, in the fact that this, and it never really occurred to me in like in such explicit terms, but On Her Majesty's Secret Service like probably had the most influence of any Bond film other than Goldfinger, I would say, because they are both very early on in the series, and I think Goldfinger's influence, obviously, you can see, you know, like massively influenced the whole Bond series, and I think this one did. But you get both sides of the coin because Goldfinger and On Her Majesty's Series are completely different films, like in pretty much every respect. And you can see which films and which actors as well, like which Bond's portrayals were influenced by Goldfinger. You can almost split the Bond films down the middle and just go, these are sort of Goldfinger-esque Bond films, and these are On Her Majesty's Secret. Do you get what I'm saying?
I
yeah,
think
I get what you're
close.
saying.
I think
Actually,
close
that's a
to.
good point.
I think close to these two actually, but also a little influential was You Only Live Twice, because that was the film that was like very grand, like scope, like very grand stakes in that, and like you do get that like try to get replicated in other films which are like have these really worldwide reaching
Yeah,
like
some wit
consequences.
to the point
I,
where they
I,
just
I agree with you, but I think that began with Goldfinger. You know, like You Only Live Twice is more of a Goldfinger Bond film than a On Her
Yeah,
Majesty's Secret Service. I think you could define pretty much any Bond film
Yeah,
like
I
that,
can see that.
good or bad. But you know,
You Only Live
either way,
Twice.
Also,
it's just because of the tone. You know, like Goldfinger's high key, over the top, not over the top, but you know, it's like it's extravagant. You know,
bombastic
and
is
this
the
is the
best word
opposite. This
for
is
it.
like your low key, subtle, sophisticated. But I mean, they're both sophisticated, but in different ways. You know.
This like film I think the thing with Goldfinger was is that it was really I don't know like You Only Live Twice was about starting like World War III and stuff between like Russia and America, and you don't really get that in another Bond film so much before
Well,
that.
you
I
effectively
think
get
you're
that in
missing
Doctor No, don't
you're
you?
missing one of the
Not
parts.
really, that's just him like topless
That's
and
like
stuff.
interfering with like the American.
Yeah, but that's not being portrayed as coming from Russia or anything.
You
It's
mean
just
in a later?
coming
Are
from
you saying
nowhere,
that? Are
basically.
you saying the plot of Game of Twice doesn't happen later, in the Bond series?
But no, I'm saying it does because
Yeah, I was gonna say like.
it obviously does. Like so many films try to like replicate the whole like
Yeah,
World War
I mean that
Three
is
thing.
literally also the plot of the
Yeah,
Spy
but
Who
that's
Loved Me.
you're like
Yeah,
I mean, what you're trying to say, Tom, is that like You Only Live Twice was like the first film which is like world domination sort of stakes, right?
in a way.
Pretty sure that happened. World domination, same old dream. Who is it that says that?
That's
Sean Connery
James
and Doctor
Bond
No.
to Doctor No, but like
There you go.
he's not really going for world domination, is it? That's just like that's a mischaracterization.
That's Spectre's
Doc-
end goal,
Doctor No,
That's
basically.
it. It's introducing Spectre, so I think that was always present. And what I know what you're saying because You Only Live Twice is like a culmination of all those encounters with Spectre. But I'm just talking about generally thematically how Goldfinger was that kind of Bond film, was just like
yeah,
yeah,
Goldfinger
what
more
Goldfinger's trying to
influential,
achieve
but
is very personal and selfish. He doesn't care about the world stage. He's not. He's apolitical. Um,
Yeah,
and
even though he's going
Spectre
to
is,
destroy
but
the
that's
West
because
economy.
Goldfinger isn't a member of Spectre. That's why it's different.
Mm.
But anyway, I
Yeah.
think we're going in circles here. We need
Yeah,
to,
I think as well.
yeah,
Yeah, back to
we
the
need to get
film.
back because we will rank these at the end. I'm very interested to see which one actually comes out on top.
I kind of. I also want to say this is not when it comes to this scene as well. When George Lazenby kind of his chance to say, "My name's Bond, James Bond." I think this is probably the worst of all of them. Like, it's not that it's
Really,
like I don't think it's
I
like
wasn't expecting that.
he's too
I love it.
jolly, you know. Like he's like, yeah, I just save you. My name's Bond, James Bond, and it's like,
No, I love it. I love it. I've
I
always
think
loved it.
it's good.
For me, it's one of the best ones.
I don't know. And also like the viewing, he's only in a shirt, you know, like.
Yeah, I know, but there's something about like the enthusiasm he says it and the authority he says it with is so like
Are we watching
this
the
is
same
probably
film?
like that sort of arrogance that you heard. My name is Bob, and it's the first time you hear his voice. It's literally his first line,
Mm.
and it does. I really like it. I really like it. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, to be fair, but I'm surprised you said that.
Nah, I don't think this is like complete. I don't know. Maybe it's just completely different to like Sean Connery's one or Roger Moore's, introduction, to be honest. Or it's like, and maybe I don't know how they would really have been able to do it otherwise. Like, maybe not where he's like, his face is like this close to the camera, or something. Like, it's just a strange, like, point of view, basically.
By the way, like just going quickly back to your point about this is being a generally respected film. I think it's a bit more Marmite than that because I've literally seen people put this film at the last place on their Bond film rankings, and they've been like, "Oh, it's this, it's that, it's boring and long and dull," and it's like, and I'm like, "No, it's not." But like, yeah, I think there is a little opposition to it because people aren't willing to acknowledge like George Lazenby and stuff. But
Well,
and
that's their
one
problem.
thing that we get the first of in this scene that is really great throughout the film, I think, which is better than in Sean Connery's era, is the fights, like fist fights and stuff. Like when the goons show up, it's like really like it's like quick cuts, but done right in a way. Like there's lots of like action and there's like throwing each other in the water and stuff, and like I don't know, one of them gets smacked with an oar and then thrown in the boat. But like, it's like not. I just compare it to like Sean Connery's fight with like Hands or whatever, where it's like really clearly choreographed, and he's like, "Oh, punch over him, then he'll flip you into the water." It's like very like one step at a time kind of thing. But this feels like, I don't know, it feels more like I don't know.
Well, you're missing out Red Grant's fight as well, to be
Yeah,
fair.
It's really interesting you say that, Tom, because I couldn't disagree more. I think
Really?
the fight scenes are the worst part of this film.
Really, I don't.
Yeah,
think
yeah,
so.
I think they're
Not
terrible.
really. I think they're pretty good.
Really, no, for me, they're so bad they take me out of the film. And I'm not. I mean, I know what you mean about like the Sean Connery fights. They are like over choreographed. It's like a judo lesson sort of thing.
Yeah.
But that's kind of part of the film. It doesn't really take me out of it. It's like whatever, it's just part of the '60s vibe, whatever. The films, and the quick cuts they work in other parts of the film to create tension. I think during the fights, it doesn't work for me. I
No,
think the fight scenes are actually
I think you're
probably
just
the worst part of this film. They're really bad for me.
the only bad fight I think that happens in this film, which I think is the one that you're thinking of, is where he fights a goon in his hotel room from Draco. That's literally it.
No, there's this one. There's the fight in the hotel room. There's also when they're about to go meet Draco, when they have a
That's
fight just
good.
outside his office.
I think
Just
that's
doesn't
good,
work
yeah.
for me. The actual fist fights just because you
To
get
be
the
fair, I
close up
think the
of
main
George Lazenby
problem.
right there, and he's like, I don't
They're
like.
really actiony and they're much more realistic in my opinion. Actually, the guy we'll get into it later, but the guy who played Gunter actually got the part because George Lazenby accidentally broke his nose when they were like filming it and like
Yeah.
I don't know, play like fighting or whatever, and then George Lazenby was a bit too realistic and broke the guy's nose.
I'm not even
they-
joking. I
they
actually
gave
wrote
him
down
the
the words
part.
"bad fight" here. Like
No, this is the thing,
I
though.
did want to like actually point out like how like I didn't just for me just didn't work.
I think the only problem you have with some of the way they cut it in the fights is, especially in this first one, sometimes actually lose track of who's George Lazenby. Like when it comes to drowning, I mean, when it comes to him drowning the guy in the water, I was like, more so as a kid, I found it easier to tell like later, but you still have to pay like really close attention to which one's which because they're both wearing similar outfits and it's like blue water.
I always think the one who's screaming the most isn't George Lazenby. That's just like my default, basically,
true.
because James Bond can't be caught doing that.
Yeah.
And anyway, this scene ends with one of the great Bond lines basically because
Or one of the most hated Bond lines too.
what really
Yeah,
Some
some
people
people
hate this
hate
one.
this. Yeah,
Okay, well let's get to it because obviously the build up is basically he fights off these two goons. Dinah Rigg, Tracy, she goes and takes his car, drives up, and you think she's stolen his Aston Martin, but she doesn't. She just drives up and gets into her car, drives off, leaves him with her slippers,
pretty
and
classic.
he goes, "This never happened to the other fellow."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah,
I believe there are two
I assume we all
interpretations.
always thought it was a Cinderella reference.
Right,
Yes.
I think there are two main
Cinderella.
interpretations for this, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there's like a Cinderella reference there, and there's a Sean Connery reference there as well.
Yeah,
So I'm
it
going to
is
let you two
the
argue
Sean Connery
about that, but
reference
like
is
because
what it
I'm
is,
pretty
but
indifferent. I like the line though. I think it's
yeah,
good. It has sort of double meaning. I like it, but
I think the
you go
line is
ahead.
good as well, but the actual meaning of it is actually to do with Sean Connery because George Lazenby, his experience filming this. I mean, one of the things is actually it actually ties into the fights as well because he didn't have a stunt double for most of this. Apart from when he's skiing, it's actually a real professional skier. I think like one of the best in the world or something like that. But he was like actually there during most of the fights, like and when like when he broke one of the axes' nose. Um, And like, for example, where he's also fighting them in like that room with like all the bells. Originally they had like, I think like fake like plastic ones, so they didn't injure themselves. But then they decided, actually let's put them in a room with actual bells, because otherwise it doesn't sound or look right. And every time they'd ask him to do something ridiculous, like while doing it or before or after, he'd always say like, this never happened to the other fellow. So
Yeah.
director asked him like, oh,
But that's
say your line,
that's ironic, isn't it? Because Sean Connery did go through a lot of like hazardous situations
Yeah,
himself, right?
true. But not in the same way as George Lazenby, for some of the things they asked him to do.
I think it's probably because Sean Connery's like near death experiences were down to incompetence rather than this being like just
Yeah, this is what's intended
intentional.
to happen. Yeah, so he would, and then the director was like, oh yeah, say your line, for this, and he was like, say the line.
That's really weird for me, because it's that revelation that he didn't really have a stunt double, because I would have thought he like, because they surely I assume George Lazenby cost a lot less to hire than Sean Connery. So I'd have thought that they'd have saved some money there and then gone, okay, well we can splash out and like, but I guess not. I don't know. I'm
No,
going to be
not
interested
really.
to see what the budget is for like when we do license quiz. Like the budget, I have no idea now.
Yeah, true. I was quite surprised when I saw it too myself.
Okay.
But anyway,
Um.
we'll get to it.
Yeah. So anyway, Tom, your thoughts on the line? This never happened to the other fellow.
I always try to be generous to this. So like first I heard was actually from you when we watched this when we were younger, and then I was like, oh, what's that line? And you're like, yeah, it's referring to like Cinderella in it,
Yeah.
and then I was like, yeah, okay, I accept that, and then like. And then that's just what I stuck with. Like I just take all these like uncharitable like into might even be true, but like I just feel like it's such an unnecessary I think it works for the audience, but like long term fans as well, and that makes it a good line in my opinion.
Mm.
Because casual people will think, oh yeah, Snow White. Long term things fans will think Sean Connery. So it works both ways, I think.
I
And
think it's funny that I think it is funny that it like breaks the fourth wall and it's like a meta joke as well as
Yeah.
being, because I think the obvious thing is that it is a certain, and maybe because I was young when I watched it, and we were watching the Disney cartoons as well, and you think it's, I think that is quite obvious metaphor.
Maybe it's a joke for the kids and the adults.
But yeah, it's one of them, I think.
Well, the main
Then
the only thing I have a slight gripe with it is I didn't notice this before, but when someone was criticizing it and when they pointed out I can't unsee it, it's because after he says that he looks directly at the camera and then does the thing where he walks into that, and I was just like,
you ruined it for me now. I never noticed
I,
that.
I've noticed. I remember hearing that, but it hasn't ruined it for me. It's like, yeah, go on.
yeah,
Do
it hasn't ruined it. It's just I can't unsee it now.
Oh well.
But anyway, when it comes to it, because it goes straight into the intro credits, the theme
Oh
is
mate,
so good.
Amazing.
so
And
good. The music is like I
no
love the theme
lyrics
song. This is
needed.
maybe my favorite piece of music from the entire Bond franchise.
Yeah.
I would,
I might put that out.
I would probably agree.
Instrumental certainly.
Because they used
Vocally,
like
maybe even with, if you're including vocals as well. Actually, I think this is. I love this one, but as
not
like
only is
that's
it
like as a personal favorite. I'm not being objective there. It's not the best, but I do love it.
yeah,
I
same. It's
love
just
it
like
as well.
it's a theme song for the film, and at the same time, it's so good it can also be used as an action theme too, like whether it be fighting or skiing or
It's like so bombastic in a way, but so like I don't know, intense at the same time. Like uh I, I don't know. It's just like used to convey like both suspense and action when they're skiing so well. And one thing I love about this one that they didn't even get that right in other later ones where they do try it is where they bring back like the previous 5 films and you see it going through like this
Hmm.
hourglass time thing and then
Yeah,
it's like
yeah. We all
I
thought it was
got
Hourglass
I'm
as a kid.
sorry I got this like chills basically when I saw like all these different like memories for the Bond character like showing up in it. I was like, yeah, this is like almost as if this one really is like the culmination versus, and in some many ways it is the culmination in terms of like Bond character development, you could say, and like, but it just shows like all his previous experiences, like from the other films, and it's just amazing. You see like Dot No, you see Honey Rider. Like, I always felt a bit bad that From Russia with Love only got one of them, and the others got like 3 or something each, and then you see Goldfinger, Largo, like, and then like some randos from like You Only Live Twice, but like yeah, it's really cool. Like a bit of
Right.
action as well, but yeah, I
Yeah,
love it.
if I'd say two things about it, the actual like when it comes to the music itself, it's really one of the things I think they do really well is the fact it sounds kind of like especially at the beginning, it sounds like a clock ticking down almost, like a countdown to something, and like a lot of the theme of this is time. I think the best visual bit is where it's like you see a silhouette of Bond hanging down on a like a clock which is going around.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That was
This,
fun.
it's a weird one for me. I think the silhouette stuff, like the traditional sort of one, is amazing. I love that. Yeah, and like you say, this film's all about time. That's like a big theme of it. Probably why Chris Nolan loves it so much.
Yeah, true.
But for me, the hourglass thing is weird. I think it's good. It's a great concept, but it just wasn't executed very well.
I
You know,
think the only
in particular, and you know what I'm going to fucking talk
yeah,
about
it's
now.
the guy with the
The
sword.
Japanese guy, yeah, man, that samurai. They just like freeze the frame on his like face, and it's like it makes me laugh. It just completely takes me out.
Yeah,
Why
you
couldn't they
always
have
found it funny
Blofeld or
about
something,
that.
It
man?
used
And it's just
yeah,
weird because they choose to like, and I know why, because it's the hourglass, but
didn't
they're like stretching it through, and it just looks weird. I don't
no,
know.
can
Like
you
I feel
imagine
like that
like
could have been done a little bit better.
well, actually to be fair,
But
it would have been cool. It would have been cool if they had instead of that Fury and Live Twice, the thing where Blofeld revealed his face. But then
yeah,
it
there's
would be
so many.
strange because then it's a
Mind
different
you,
Blofeld.
actually, now that I think about it, maybe they deliberately didn't do that
Yeah,
because they had a
because
different
it's
Blofeld actor.
Toast of Alice, yeah.
But I
That would have
think
been cool
it
if
wouldn't have. Yeah, actually, maybe that would have. But they just have some weird like frames there, like the car crashing and stuff. It's like okay, I can't remember which film
yeah.
that's from.
The
that's from
main
Thunderball, I
See,
think.
the main problem I have with this is just like uncomfortable to watch since I've noticed. As a kid I thought it was an hourglass. As now that you look at it, it's like, oh, it's a woman's legs open. How funny is that?
It's
Like,
not a
Is
woman's
it?
legs open,
it
it's an
looks like it.
hourglass. Yeah, no, I just ignore that. I like force myself away from that interpretation, just try and enjoy it. Because for me,
Yeah,
it's such a good
the
moment.
problem is if you
For me,
see it
it's
again, it's
for,
kind of
for me,
like,
it's such like a good. It's a good. No, I knew I always had that in the back of my mind, but I just ignore it. Like, because for me, it's such like a good moment that like for me, it's just so good that like I don't know, it doesn't. It's a sand timer. That's better, so that's what it is. And yeah, and as for the randos in like Year of Twice, like the guy with the samurai sword, yeah, I get it, but I think everything else was good. Like,
well, yeah, most of it was pretty good, but I think, hmm, I mean, to be honest, this can't ever be bad for me because of the music that it's got. Um, like we said earlier, like the choice of the scenes to show in it are not necessarily the best, but to be fair, they couldn't show Bond himself because obviously it's Sean Connery,
yeah,
and they couldn't have that epic bit from Yona twice because it was, not the same Blofeld. I mean, there's a shame because then they could have had like, the little Nelly scene or something
I've
like that.
literally got it up on my phone,
yeah, they
Henry. You're
could
wrong.
have.
It's not a women's legs. I don't think it transitions into something a little bit later, but
That's what I
no,
mean.
it's not. It doesn't explicitly transition from one to the other. It just sort of shows it later on.
It's really cool. Like the I don't know what you'd call it, but like it's like all this English like symbolism and stuff there. There's like the person holding the
Oh
trident
Yeah,
yeah,
and the
true.
Rule
shield and
Britannia and
like
all that. Oh
that's
yeah,
really
Yeah.
amazing. Really
it's
cool.
beautiful. Like just and the music. This just gives me goosebumps every time. I'm like, I'm so here for the journey, man. And it's one of those that I go back and listen to, like, and watch. It's just so good. I think this is. I mean, we're not ranking the credit scenes, because we have so many other things to rank. But I think if we did, this would be like top three,
Hmm.
along with
Easily.
Casino Royale for me. I
Yeah,
love the
true.
Casino Royale one, but yeah. Um.
Yeah, don't
Anyway.
forget Never Say Never Again, which doesn't have one. But anyway,
Oh, okay.
the
um.
intro to
The
that
one
is
in
just dumb.
Casino
But
I
Royale where
think
he's
probably the other,
convincing.
my like the ones that stick with me as well is probably like the Pierce Brosnan ones are pretty good because they try and like theme each of them. But anyway, we'll get to them
yeah,
eventually.
eventually.
So anyway, now we go to a casino. Um,
Which
obviously
is which is actually in the novel Casino Royale.
makes
Because
sense.
because he's also playing Baccarat, and also
Yeah,
he
I
in
noticed
at
that. Yeah.
least in the novel he's meant to be he's gone back there to he also visits Vesper's grave, but obviously they didn't have the rights to make Casino Royale, so
So
nor
as
did they have the rights to.
the more
Yeah.
we ignore that character as well we can, the better, in my opinion.
All right then.
Oh, that's a bit harsh, but okay. All right. So then we have so he's playing cards there, like you said, Henry. Tracy pops up. This is a long game. What I love about this film is how expertly it just shows the passing of time. Because this scene takes a few minutes, but then there's like just a great, and this is something they struggled with previous films, and just in filmmaking in general, it's quite hard to show the passing of time. A lot of films struggle with that, I believe. This film, it's perfect. The way they show passing the time is so good. You know exactly how much time has passed without it being obvious. You know, just and you know he's sat at this table for a few hours. You know, it's like it's a long game, and I just wanted to shout that out. The directing, I don't know.
As well, I think another massive credit to this film is it's 2 hours 20, and it feels like it's over 90 minutes. You know, stuff happens like, there's no like dead space in the middle of it.
Yeah.
You're right. The pacing in this film is fantastic. This is like a Bond film. Like I genuinely go back. I have no problem rewatching this. Like it's such an easy watch for me. It's so enjoyable. It's just because it's so beautiful. It's done to such a high standard. Everything about it.
And also this casino, I have to say, like I love like the purple walls and everything. Everything here just looks like pure
the
class.
casino is beautiful. And again, the costumes. You know, you have like George Lazenby in his beautiful tuxedo. We've got Dinah Riggs. She's wearing like a very beautiful white dress as well. And even like the old lady that's there, she's wearing some like they're just everything is so beautiful. It's so 60s and obviously entering the 70s as well. And I think it just really it's so anyway. So Tracy pops up.
And she's trying to get wiped out, unlike Sylvia Trench in the first film. So
yeah, she's playing this game for the first time. Apparently, man, she just like plays without any money, loses straight away.
It's just, I don't have any money, It's just like 20 grand in debt now.
The slight irritation to me is like you hear her like, oh, I don't have any money, and you can tell what it's about even without hearing her. And then, but there's like this really obvious old guy
shames
leaning.
Her, man,
no, the guy just leaning over to Bond. He's like, oh, too rich for my part, and he's like, oh, she can't pay up, and he's like, piss off. It's like
I wonder if that's once again actually a little poke at Americans, like how obvious they are. Now that I'm thinking about it,
yeah, maybe.
But it's the funny thing to me is like she's obviously like embarrassed because she's like done this without any money, and then like she whispers it to this guy, and he's like, "Oh, but madam, da da da." He's like really loud, and then obviously, luckily for her, 007 bails her out. He's there, and he's like, "Oh, forgive me, my thoughts were elsewhere." But I mean that what I love about the George Lazenby's Bond as well. He's so eloquent for an Aussie as well, which is quite surprising. But he his vocabulary, the way he expresses it, I think the writing, like the lines he's given, is just really, really good. Like it's very rich in like the actual words he says. Well, unlike me, but he's like, I'm gonna lose myself now. I've said that, but yeah. Anyway, he does bail her out. Was it 20,000 francs?
30,000 francs? Yeah.
Okay. And then she sort of. She's hard to get, she goes over and she's like, but that is something I really like about her character, and obviously it's a contrast to what we've seen. What is the stereotype Bond girl in terms of like that just fall from instantly.
It's actually
you can sorry before you go, you can actually directly I'm thinking of so many parallels between this and the very first time we meet Sean Connery as James Bond in Doctor No. When you get him, he picks up Sylvia Trench. There's the back and forth, and he gets her number straight away. Whatever, he gives her his number, and he's like walking off. It's very like suave, and it's interesting to see the evolution of that. And this isn't George Lazenby's first scene; it's his second scene. But still, I think it's just interesting to see the changes there already, while everything's the same but also different. The dynamics, and I think that's largely down to Tracy's character. Like, just it's 3-dimensional rather than what is mostly 1-dimensional Bond girls before and since, unfortunately.
Yeah, and she kind of a lot of this is actually basically directly flipped, because even in a meta way, she is the experienced actress, whereas George Lazenby is the one who has like basically no like acting experience, which most of the Bond girls previously, like from Tatiana from Russia with Love, was just chosen because she was the winner of Miss Italy for the year. And I think Honey Rider I think had some acting experience, but anyway, and also she later on, like when they go to bed, she leaves him Like, Sean Connery would always just leave the women behind, Um, and also, like, like she doesn't just immediately, like basically fold, like first time like he saves her or something.
Yeah, she's not like, blown away by him. She's not like, shaking at the knees straight away.
There's no
yeah,
Bond worship kind of that happens in this, at
yeah,
least.
and I appreciate that about her. This is what again, one of those things that just sets her out. She's, I mean, as well as obviously being very attractive and a skilled actress, she's just probably the best written Bond girl as well. Just because like she's just three-dimensional. She has like an intriguing story. She's like a developed character that they don't, and she's like missing for a huge chunk of the film as well later on. But every time you see her on screen, she like demands your attention, and she's like very interesting. You want to learn more about her. She's got a history. She's got a future. She's like very complex character, which is great, and obviously what intrigues Bond as well.
And you can
He
imagine that.
orders obviously his favorite champagne, Dom Perignon, and they go and she's like, all right, like meet me at my room, whatever. Hope it'll be worth it. She, you insist on saving me, Mr. Bond, and he's like, oh, stay alive at least for tonight. Blah blah blah. They have some back and forth, which is cool.
Yeah. Yeah, Hans, what were you gonna say?
I reckon like she's really believable as well because she's like the daughter of a crime boss basically, and it's not hard to imagine that that's probably what they would be like in that scenario. So like I think she
Yeah, it's
plays
almost
it
like
really
the
well.
opposite of like the Vickers daughter syndrome.
Yeah, it's interesting. Makes it really interesting to watch and a really great like addition to the film.
Yeah, I agree. That just adds like this whole extra layer onto her character, which is so fascinating. But yeah, so anyway, Bond goes up to her room, obviously with high expectations. Instead, he's met with one of Draco's like henchmen. They have this fight. Yeah, this grunting henchman, just strange.
Yeah. It's like he came out of the odd job training camp as well,
Yeah, this fight is what it is, man. I think it's okay actually. This is probably the better of the fights in this film for me. I think it's okay.
I think it's really good once again.
Yeah.
Is he? Yeah. I just realized that there are quite a few like Bond henchmen who like just have like a speech impediment or something.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, of
Hans
course, of
never
course.
speaks
If they
like
can't have a
once logic.
physical, like, something wrong with them physically, it's going to be vocally, isn't it? But yeah, I mean, there's so many. Yeah, you're right now. I'm just beginning to think about it.
You
Yeah,
got
it's crazy.
Whisper as well, my guy.
Whisper, yeah.
Poor guy,
Jaws.
No one listens to him,
Yeah. But anyway, he and obviously the scene's quite funny because it ends, and this is George Lazenby's basically. George Lazenby is amazing at one-liners, man. For like
that's
another,
true.
his one-liners are fantastic. He doesn't never feels like stiff or awkward in any of them. They never seem out of place as well. Obviously they're well written, but like, he goes in, and even when he doesn't say something, when he like beats up this guy, gets a
He
bit of
just
caviar,
swaggers off like nothing happened,
Yeah, he helps himself to a bit of caviar first, and then like he's on his way. Goes back to his room, and
Yeah.
obviously,
I also like they had to add in like just the very brief bit of Bond just knows all this stuff. He's like, oh, it's boiled beluga, north of the Caspian, like knows exactly like probably like
of course,
which like I don't know like
He probably knows like the individual like creature it came from.
yeah he knows like the geo coordinate location of this fish. That was sorry, beluga whale. Anyway.
so he goes back to his room, and Tracy's there waiting for him, not wearing very much, but she does have. Well, Bond like gets like not undressed, but takes off his some of his clothes, and she comes out behind, she gets the gun, and she's like pointing at him, and you're full of surprises, contestants. Like, so you must have Bond, it's like I think I don't know that I want to quote half of this film. I'm going to try not to, because otherwise this episode will be an hour longer than it probably already will be. But yeah, just this back and forth as well. You have her like, and this is really good. She says something so unexpected. She goes, "What if I, you're very sure of yourself. What if I were just to kill you now for the thrill of it?" And you're like, "Whoa, like, yeah, well,
yeah." I mean,
she's just
she handles it,
and you
really
believe
well,
her. I believed her. I'm like, every time I'm like, "Oh, she would do that," like I don't believe that she wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, and only someone as like socially basically smooth as James Bond could get off that without and no being showing anxiety or anything, and he's just like, I think of something more sociable to do, and then just grabs a gun. And
he does. Unfortunately, we get this like early Bond trope of like he slaps her about a little
Yeah,
bit.
it's like the ADR, like terrible like sound effect. But
so
like,
that's always uncomfortable, unless you're someone that subscribes to the theory of like
someone points a gun at you.
yeah, right. It's like
But
kind of little bit. It's more justified, put it this way, than like Sean Connery or
yeah,
whatever.
he
Yeah, with,
randomly
like,
hits
T'Challa,
Tatiana
yeah.
like no
Yeah,
one.
this is like okay maybe,
Because I
but
saw it,
you know.
because I often saw it from his perspective. Like, this goon has just tried to kill him in his room. Like,
And
Right,
she's
right,
like,
right,
she's
right,
and
right.
like,
she
I
knows
don't know what
which
you're
room
talking
he's in.
about. Yeah.
But at the
Yeah,
same
whatever I
time,
may be,
for
I'm not a
her-
liar. Although, is she lying though? Because she is there at the end of the day, and she tells him to come to his room, and he doesn't. I mean, he does, and she's not there, and then she's waiting for him. That's always didn't quite add up for me. I don't know what.
I
Well, to
think
be
her
fair,
dad.
for her, she kind of like, from her perspective as well, like this guy, like she doesn't know, and as the daughter of a mafia boss as well, you probably like be very careful when it comes to like strange men who just turn up. And she found out this guy's also got a gun just lying around casually, so it's like, I don't know if I can trust this guy, like. So when adds a lot more context to the scene, especially when you realize there are two sides to this as well,
I
which
also
is more that can be said for a lot of
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair.
decent
Anyway,
stuff.
eventually they after they've had their sort of like conversation, Bond, sort of again, this is like very against the grain of what we've seen so far from Bond. He tells her, go get dressed. Literally says that to her, and like, she's like, wow, like that's not what Sean Connery would do. And yeah, they do end up, they go on the balcony again in this like beautiful hotel. There's a shot earlier as well where it's like he's looking at the
Yeah,
pool as
just the
well, which
water
reminds you of
turns.
Goldfinger, and then it like the water and it's like casino written on it. It's
Yeah. So that's
stunning.
another thing. The passing of time, just immediately, just that shot
Yeah,
goes
yeah,
to night casino. That's all you need to know.
exactly. So anyway, they're sat on his balcony, and he's talking to her, and I don't want to quote it, but it's just again, it's such a well written, like interesting conversation.
Mm.
And it's funny because he tries to make the move, and then she like shies away from it, and then eventually the conversation ends with her making the move to him, actually pulling him in, but it's one of the only times you ever see it in films where the female in the situation is the one in sort of like controlling she's like doing
She's
it
more
when
outgoing
she's
than
ready,
James Bond
she's
is.
like she's
Yeah.
not being pushed about or anything, she's like in control of the situation, and which is strange to see in any film, let alone a Bond film.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think
Which
that was quite refreshing, and again, just makes her like a standout Bond girl.
mm, yeah, and also she does the equivalent of well, she dashes as well, like afterwards, which is the unless you have a particular phrase to describe it, James.
not
You
not
got any
today. I'll leave it for
nuances?
today. I'm going to leave the crass, crude like stuff for
Yeah.
other episodes. This one's
Yeah, exactly.
I respect Onomatopoeic USOs too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, she's like, I pay my debts. He like opens the thing. It's like got 20,000 francs. Don't know how, but still. If she like had like a late night casino game with someone, just destroyed them after learning.
Yeah, she won all her money back. I don't
I
know.
think,
I
or
think that is cool.
maybe
And obviously, because he puts the gun there, makes a point of it, and then you see she takes the gun and leaves the money. And then obviously that ties into later because he goes downstairs. He finds out that she's checked out, so he goes down, and then it's like, "Oh, Mr. Bond, you've lost something." And it's like, "Oh, have I?" And it's like, "Yeah." And he looks over
Four
his shoulder, and then
guns.
there's the guy like lowering the newspaper. He's got his gun there. I don't know what it is. Just this film is so
That
good.
was so tense
The
as
music
well.
and everything. It's like it's so good, man. I love this film. I love this film. It's so good. So you have this moment here where like Bond's being escorted, and suddenly it's just like the shift. Obviously, you have an appointment now. Oh, mystery tour. They're in the car and everything. The music, it's so good, man. Everything, the costume. I don't know,
Yeah,
like all.
he's cool as a cucumber as well. So it's just like he's just chilling there. He's like, oh
And,
yeah, I think we'd be a little more like relax. Could have a lot more
and he's like,
fun
oh,
without this
mystery tour.
knife thing.
Surprise tour, whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like
Yeah, pulls the knife out of his like, yeah. Oh, we'd be better off without this. Whatever. Um,
yeah.
Now
Now
he's
it's
escorted from the hotel to an undisclosed location.
yeah. There's a thing with this. This is super confusing all the time. They always had that random, like really short cleaner.
Yeah, I'm so glad we get to finally talk about this. What is that guy doing there? That
No,
midget?
this is the thing. I don't know why I don't know why they chose someone who's a vertically challenged guy who's cleaning. I'm not entirely sure why they cast him for this. I mean, they're always confused. But he's whistling the Goldfinger theme, which, well, I don't know. That finally explains because they when it came to, I mean, later on they show George Lazenby like reminiscing with like previous like adventures, but they missed out Goldfinger. I was like, why is that? But then again, it's like, he's not gonna like pull out the car in his office, and be like, oh yeah, I remember driving that.
Yeah, he
But
whips
then I
out the
think
Nazi gold or something.
yeah, exactly. He's just like, oh yeah, I never returned this to Q, did I? You know. Um, but still, you had that. I think that was maybe making up for the fact they didn't reference it later with a gadget. So
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it just takes me out of it every time. Just why is this midget like randomly there? And then I'm not even joking. I think literally when I watched it this week, it's the first time I noticed that he was whistling the Goldfinger thing. I don't know why it took me so, but I was like, oh yeah, okay, now I recognize that now.
oh, you realized actually before I said even. All right.
Yeah, but only the other day, so that's quite interesting.
Nice to know.
Okay, so anyway, so he has a bit of a scrap with these guys. Goes through the door, and then all of a sudden, and he's gone from this like really like boring looking room, like
Yeah.
filing cabinets and stuff.
We can keep the
Into
mystery for a second, but because he's going right through. But I think this is an appropriate time for you to pay attention, 007, because I have some questions for you and Tom.
I want to play a game.
the current
So,
scores are what, 4-1 in Tom's favor?
yeah, 4-1. Yeah,
Okay.
4-2 if you count Casino Royale, which we don't, but still.
Too bad.
Anyway, so the first question, the first two, always the same, but still. How large do you think the budget was for this film?
um, I don't know, man. 15 million. I'm gonna
I'll
go
say
with.
maybe 5 million because I think Untitled Twice was really feels like that was way more expensive, like for the sets and everything than this film. I know they actually did build like a Pitts Glory replica when they had to blow it up and stuff, but like I don't think that catches up. Maybe I'll put a bit higher, maybe 8 million. I'll say.
Both your final answers?
Yeah.
Well, Tom, you are correct. You're actually only a million off.
Yes.
7 million. They probably saved quite a bit of money by
What?
not bringing back Sean Connery. Even with some of the expenses they had to do with Pitt's Glory, which I'll tell you about later. But still, what do you think the box office for this was?
Um.
I'm gonna go with. I
You
think
Earned It Twice was 120 million, wasn't it?
It was it was substantially more. It was
Wait.
check,
We
yeah.
haven't given our. Oh, I thought
It's
you were just gonna give it.
116 million for You Only Live Twice.
Oh, I thought you were just gonna blow out on the rest.
No,
This wasn't. I don't think this did as well.
no, it didn't.
Because the reviews couldn't have like helped. But well, I'll say maybe 85 million.
Yeah.
I'm torn between 80 and 90, so I'll put 85 million.
I'll go with 90 then.
Tom, again, you got it very
Yeah.
close. It's 82 million.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah, that's about. To be fair, that's 660 million today. So that's like, it was pretty successful for back then. Still, it's just it wasn't more than the previous one, which it's like the Marvel mindset now. But anyway, the following question. So, how old was Tracy when her mother died?
Oh, 12.
You're right again, Tom. James,
Yes.
giving
Being fucking
caught slacking
destroyed,
there.
man. Shit.
Right. This is actually a pretty. This might surprise you actually if you don't guess the answer, because I'll have to tell you. What is the age difference between Diana Rigg and Gabrielle Fazzetti, who plays Draco
Um,
in real life, not in the film?
that's such a random question.
It's because it's quite surprising.
Um, gonna say I don't know, 20 years.
I'm gonna
I
say
can't.
10.
Okay.
James, you're closer. It's only 13 years difference between them
Really?
in the time of filming. Yeah, I was like, yeah.
Wow. That's weird. Or whatever. Okay.
All right.
At least,
Which
at
room-
least it's not fucking obvious like in Batman vs Superman, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
13 years, man.
Yeah, only
It
13
could
years.
be. I'd sooner say he's 30 years older than 13.
Yeah,
but-
well, it's full of surprises. So, which room was Bond in at Pitt's Gloria?
Alpine Suite.
Oh, 4.
There you are, James. That's correct.
Oh.
It's now 3-2.
Come on, lads.
Tom to James. So, how many Angels of Death were there?
10.
10.
I'm really sure it was.
It was definitely 10, but we said it at the same time, so I think you need to like
No, I said
It wasn't 10. You both have to guess something else.
Is it 9?
11.
James, you're closer. It was actually 12.
Oh no.
Ah,
Oh,
you know
damn
what? I always assumed it was 12, but I was actually I thought you were gonna ask a question. I was actually trying to count, and I was sure there was 10, and Tom said the same, so I was like, okay, that confirmed
James
it.
got
For me.
wiki,
But
man.
it was 12. Huh?
It was 12. Right.
That doesn't seem right.
this
But
is
okay,
according-
let's move
this is
on.
according
So
to
yeah,
James
okay,
on
so it's
Wiki, so
3-3
you
now.
know.
So okay, we've got the winner here now. I've mounted a comeback, lads. Come on.
All right. This is more than you'd think as well. Anyway, how many henchmen skied after Bond in total?
In total, I think. Do we count Blow? We can't count Blofeld. Can we?
Blofeld isn't a henchman, so no, you
So
don't count them. Just guys in
Mm.
orange jackets,
I
But
think.
how do you know? Like,
I counted. That's how I know.
I reckon.
But let me ask you. Sorry, Henry. But let me ask you. Did you count from like one frame of them all together in one shot, or like?
I counted every single one, including people who died, who he killed, well, and also the guy who fell into the mixer, basically.
Yeah, but how do you
I
know?
think-
Like, how do you know some of them? Like, they're coming out of the basement or whatever, right? And then, like, how do you know? Did you count them as well, or did you just
No,
like?
I keep track of which ones are there and which ones
Ah,
aren't.
this is really hard, man. I'm gonna go with.
I'm gonna say 9
I'm gonna say.
because there's the 4 with Blofeld and then there's some others.
I
But
think
like,
it's gonna be more. I think 15.
Final answers?
I'm
This is
really
for the
not
winner as well.
sure.
Shit. I'm
I'm
go.
gonna say 9. I'm gonna stick with 9. I feel like
It's
regret
more
that,
than
though.
9, but to cover 12, I'm gonna say 14. So I get closer to 12. Yeah, 14.
James, it was one off, but you were the closest. It was
Fuck's
13.
sake.
So
Fucking come on, lads. Come on.
that's
Yes.
4-2 so far for
Oh,
overall.
come on.
It was 13
Yes.
of them because for so far as I can remember when I counted, and I made sure I went back over this, so I am certain. James Bond, he killed 2 of them in the first ski chase, and Blofeld had 4 others with him that ski past. Right, well, he's like making sure that this guy shuts up with the skis. One of them dies by getting
Wait,
mixed.
what did you say? Oh yeah, that.
Yeah, one of them dies when he gets mixed in the
Oh, I
snow.
bet you're counting the ones that were with Bunt as well.
No, those guys weren't skiing.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I covered my bases there as well.
Okay, fair enough, man. Wow.
And,
Okay,
yeah,
so I've
Blofeld
gone
had
from
6
like
for
4-0 to 4-2 and 4-3 if you're counting Casino Royale.
Yeah, if you count Casino Royale, if you're gonna
Come on.
for a bit of
All right, we're
Yeah.
back.
We're back, gentlemen. That was a pretty good comeback though, from 3-0.
Yeah, that was like when we did. What was the first quiz we ever did? The Joker one, right? I did the same thing basically, although I was playing against
basically.
myself, but still.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Good. So back to it then. Okay, so yeah, this cliffhanger you left us on, Henry. Bond goes to go. Bond meets Draco now. So in dramatic fashion, he's got like
Such a good introduction.
Yeah, it's brilliant.
It's
He's
like
got the
frame
knife.
zooms in on him like he's just gonna chuck this knife.
Yeah.
Like, don't kill me, Mr. Bond.
And the
Like,
accent, his voice is like, oh, it's so good, man. And then he throws the knife, and it's like February. It lands on February 14th rather than
It's actually
13th.
September 14th. Oh.
I don't know where I got February from. It is February now.
Yeah.
Why 14th? Man, Valentine's Day on my mind. Fuck.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah. So it lands on September 14th, 13th. I'm
Yeah,
superstitious.
14th. Yeah, because he's like, but today's the 13th. I'm superstitious.
Interesting. And do you know what I like here? And I know it's been done in other films, but just I don't know why this is my favorite.
Yeah,
because,
when you pointed this out, I couldn't unsee it.
the glasses, the way the lens changes when he puts his glasses on and then off. I love that.
Yeah, it's because like his blood. You know, he
Yeah.
looks at me. He does a double take. He's like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
yeah, yeah. It's
you
brilliant,
missed
man.
Mr. Bond. You know.
Yeah. But yeah, that was cool. Anyway, so yeah, we basically get to meet Draco. We get his he's just explaining to Bond. He's doing a lot of exposition here, basically, but it
That's
doesn't feel
good
boring or
conversation.
forced. It's like it's really interesting. It's like you're hearing like someone's actual story. I'm really in the film. There's like I don't know why. It's just, and you got the music going, and even though actually when you take a step away, it's like whoa, this is just like so much exposition. Just like
But it's the music as well, like the
yeah, and it's just and his
tempo of-
acting, the way he's conveying, it's like he is talking about his own daughter. You know, I really believe it. Like
Yeah, you're
even
right.
and this, they're not even in the same room, but you can see this like through the acting, the chemistry that he, you know, and when they are together as father and daughter later in the film, it's like
buy it
it's so
completely.
genuine, so believable, and that happens before they're even on screen together, which is amazing.
Yeah, and
And
also it's like you have like that's also his accent as well. Like it's just like it's
yeah,
so
yeah, of
good.
course.
Like, and he's just
So
like, yeah, they have a lot of good lines in this as well. It's just a great conversation. It's like I've been, yeah, my man been keeping an eye on you. You know, we know everything you've done for my door, and he's like, everything. He's like, yeah, don't worry, mate. You know.
yeah, it's true. I mean, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's going on there and he's like, I'm like as much as I would love to quote the entire film and especially this, we're not going to because basically it boils down to uh basically Draco's like decided that Bond is like the man to sort out his daughter to marry her, and he offers and he goes so far. Bond initially like sort of turned it down.
Genius.
And I have a bachelor's taste for freedom. He's like a Sigma male, you know.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and then Draco even goes on to offer him £1,000,000, and you're like, what, in gold bullion as well? You're like, poor, you know, like, and Bond goes, I don't need £1,000,000, you know. This like
Yeah, he's no that
conversation
was a
is
massive quote.
amazing.
But it's just I don't need that money. I'm like, yeah, sure you don't, mate. Like,
Brokey Bond man.
pay like 20 grand per completion.
Yeah, after Goldfinger showed him up, you know. Check out that short on our channel if you haven't already, by the way. But yeah, you know, I just think this conversation, without spending too much time on it, is just like one of the many high points. And we're going to obviously rank the Bond ally as well, which Draco effectively is. And you know what I find really interesting here is how the dynamic goes from like, oh, I don't want £1,000,000, but you do have information about Blofeld and the Spectre, and then the music changes with it as well, and it's like, and then it goes into this whole like, well, I wouldn't tell Her Majesty's government, but I might tell my future
Her
son-in-law.
Majesty's Secret Service.
It's so good.
But I would tell my
conversation.
future son-in-law. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. It's so good, man. And anyway, so they basically arranged to go and meet up at his birthday, which is in a couple of weeks, conveniently.
Week.
But yeah. So anyway, so then Bond goes back to work. He sees Moneypenny. They have a little. Even this scene is amazing. It's the first time. Like, so M goes like, "Oh yeah, you're off. You're off this case with Blofeld. Like you're not on this case anymore. Like piss off, you know."
Yeah, he's so rude to him, man. It's like the rudest ever.
George is fuming, man.
He doesn't even look up to him, you know. He just doesn't acknowledge his existence.
Disrespect, man.
Yeah, it's just like, I'm relieving you. Your license to kill is useless. You're fucking useless, Bond. Like, go away. And he's just like,
yeah, he proper dresses him down, man. But like in such a savage way. Like I say, he doesn't even look up at him. And it's funny because this is the first time, you know, George Lazenby is with this new M, but it feels so seamless. It feels there's no like crossover or anything like that. He just goes straight in. It feels so natural. You don't even realize this is the first time they've met, you know, on screen together. But it's like, you know, it's so smooth. But you know, Bond, he gets mad. You know, he goes into the next room, quits on the spot. Basically, tells Moneypenny to like take down the memo. I'm resigning. Oh, from what, James? You know, from Her Majesty's Secret Service, and then like, you know, goes to his office.
Because I like Moneypenny as well in this because
Moneypenny has a lot to do in this film as well. It's really good.
Yeah, because like he says like like what would I ever do without you? Like but then I love this bit because they also had to affirm that this is still the same James Bond despite the different actor. Like he goes into his I assume his room, which is like next door or something. He's just like
we see Bond's office for the first time.
Yeah, we all love looking back at his memoirs. You know, I don't know how he got the knife from Honey Rider, but maybe it's some negotiations or something.
It's got a picture of the Queen on it, so he's got a
Yeah,
picture of the Queen in his room.
literally. The thing that I love the most is when he pulls out like the garrote watch. Like it's just nice and it's like cool to think that he kept this as a trophy from like that that brutal fight with the Red Grant. Shame they don't have something from Goldfinger, but as we said, like, was he going to pull out that homing device that was like crinkled into like size of a like like when it was crushed. He just pulls out like
He
the
could have got something like Goldfinger's pistol, for example, or something.
yeah, but that got sucked out of the plane. Remember?
Okay,
True.
yeah, maybe there's death grip on it, maybe. Still, anyway,
Yeah,
this is a
pulls
nice
out
scene. And
Goldfinger's
what's cool
hat,
is
tries
not
to-
only does he pull out the props, but you've got the music, like the theme for each of them as well. Which I don't know. I think it's good for it works for Doctor No, but then you've got like the Thunderball one or From Russia with Love. It just is too much. I don't know. Maybe.
No, I think the From Russia with I think the Thunderball one was a bit too much, but still, because like it's
And
a really
anyway, it culminates with him getting his flask of whiskey, presumably, and he's like, "Sorry, man, great line." And he's like,
so many
and
good lines.
it's shot in the reflection of the Queen's picture there. It's so good, man. This film is so good. Like the little moments like that, just fantastic.
Mm.
Anyway, so then Moneypenny calls him back in, and he goes, "Okay, like,
Yeah, he goes back into M.
M without looking goes, request."
Grant.
Permission granted, request granted. Doesn't even look up at him again, and like Bond's like shocked. He's like, "What? He's just gonna let me quit like that? No, like thank you, whatever."
Yeah, again,
And
as well, like
it's so
his acting
good
as
because
well
he goes
for this.
back. Yeah,
He
he goes
says
back.
so
He's like
much-
mad at. He's like, "Oh, oh yeah." Earlier he says as well, great line. Present it's that monument in there,
Yeah,
and
exactly. And
which
he
is
knows by
it's
this point
so
that M can hear him, like regardless in a
a
Moneypenny.
monument. Like imagine like golly, like and that's such fun. Like he's a statue, man, which effectively isn't it?
Yeah,
And
because
then
he
he
doesn't
goes,
move at all.
yeah, and then he goes, and then he comes back and it's like, oh, just accept it just like that, It's like he's unemployed as far as he's
But did
concerned.
you read it?
Yeah, and then she goes, oh, what did you expect? A knighthood, which is quite funny. And then he goes, yeah, and then did you read it? He reads it, and it's like 2 weeks leave. And she goes, you didn't really want it. And
Moneypenny's got
again,
him a
it's just
holiday.
like with this really brilliant writing and acting, it just gives them so much depth. And it's like, even though again, this is the first time you're seeing Bond with Moneypenny, George Lazenby with Moneypenny, it feels like they've been like they've just picked up where they left off with Sean Connery, and she just understands him so well, and he goes, what would I do without you? And then he exits, and then M M comes on the panel. He goes, what would I do without you, Moneypenny? Thank you. It's like, and he says it in such an animated way as well. You never hear M with that sort of tonality, which it's so good, man.
Because he can hear everything in her office basically, and the fact that she basically she knows what's going on between them, and she just diffuses the situation. That's like she's doing more than above her pay grade, But like she makes like Bond happy and also M happy, and then like their kind of beef is like diffused more or less. And
I think in that scene she does more just with that moment. It's the first time she actually kind of does something. She takes some agency, In previous films, she's just there to have a bit of banter with, just to have like, oh, let's have this joke out here, whatever, bit of humor, a bit of like light relief, whatever. I don't know. Like with Q, like with them a lot of the time. But Moneypenny even less, because she never really serves the plot at all. In this film, she does very crucially, which I think is interesting. I'm sure she has something to do, which don't think really any other Moneypenny ever does until like Skyfall.
Yeah, basically. Even then, she just shoots Bond. It's just like whoops.
Yeah. Tom, you still with us, or are you off?
No, I'm still here. I think it's
Okay.
a good Moneypenny scene, maybe the best.
Yeah, I liked as well. Like I don't know if this is me misremembering some trivia, but I'm pretty sure that him throwing the hat on there, he got it first time. George Lazenby. So it was
right.
kind of like it was almost destined to be kind of thing. But
Nice.
still, moving on.
So okay, so now Bond has a couple of weeks off. So
He goes.
he goes to Draco's birthday, which is a bullfight, and he's there, and he goes, he's there. I mean, long story short, he meets up with Tracy as well. She figures out, again, again, it's great, like, character development where Tracy's like, she realizes something's up, and she's like, and you get George Lazenby's like, he's charming as Bond. He's like, oh, but each time is a renewed pleasure. He just bats off she hurls something at him, and he just bats it off so, like, casually. It's like, oh, we've already met. Oh, but each time is such a renewed pleasure. Oh, she always makes one feel so welcome. Well, I don't know. He speaks in such an eloquent fashion. And she, I don't know, just their like chemistry, and Draco's there as well, and you have this like triangle like relation. It's so good, man.
Yeah, because I think she's like kind of afraid to trust anyone, like to that degree.
Understandably, when you hear her backstory a little bit from Draco as well,
Which is why, she always like pushes him away. But then I think by the end of the scene, a penny drops to her that maybe she can trust him, which is like really nice because there's actually steps to how this relationship comes to be, unlike later ones. And
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And yeah, it's just, and she doesn't make it easy at all. But not and the funny thing is,
like
it's not in a way that feels forced either, because obviously no one, especially nowadays, no one wants to have like the feeling that just falls straight away at the hero's feet, just like straight away falls for him. No one wants that. So they try and throw in a little bit of like, but it's always very lazy. I don't know if just like, I think it is a case that women are generally not very well written characters. They're like the focus, the attention is usually on a male character, just because I mean that's man's world and all that. Unfortunately, the way it is. And with the event of feminism and everything, I mean, I'm getting a bit political here, so like forgive me, but like
it's political to talk about women.
Well, like female characters are now, it's like, or not now, but like there's two ends of the spectrum. You've got like, okay, like the old school, like where they just fall for the hero straight away, or you get ones that like put up a little bit of a fight, a bit of a resistance at the beginning, but then eventually fall. This feels earned, and this is down to the writing. This is down to Diana Rigg's ability as an actress as well, and the chemistry with George Lazenby.
Yeah,
and she
like
really,
a real relationship.
Yeah, exactly. It feels authentic. It feels earned, like everything they go through. So like all that stuff said before is just to like praise this film basically, and like how, and this is again why she stands out, why this film stands out, because the relationship
for its era too.
Yeah, she's not just there for like shits and giggles. Oh, we need a female character. Let's just throw one in here that he meets along the way at Station X or whatever. She's actually crucial to the plot. She makes a difference, and she's just as important as Bond. Effectively. Which is great, and she's like her own character. She's got her own strength here, and she's like really worth, because I was thinking earlier when we've done previous episodes, we skipped over the female characters a lot, and I was kind of thinking, I had a moment where I was like, should we talk about them more? Like, have we done them like a disservice or anything? But I don't really think we have, because there's not really much to say about them. They're mostly one-dimensional characters, at best two-dimensional. And now I'm realizing I'm talking so much about Tracy's character because there is a lot to talk about. She's like a deep, well-written character, which is, like I said, not just great to see in films, but just like surprising for a Bond film, especially.
Yeah, I mean, this scene also plays out like a bit of back and forth as well. The fact that she lets on that she knows, that Draco is kind of like this is more of an exchange rather than, but that's the only reason why she's present and so on. And then basically
that's right, and there's a moment where she says, tell him what he wants to hear, or you'll never see me again.
Yeah, the music just stops.
And again, yeah, jazz music stops. Yeah. But like when she says these things, she said that, and she said earlier to Bond, "What if I were to kill you just for the thrill?" You haven't spent much time with this character, but you really believe what she says. You can see she's not like in a good place, and she's prepared to cut these people off or just to do these dramatic things. You don't doubt her for a second. And that's not just, I mean, that's also, but their responses to her as well, just like illustrate, like they just, reinforce that as well. Like the strength of her character, where she says something, you're like, okay, you're like shit, Then Draco, basically the equivalent to Blofeld, backs down straight away. He's like, he's not risking it, which is like, yeah. And this is what leads Bond on to the next part. It says like A to B, it serves the plot.
Also like,
it serves the relationship as well, because she goes, okay, now he needs no interest in me. Storms off. He goes after her, and she's like looking away. She's like crying, and turns around and he says like very romantic thing, and then it kicks off the music like, I mean, and then you've got this like Louis Armstrong song. We have all the time in the world.
The last one he wrote before he died as well. So
wow. He didn't write it; he just performed it.
Well, yeah, that's the last one he did before he died. I mean,
But yeah, it's again, this is just one of the beautiful songs. You know, Louis Armstrong, as well as A Beautiful World. You've got this one. This is like, you know, those two great songs of his. It's so romantic, and you just have this montage of Bond and Tracy, and they're like, you know, they're in these like romantic settings and locations, and you just see the time passing, and it's like this organic relationship, and it is a little bit like cringe and cliche because you a little bit because, you know, they're on the horses, it's all like beautiful and stuff, but then again, that is like the honeymoon period of a love story, right? It is like all nice and stuff.
yeah.
So, you know,
But it feels like a lot of time passes as well during that. Like,
oh yeah,
despite the
definitely.
fact it's like kind of a short montage, like
Mm.
you can kind of fill the gaps in your head as well.
Yeah,
Like, and this is what makes it kind of like, this is why it's more believable later on, because they've solidified the fact that they actually like each other. And it's not just like, yeah, this happened like once, like in one scene, you know, they just like goes like a switch, you know.
yeah, yeah, it feels earned. And it's not like, you know, if this was made today, you'd have some kind of love scene, like, you know, a sex scene or something. It'd be something a bit more, you know, and
Yeah.
it'd
By the
just be
way,
a bit
guys, you know,
too.
they like each other, you know, like
Yeah,
drop
exactly.
like
They just fall into each other's arms at this stage. You know, it's just like, you know, it feels earned, and it's like, I don't know. It's just
yeah.
it's so well done. It's
They also
just
have like
perfect.
the brief, like, you know, the flash of the wedding ring they're looking at. It's like, oh yeah, yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
think
We'll
that
get
that's
Picking
where it
out
gets
for
a little bit
later.
on the nose, but it does
Yeah.
tie in a little bit later, so that's okay. But I think again that does help show the passing of time, um, and obviously just this beautiful music as well in the background, which you know, literally directly influences later film, like to the point where it's in it.
Yeah.
Henry's favorite.
Yeah, my
And
second
yeah,
favorite.
anyway.
Yeah.
And it ends as well, like you've got them in the taxi as well later on with Draco in the middle, and then Bond and Tracy to each other's sides looking like at each other, you know, and it's like it's cute, you know, and he's in the middle and he's like clocking it, whatever. I don't know, and it's just it's so beautifully done. I don't know about you two, but for me it's just like I mean, I've seen a lot of films, I've seen hundreds of films, and every film, pretty much every film ever made, like the vast majority have some kind of love story happening in it, some romance story, some like, and for me this is one of the best and one of the most authentic. Mind you, that's partially because of my, like, I don't gravitate towards romantic dramas, to be fair.
Yeah, sure.
But still, from the films I've seen, I think this is just one of my favorite just relationships that just happen. I don't know about you two, but for me, it's just really,
I'd
really
probably have to agree. But again, also I don't really watch a lot of romantic dramas because just not like that.
What I like about this is that basically um, um, people I've heard people roast this like romantic development because they're like, oh, all it takes is a montage and then they want to marry each other, and it's like
Right. Yeah, they'll praise
that's
that.
completely missing the point because by the way, before when they're having a little lunch scene on his birthday, I find it funny and it's a little recurring thing how like the goons are just there with Draco, just witnessing his family drama go down and like all the time. And it's
Yeah, it's like this
I do
guy like beat me up earlier.
I do find that funny, and then they're just when you see the camera pan out when she storms off, they're just sat there just chilling, and it's like, okay, it's probably part. I wonder what their contracts were like. But yeah, going back to this romantic thing, like I think the thing that people are missing, I think, is that if you're going to convey something in great detail, then that comes at the expense of time
Mm,
covered in the
uh-huh,
relationship.
of
So like
course.
if you're seeing them, oh, they're doing this together, like oh, they're doing this thing, oh, they're sitting in a shower with their clothes
Yeah,
on,
yeah. What are
getting
they gonna
wet.
do? Like, yeah,
So
bake a
like
cake together or something.
that's gonna that's gonna add on to the runtime. Can't avoid that. So
Yeah.
that's gonna come at the expense of the time covered in their relationship, right? So in this, the way it's done here is like just a few like I think really tasteful moments where they're like having like genuinely good times together and stuff, and like it conveys time passing and stuff, um and the film can't be like months or years long, can it? So like
Mm.
this is like it's unrealistic to portray in a
Yeah.
great like level of
I
detail,
think I
and
think
so I
most
think
of
this
those
does it like as best as it can.
yeah. I think most of those criticisms though where it's like, oh, it just happens in this montage, they just weren't paying attention in the previous part of this film where it's not like that's maybe they don't really catch on things that are not that are less obvious. Like because if it doesn't, if I don't see it literally being played out on screen, it doesn't happen. It's like, like all of like the more subtle parts between him and Tracy that have already happened since the literal beginning of this film. Like, what can you say? Like, if you don't pay attention,
Saving,
will find you.
as a villain later says, saving someone's life connects you to them forever. So maybe it was meant to be ever since he picked her up in the sea. So
No, yeah. Also, for the audio listeners, James is literally, George Lane's me lighting the cigarette right now. But anyway,
It's a long episode, man. I can't sit through this without. Like, I have to have a fag quickly.
it would be the nicotine that kills you.
We do. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not from Yo Twice cigarette, but
yeah, just shoot the camera.
Now, what is amazing is this we got, and again the pacing, because at this point this is just when the film has slowed down a bit, and but not too much, because then you just get thrown into like, okay, this is still a Bond film. Now we're gonna go to like
Gumball's safe.
One of my favorite scenes from like any Bond film, I think. Yeah, him like cracking Gumball's safe.
Like a superior safe cracking scene to the one previous. Like they learned from that and they built on top of it. From Millionth Twice, obviously. Like
I think that you can't really. It's not fair to compare them because
they're under
he's cracking a safe in both of them, but like in so it's not like the focus of the scene. It's just like just quickly, Whereas here it's like it's a whole moment.
It was pre-planned. Yeah.
And what I love about this scene is like there's so much. I think you just with Bond films they're always like a reflection of their times, right? And you get to see like, and for me this particular scene, because he walks into this hotel, and you just like part of that. You just feel like you're in the 60s. It's like you're straight in there. You see like people on their day-to-day life. He's going in the lift. It's like an old school the wooden furnishings of this beautiful hotel. And he goes up and he's this old school lift. You have to close the doors and everything. Gombald's there and like Bond goes in. What I love about this as well is you get because earlier when he meets Draco, he has the conversation about his legitimate businesses, which include construction, and then here we get Campbell, who's like one of the real unsung heroes of the Bond franchise, man. This like the blonde guy basically. I don't know if his name ever gets. He's not
really a hero, he's
really?
all right.
I love Campbell, man. I've always loved him.
Yeah, you like him, but what does he really do? Like he supplies like this yellow cement dump thing or whatever. That's cool. That's good. Like some construction thing to throw the briefcase in, but like, or it's the briefcase is in. Sorry, but and it's really cool.
He's just cool. He's like Sigma male, He's just there. And then later, he's silent as well. He's one of those, and that's always a villain.
Blofeld. Like he baits out like James Bond to Blofeld, I reckon. So like, yeah, he's like, yeah. He's there, but he's only for intensive purposes.
We don't know that for sure. We don't know that for
sure.
Well,
I think James Bond's. We'll get into it later, but James Bond
baits himself out. That's the problem.
James Bond doesn't. He slips up on one fact, which isn't even his fault, by the way. We'll get onto later. But
well, I know something as well in this. But anyway, we'll get.
All right. But I do like a little detail in this where like. If just for the universe of this film, I guess, like when the thing is delivering in the suitcase, the crane or whatever that gives it to him has a Draco corporate thing on the side. It's like
it took me so many years to notice that, but I love that little touch there.
It's just the effort.
Although, do you know what I've just realized as we're speaking? For some reason, I always assumed Campbell was an MI6 agent, like one of Bond's colleagues, but he's not. He's one of Draco's. But you never see him as part of that crew from like the henchmen. So
yeah, because MI6 doesn't even know any of this is going on. This is his holiday,
Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Can't get away. It's workaholic,
So Bond's in this. So basically Bond goes in there, and by the way, this whole scene is what it is because of the music. The it just makes
and also
everything.
The passage of time that it tracks too.
Yeah, because you hear Gumball as he's exiting, and just what I love is like Bond and Gumball, they pass each other in the corridor, and Gumball says, "Okay, I'll be back in an hour," and this is taking place in Germany or Switzerland, I believe.
In Bern.
Right. So these guys are going to be punctual,
Yeah, true. Yeah, the thing that like makes you kind of like shit yourself is like he's like starting the safe cracking. You know, he's got all his gear set up, and then like Gumball, he's gotten out of the building, and he like thinks he's like forgotten
Checks his
something.
pockets. Oh, you have
He's
this
gonna go
fake out.
back in.
It's
And he's
so
like,
good.
oh no, it's fine. You know, and like he just keeps going. You know.
To be honest, I never really felt the scene as much as like you two seem to have, but I think the music's. I can't hear you, by the way. The music's like good. The music is really what propels it, but I think I don't know.
It's
I
definitely
think
the music, because for me this is the scene that really stayed with me from my childhood. This is why I remember it like Goldfinger. For Goldfinger, the scene I remember watching it for the first time when I was 7 years old was at the very end, you know, when he defuses the bomb. For me, this is the scene that stayed with me, and it had me like again physically sweating. The tension was like crazy, and I loved it. It's like, and that's mainly because of the music, and obviously the cuts to Gumball. And as he's walking along, you know, as he comes back, you see his shadow across the thing, and he's walking along, and it's just. And there's nothing flashy here. There's even though I mean Bond has a photocopier as well, which is like probably like way ahead of its time back then, you know. Um, but it's, you know, like a mobile photocopier. But again, he's like cracking the safe. He gets these documents, and it's like this tension. I love it. This is
I like
one of
how
my favorite scenes for sure.
I like how the
There's-
thing that takes the most time as well. It's not him cracking the safe. It's he has to photocopy everything one by one. You know, he's just
yeah,
like Gumball's like opening the door. He's like, yeah, 1 minute, mate, just getting this last location like thing done here. But you know, are you gonna say
And
something?
as he's passing the time, he opens up a Playboy as well. So
Yeah,
just to
exactly.
remind you, he is Bond at the end of the day. He's one of us.
Yeah, speaking of which, actually, just a quick thing, trivia about George Lazenby. Another thing they were doing, when they were, I don't think this was the thing they screen tested all the actors for. I think they just had to make sure something with him. They, for some one time randomly, he went to his hotel room. There was just, you know, like there was just some lady he'd never met before, just like, you know, chilling, wearing almost nothing on like the bed, and then they went at it, and then like he found out it's just they wanted to make sure, because like they were like, yeah, you're a male model, right? You know, we've just got to make sure if you're gonna play Bond that you're straight. And he was just like, all right then, like
No way, you're
yeah,
joking.
that's according to Sean Lazenby, George Lazenby himself. So
Wow, that's interesting. And yeah, maybe that is a little nod to the fact I never saw that in the Playboy thing, but maybe that's a nod to the fact that he's like a model as well. Maybe there's a little. Do you think?
maybe I
Never
don't know,
thought about
but
that.
I don't know.
But anyway, what I like is as well.
Conspiracy.
Obviously, he gets all the stuff, and like he leaves the room just as Gumball, they walk past each other again, and I don't know. There's just the tension is so. But George Lazenby, he's so casual. He's you don't see him sweating or panicking. He just knows that he's just got to do the job. He does it efficiently, smoothly. But and that almost makes you more anxious as well, because he's like, you know, at any minute this guy could come back in and spot him, and then like the
Yeah.
cat's out the bag.
I
But
think
and the sorry.
I think as well as an unmentioned gadget during this, because I remember this from like ages ago. I'm like reading this in some sort of like Bond book or something. The reason why he's able to get into Gumball's like room is because he has a skeleton key, I think, which is supposed to open about 90% of the world's locks or something. Either that or they somehow like lifted it from his pocket at some point when he went past him and then put it back on him when he was going back, which is
No, there
like
must have been a skeleton key, but that is a cool little thing. I never thought about that, but yeah, what I like is as well is that Bond, as he's leaving, he's still got the Playboy. He takes it with him, you know.
yeah, exactly. Just like, yeah, I'm taking this too, man. He
Little
photocopied that
souvenir.
too, you know. Yeah.
Then in the
Which
next
is
film, he pulls out all the other gadgets from the other films and the Playboy magazine. You know?
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I remember this.
Okay, so then Bond goes with his new discovery to visit M, Admiral M, no less. And this is again just like I love this scene. This is like, you know, because you always get, it's like a bit of a trope, isn't it? Bond showing off like irrelevant knowledge to M, and this is one of my favorite examples of that. Maybe the best, because it's like it's M in his home. He's doing the most like unimaginably boring
Yeah,
like
esoteric
hobby
life.
ever, the most boring pastime ever, like butterfly collection. It's like just like barely a step
stamp
above like
collections.
stamps. Yeah, exactly. I think they probably be like, oh yeah, well, like what would M's hobby be? Would it be stamps? No, it's like, okay, listen.
Butterflies like for a richer person, you know.
Yeah, that's right. And then Bond comes along and he just walks in and he's unusually large for whatever it is, the Latin name.
Chloris or something like that. And
Yeah.
it was just like, oh,
So good.
I didn't know. I did not know your knowledge extended to the field of, and then whatever scientific name for the study of butterflies is.
It's brilliant. And then Bond goes, "Yeah, I've just been, knocking about, doing a bit of this and that," and then goes, "Oh, aren't you on holiday?"
I know Bloodhound's location now. By the way.
And he's like, "Oh, but you're off the case, Bond," and he's like, "Oh, I assume you'd reassign me, so," and then he just goes and lays out. You get a lot of exposition here, but again, you just get this beautiful transition to College of Arms.
Yeah, but
and
what I like
music.
as well is, just want to mention with this scene as well, like the fact like George Lazenby's acting this is like he's so confident that like that M's gonna reassign him. He's already just done all this legwork just to be like, yeah, by the way, this is I'm proving that I should be on this case, and also I know you're gonna say yes anyway, even though you hate me. So, and also
And
there's
again,
meant to be. Oh, actually no, it's after the College of Arms.
and I think that it plays into Bond's like why he's the best agent as well. Like M probably reluctantly took him off that case, but he has to do it. And then Bond, just proves his like worth and just like earns his way back on it, which is very cool. You just have this like dynamic between them, which just again, it's not Sean Connery, it's not Roger Moore, it's not like an established Bond actor. It is George Lazenby, but it's just amazing to me that this is like basically his acting debut, and he's able to just convey this so well. I mean, he's a natural, I suppose.
Yeah, so he goes over to the College of Arms.
He goes over to the College of Arms, meets Sir Hilary Bray. We get a little again like Bond's like backstory. The world is not enough. We see his family crest and everything.
I'd just like to say it's also very convenient that Sir Hilary Bray looks close enough to George Lazenby.
Maybe he was like the Bond actor that just missed out.
Yeah, he's the guy before.
Yeah. But you do have this this guy's very posh though. He's like a proper toff, He's like, oh well, and you know what I find funny as well? I think they're aware of how similar they are, and they sort of make a little joke about it because it's like, I've sent them a description of me, and then George Lazenby goes tactfully adjusted to fit my description, and then the guy sort of goes, yes, there's a little nod to the fact that I think even down to the mole on the cheek, right? It's like, but yeah, I think that's very good.
Yeah. But this is something. I mean, I assume Tom knows this as well. This is something. I mean, you might have noticed this as well. This is one of the more obvious ones. From this point onwards, after he is being Sir Hilary Bray, Bond is dubbed. So, which is something that people don't like. Yeah.
What?
He's being dubbed when he's pretending to be Sir Hilary.
That's ridiculous. That's crazy. I never knew that.
Yeah, to be fair, you don't really notice it. Like a lot of people go on like, oh, this person dubbed, this person dubbed, this person. I never notice,
Do you know what? It kind of that's amazing. It does bother me a little bit that like when I find out not just Bond but like any character's dubbed, that always like irritates me a little bit because it never happens today. It just was a thing back then. And when I'm watching these films with Tom, sometimes I'm trying to go, is that guy dubbed? Is that guy dubbed? Because I'm like I'm kind of like assuming everyone's dubbed.
You never assume Bond's dubbed,
Yeah. Well, yeah, I never saw that coming, but fair play. You know what I like about this as well? It's like this is genuinely Bond doing some like actual undercover spy detective work, which you don't get to see. And when you do, it's like very sloppy. It's like it's like but this is like a genuine, authentic.
Cover on purpose with Largo.
Yeah. In this case, it's like I'm thinking more like St. John Smythe and that sort of thing.
Yeah, true. I'm gonna spectre your mum, Emilio. like.
Yeah, but I do like that Bond is, actually has a bit of like genuine like espionage work to do.
Yeah. Because it goes.
So anyway, so
now it comes to Switzerland, right?
Yeah, right. So and
the thing is,
Bond is like dressed up like Sherlock Holmes, man. And he's like, and I like he's bumbling, and he's got this posh voice, which now we know is dubbed.
Yeah. There's something I also want to mention before we get to Irma Bunt and all that. His mate Campbell is literally he's reading a paper, right? And one of the articles on it is there's a train crash that killed 19. That was meant to be there's meant to be a scene between this and the College of Arms where he has a chase, which also ends up at some point in the tube or something like that, which involves a train crash or something. And that's meant to be a reference to it, but I don't know if they actually filmed it or not. But that's just cut content from this, which I think might be, to help with the pacing, but I think it would have been cool to see a chase or something.
That's
And
really interesting, but I don't think the
so-
film suffered from a lack of that. And we do
Yeah.
get a very good tube chase in a future Bond film.
yeah, true.
But
Yeah,
anyway,
this is the first time you see Irma Bunt as well. Like,
yeah,
in
she's
first frame, it's just
fantastic.
perfect.
Yeah, like I said before, I have no idea where they found this actress, but she's brilliant, man. She's like, the very first thing you see of her, she's like turning round and she's like, and
Spying on
no disrespect, man, but she's like, like a human toad, It's like really like, you're like, well, as a kid, you're like scared of her straight away, man.
Yeah, if it
This is
wasn't
like,
for Blofeld, she could have been the villain. Like.
yeah, she's fantastic. And she's the henchwoman of this film, right? So she'll go up against Odd Job and
Rosa Klebb.
yeah, so that's gonna be interesting to rank them. But yeah, she's like has this immediate presence where you're like straight away you're afraid of her.
She's scarier than the henchman. Like.
Yeah, man. And obviously she goes she meets
So
she
Hilary
meets
Bray Baronet.
Sherlock Holmes, aka yeah, so Hilary Bray. This part, and he's like bumbling, and he's like, oh, like, oh, I don't,
Not a great traveller myself.
I don't travel well. Yeah, I don't like the cold, whatever. He's like, being, like typical like English guy on holiday, pretty much.
Yeah, basically.
And what I like as well, the foreshadowing that happens here, because she's asking him, oh, do you like the, do you like skiing? Do you like bobsleighing? And he's like, no, I'm not a sporting man, even when I'm at my best, and I have all this like going on. It's just like, I love that foreshadowing.
He's playing someone who's the exact opposite of Bond here. Like.
Yeah, exactly. It's fantastic. And yeah, and again, just the beautiful cinematography here, the on location stuff that, is just very special to Bond films where he's like, he gets in this like horse and carriage and they're being pulled along and, the fur blanket and everything. Just all these little touches are just beautiful. And so they go up to the helicopter.
Yeah. They
and
seem to really
cameras in pursuit as well.
Yeah, they love these like these white and then a big strip of orange helicopters, which we see later in the series. But anyway.
Yeah, it's very cool. And he has to knock out his pipe, as well on his way in. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's just very good. And
you get some amazing like shots from the helicopters. Or Campbell's, just driving along with his, like VW
feeding the horses, and checking on them. And and so they fly up to Pitt's Gloria. Worth mentioning now that we physically, well, I don't know. I mean, because we were very young. We've basically, when we were in Switzerland for that time, we did actually visit Pitt's Gloria.
Wow.
The restaurant there, which I do remember. Now, I mean, unfortunately, I don't remember it as this is where Bond happened. I mean, I know that since, but I do remember because you don't really see it in the film, but like the part of the restaurant, like it rotates, right? Like
it's the world's first rotating mountain restaurant.
And I do remember that very like vividly. Yeah. So that's that's like wow,
There's a fun bit of trivia for this as well. The fact that the owners, this was actually under construction at the time, and the owners basically they allowed them to film here, but on a couple conditions. First, they had to give them $125,000, and they also had to make sure that the interior sets were would be like made so they were permanent, so there were features of them, and they also had to build a helicopter pad for the thing, which was like really expensive as well. It cost 125,000 because they had to get helicopters to take up 500 tons of concrete. But when they opened the restaurant, they named it Pitt's Gloria after the location in the film. So that's quite nice.
That's really good. And this is such an iconic location, and it's a far cry from, Volcano Base or something, This is like it's amazing. And obviously the context is that this is like a research clinic for like allergies and stuff, among other things. I like that. You have the line. I love again the foreshadowing. So you have like the skiing and the bobsleigh references, and then and she's explaining like what the research clinic is, and he goes and she's like, oh, they say something to the effect, oh, we do this so then spies can't, steal our secrets and stuff. And Bond goes, oh yes, we live in a world full of deceit, and
again, it's like deceit because they're both lied to each other. It's just great,
Yeah, it's fantastic. Anyway, so
and the last in that same thing that what she says after is like, he's doing this to you. He wants to leave his mark on the world, and he's like, oh yeah. yeah, true, yeah, true, just like a true humanitarian, you know. It's like a lot of sarcasm, yeah. It's a great like the double meaning of it as well, like the whole
Yeah,
conversation.
it's fantastic. It gives it rewatch value as well, which we love here at the Millionth podcast.
Mhm.
But
Yes.
he's shown to his room 4, of course. We get a very little peek at Blofeld, which I like. They just tease us, like
Yeah,
they
they
did
do
in
it just
previous
like they
films.
used to, you know, like
Yep.
where it's like you don't see his face, but you see him with a cat, you know, like
You see him from above, like bald. You just don't see his face. They
you
just
got the
don't face
drip
reveal.
as well, like, and also the gold telephone, you know.
That's right. And you hear his voice. Now with Telly Savalas, he's the real thing about him, not necessarily him as an actor, but him as a voice actor is what particularly like he's basically, as far as I'm aware, he was like the Morgan Freeman of his day. Like I even watched a documentary he did. I mean, it's a documentary, and he was hired as the voice for it, and it's just, his voice is like, just like I say, like the equivalent to Morgan Freeman of today. You think of
Yeah, well,
Morgan
he, you
Freeman
know,
voiceover, Telly
he's
Savalas of the
perfect
day,
for this.
and obviously you hear it. He has like a very rich voice, rich accent, which is just
Yeah,
like obviously like very definitive.
and the thing that I've seen that helped a lot for this in terms of when they chose him because the role where he has to basically play ASMR for these, like, you know, like his voice is perfect for it, especially when he's like, you know, rest, and they all just go to bed immediately. There's no like psychoactive stuff or anything, you know, extra magic. It's literally just his voice, you know.
Yeah, that's right. So then Bond is invited to dinner, um, and he
Yeah,
shows up.
he's fully dripped out, you know.
Yeah, he shows up in a kilt. So, I think you get a lot of little nods to the Scottish ancestry, which sort of Sean Connery, got the ball rolling there, and then they continue that with the kilt. It's just one of those things, Bond in a kilt, as
No,
you
to
do.
be fair, he somehow rocks it, you know, like actually looks
Yeah,
good on it.
definitely.
Yeah.
You don't see. I mean, it is like obviously there's always like it's always like amusing, to see,
Yeah, because
but
he gets hairy legs, you know, as well.
yeah. But he rocks it, man, and it's just like this is a male model we're talking about, and he's like, bang, I'm doing this,
Yeah, maybe that's
and
why he's
I'm
actually.
not really sure any other Bond actor could do that. Now that I
Yeah,
think,
because you couldn't imagine Sean Connery. Well, you could imagine him in that, but like it with like the orange turtleneck as well, that kind of outfit, like with the beige jacket as well. Like it, for most people, that would look kind of mismatched and strange, but he manages, like, you know, he just pulls it off. You know, you couldn't imagine anyone else in it. Certainly couldn't
yeah,
imagine Tim Dalton
yeah,
in it.
100%. So yeah, he rocks up at the Alpine Room, of course, and
Yeah, the girls like slag off like Irma Bunt. You know?
he just walks into a room full of these like beautiful women, and it's this is probably the weakest part of the film for me.
I
Yeah, because they
actually
always
really
have to
like this
play that
part of the
sound.
film.
You know, like
Yeah,
No,
go
no,
on,
no.
Tom.
I really like this part of the film because he's like such an alpha male and stuff, but he has to like pretend to be this beta who like can't stand women or whatever. And there's
I think
even a
he's meant. I
single
think
line
they
later.
hint at
There's even
Henry
a
being gay.
there's even like a random line later. He's like, oh, "I'm afraid I've never had much to do with young ladies," and then
Yeah, and she goes,
there's some
oh, we know what he's allergic to. They basically imply that he's gay, which is like
there's like
amusing.
there's there's
The
the
director was.
situation. This is the thing that really grew on me later. Like this part was always really boring to me when I was younger, but this part's great to me now because there's like so much like situational comedy behind it. Like he has to pretend to be like the opposite of what he is for like half the film. Well, not half the film, but like
A
a
good
good
bit.
portion of it, and then like, and it's just really funny like watching his like interactions. Then he has to like when he gets some of the girls in his room or whatever, they're like, "Oh, I think you didn't think you like girls," and there's like, and then he
No, he
like
goes to that.
he has to like transition back and forth between this character he's
Yeah.
supposed to be in. It's really funny. I find it's very very amusing to me when to watch it. So yeah, I really enjoy that. That's become like a high point to me almost watching
Yeah, I mean, I think the
that.
thing that the only thing that I like don't like when it comes to whenever it comes to any of the girls, I mean, they use this. It's almost like fanfare, I guess, kind of like, the thing that plays like it plays twice when it like he sees them and then the camera pans so you can see it, like it plays it twice and it's just like great, thanks, like I'm not going to do
I
an
think-
impression.
I mean, I from that point of view, Tom, yeah, it is fantastic. Like the situational comedy is definitely like is very amusing. It's very good. What I don't like is just how this film so far has just gone against the grain of like the sort of institutionalized sexism that exists within Bond. That arguably they
Just
still
take the
haven't
back
really
foot.
weeded out, but like it was very prevalent in the Sean Connery films.
Well, like
And
that's
they've done
that's-
so well so far to like go against that with Dinah Rigg's character, and then Bond is literally just thrown in a room with like 12 beautiful women, and it's kind of
Yeah,
like
well.
I don't know, that just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, and it's not really, and it doesn't even really. Yeah, it's important for the plot, but I think they could have done it in a bit of a different. It's just very like
works for me
To be
because-
fair, think about it. It's like
you know.
just realized
Like-
this reminds me a bit of John English Reborn as well. Because if some of them were blokes,
Reminds
then
you of
the
what? Sorry.
gift
Johnny English
reminds me
Reborn.
of in Johnny English Reborn. Because like if some of them were blokes, it wouldn't make the gifts wouldn't make sense because they're like makeup kits, right? It just reminds me
true.
like when it was intended for Pegasus and he's got like the lipstick, like But I don't think.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me, this is like a direct. You know when Roger Moore in Octopus, he goes to like an island occupied solely by women, and it's like, okay, that works for Roger Moore's James Bond. Like in that context, okay, anything goes really. This is like it's just one of those parts of the film which I don't associate with George Lazenby Bond. That sounds strange to say, but
I'm
I don't know.
actually okay. I'm actually okay with this, and it works for me because like you just get the general impression that these lot are like not the sharpest tools in the shed. Basically, like they're just there like almost half-witted most of the time. They're like
I guess it's the point
they're like
for
they're
blows,
just
but-
like no because like when he's in bed with like Ruby Violet, and then she just comes across as so gullible. Like she's like, oh, there was this really nice person who like recommended me to this specialist, and the specialist said there's this wonderful clinic in Switzerland where they cured you for free because they're researching at the same time.
No
So that
strings
makes
attached.
it really like believable to me. So I
Yeah,
don't really
but
have
I think that's the
problem with it.
problem. It's a weird one. I think within context, yeah, you can justify all of it, but it's just the presence of like these, a collection of bimbos with a lot of like racist connotations as well. I have to add, it's like
Yeah.
it's just direct like stereotyping and like it's just like and even if even looking beyond that, you have like just the disproportionate like, okay, these people are meant to effectively represent the world, and yeah, it's implied that there were women or patients that came before them, but I don't
Well,
know, like it's just like, yeah, there's a token like African one, couple of
to be
Asians,
fair,
like there's
there's
like an
Israel,
Oriental Asian, there's
Brazil,
like an Arab Asian, and the rest are like white European, just these
Well,
bimbos.
I mean,
That
to
doesn't.
be
I
fair,
don't know.
in the original novel, they're all meant to be from the UK, which doesn't, for a clinic like this, it wouldn't actually make a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
this film, I guess, for its time, was probably like trying to be diverse. So what can you say? Even if they aren't that good at it.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean-
very much like 60s diverse, isn't it? But
I mean,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
I mean, it's just like it's so obvious though, it's like they have the African one, like eating a banana, and like the Asian one's
It's
eating
like-
some like rice,
But she's
some
from
sushi.
Jamaica. That's the
to be fair, it was only in your presence that like I noticed that little cliche. I was like, yeah, he'll pick up on that, and like to be like
I
it is something. I think it's just a take it or leave it thing. To be honest, like it's just like as Henry
It
said,
just doesn't
like,
age well. That's all I'm saying.
yeah, like
Yeah, true. I agree with that.
but within the context I mentioned, I think yeah, like,
Yeah.
the level of
within
the
context,
relative level
like
of
I say, you can justify everything, and it's not like as if it's bad writing or lazy or anything. It's just like I don't know. It
And-
just
Just
doesn't.
sometimes it was.
and like with Ruby Violet and stuff, like she, for example, comes from she's the only one you really get to hear about her background, but like she's just like this farm girl basically who just comes from middle of nowhere, it sounds like, and you really put that against juxtapose that, I haven't used that word in a long time, against Diana Rigg, who's like this really like world wise like crime boss daughter. I think it really is like good writing actually, because realistically, someone who comes from that background wouldn't have a clue really about what she's in, and Diana Rigg does. She knows like
Yeah.
inside out basically, and like I think that actually is written very well because that's probably what it would be like in real life.
Yeah, I think you think you make a good point there, because I think this might even be intentional. So basically, kind of these girls are meant to be kind of one-dimensional, so that you don't pay too much attention to them, because Diana Rigg is the main Bond girl, basically. So they don't have a situation like in Thunderball and Goldfinger, where there's like quite a few of them, and they kind of are quite close to each other in terms of how much is written for them, how much they do, to the point where it's like then we have to sacrifice them like randomly just to make sure we get rid of all of them, so there's one left, so you pay attention to that one.
I get that. I mean, yeah, again, I feel like, I mean, yeah, like I say, you can justify it. It's not lazy, but what I don't like about it is, okay, yeah, it's providing some great contrast to Tracy, but
Yeah,
the thing
the
is,
expense
you already
stereotype.
knew that from the previous films, and I just don't, it doesn't sit well with me, the fact that Bond just basically, because we've just bought into like a really like authentic love romantic like story, and then Bond just goes like shagging the first girls he meets and like just cheats on her like prolifically, man. Like he's on
Well, maybe
stag night
he's on
sort
he's
of
on a
maybe,
spree before he gets married, just
To
to
be
get
f-
Yeah,
to
some.
be,
yeah.
he does
I
have that
just
bachelor's
I'm
taste
not
for freedom,
justifying it.
as
I'm
you
just
said.
saying that might
And
be
then
his
like
mindset.
yeah, I know that doesn't go halfway to justifying it, but and to be fair, like one of them does actually break into his room rather than the other way around. Then he's like, well,
yeah.
what's he supposed to do? Like send her out or whatever, and then like
Excuse me, I'm going back.
so
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I think we've
And
discussed that.
it's not any of them. It's like, in my opinion, the fittest one. Like this one from Sweden or whatever shows up and it's like, oh yeah, can I
I
see the
kind of,
book?
I kind of quite liked as well, though. I mean, going back to the progression of the scenes, this like Emma Bunt is sometimes like she like hints like, because it gets too, sometimes it gets a little bit like candid, I guess. Like they're having a jolly time, and then like, yeah, oh yeah, because he's explaining all this stuff about genealogy, but like to show off his expertise and all the brushing up he's done beforehand, to say he's like authenticating that he is actually Sohail Bray as well. Um, and at the end of this whole conversation, when they're having dinner, like one of them's, oh yeah, can you show me the book? It's like, oh, I'm in the room. This, and then like before, like Imran cuts her off, and then you're reminded, yeah, this is actually a villain layer. Like,
Yeah, like
oh, you've got all these rules. You don't use second names. Oh, I'll show the book around to all of you.
Yeah, that's
You
true.
got to
Yeah, you do
also
have some
wake up at this
so
time.
yeah, yeah. That slipped my mind. To be fair, Bunt's like her role in this is like great. Again, like
when,
just
yeah,
being the enforcer, like the bitter sort of past it sort of like
yeah.
yeah.
She like when I was little, it's another thing that changed with age as well. When I was little, and she was like, I didn't get the subtext to it, so when she was like, "No, I'll take it, give the book to everyone in turn," I was like, "Oh wow, Emma Bunt's so fair. That actually sounds a really nice and considerate thing. Like everyone
Yeah, she's
gets to
just
get
cock blocking everyone.
everyone
Yeah.
gets to like look
Yeah,
at the book just as much as the other." And then like
yeah,
later, I'm
yeah,
like,
because
"Oh, she's actually just a massive control freak." Oh,
it's funny though. It's just like these girls like be like, yeah, I really want to study genealogy with you in my room. It's just like, yeah, sure, mate. You want to create some of your own. Um,
But nice one. But what is the sort of the takeaway thing from this as well? Like, is the lipstick on the thigh.
yeah,
It's
that
like,
was like,
and that's it. It's like it is a bit parody worthy, but again, it's within this film because the level of acting is so high, and it's like Georgia,
yeah, even for
and
George.
and that is like so erotic, man. She like goes out and he's wearing a kilt, so obviously and she and you don't see what she does. You just like it's revealed a little bit later, but she does that, and then like Bunt, I
Yeah,
keep forgetting her
Emma
name.
Bunt's
She goes,
not quite.
in the most like suggestive manner. She's like, "Is something the matter, Sahiliri?" And he goes, "Oh, slight stiffness coming on, and in the shoulder. Due to the
just
altitude,
the
no doubt."
altitude of doubt. And then
Yeah,
he just
Yeah,
looks
exactly.
at her,
I
and then
love I
she's
love the way he plays it off as well. It's just so good, man.
yeah. And it's one of them as well. You don't pick up on it as a kid, but then when you get older, you're like, "Oh, okay." It's it's very good. Um,
Yeah. Well, then like Yeah, because it goes next to, like, he's just studying in his room. He's probably bored as fuck, you know. He's just
No,
like,
no, no, no. That's not the next thing that happens.
oh yeah, you're
This is
right.
what like. There's like a big contrast here. So he walks off and he goes, may all your allergies be swiftly cured. And then one of them goes, oh, I know what he's allergic to.
That's really funny in my opinion. He's
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
He's like,
So he
that's
walks
like,
off, and
that's like
then
his Riz or whatever. He's like, oh, mate, all your allergies be swiftly cured. Like, he doesn't want to have any, as if they're like diseased and he doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And then he's like, just walks off, and then he just gets roasted when he
just
goes into the
charming,
lift, which is quite
honestly.
funny.
he does, but now he doesn't go straight back to his hotel room. He goes
Yeah,
to
he
meet
goes
Blofeld,
back
and he walks
cave,
through the
doesn't he?
back cave to get there as well.
Just like all the mist, you know.
I don't know about you. Like since my first video, I always like thought that it just reminds me of the Batcave straight away.
Yeah, it does.
You get that?
Because it's literally like the smoke machine underneath, you know, like
Yeah, it's just like, and again, it's just this great contrast. There's just this visual storytelling. You're going from like this warm, beautiful, luxurious room with like all these women, and there's like
furnished, you
this
know.
beautiful food and everything. It's like everything's like the highest quality restaurant, and then you're just going down to this like cold,
Lab.
dungeon, like
Yeah, just
cell.
to
It's like
remind, just to
really,
remind like the fact that
Yeah.
he's in a villain layer, basically.
that's right.
Yeah.
And
But I like as
yeah.
well that you have the lab as well to his left, but then you also have like this really like richly furnished room as well, just to remind you, like, you know, Blofeld does have, you know, some taste for the finer things in life, you know, like as well as it's like I love he comes out with his like lab coat on, and he's like just takes off, he's got this like, you know, like bright, well not bright, but like kind of blood red waistcoat, you know, like immediately just signifies I'm a villain, but you know, you can basically tell
He's
I
very
love his
well
entrance. I
dressed,
love
like,
that. Like you mentioned there, like the music in the that's the other thing I
screen
wanted to
effect.
mention about this film. The sound editing in this film, the sound engineer was like on point, man. Like I love the sound effects they had in this film. They're so strong and like distinct.
Yeah,
Apart
they
from
serve a
slap earlier.
purpose. Yeah.
But yeah, you've just got these like sci-fi elements. You know, it's when that door opens and like the sort of steam effect you get from that, and
Yeah, and the lighting on it, and,
the
like
neon lights. Yeah, exactly. It's just like it's so cool. You just straight away you're in the presence of this like super villain. You know, we have to like straight back in there, and obviously we get the face reveal. It's Telly Savalas. We will rank the Blofelds, of course, within our villain ranking. And it's going to be a tough one. We get to meet him, and obviously the preface to all of this is that he wants to be acknowledged as a count, and he's trying to go about proving that to Sir Hilary Bray to have a title, because that's like as says later on, snobbery. It's a funny thing, and it's just funny because that ages so well, because even today, you think about like Beckham, for example, David Beckham, and his whole thing with getting a knighthood, all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's just really and how a lot of people make a point now of like turning down a knighthood, all these sort of things. I think it's just very interesting, and just how well that ages. I mean, in this case, it's a count, but still.
I find that moment. I know it's way out of time, but like, I find that moment where like M comments on Blofeld or something like curious thing snobbery is like, I don't know. I found that really interesting because they're really like, I don't know. It feels like Blofeld and M are kind of cut from the same cloth, sort of thing. Like you feel like Blofeld, if he took a different path, could have ended up in M's role, or M, if he went a different path, could end up in Blofeld's role. Like
That's a good
I
point.
don't know. It's funny when like they like kind of, I don't know, acknowledge each other in that sort of way. It's quite funny. It's interesting for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it sort of never occurred to me actually, but it's you don't get those moments very often. I mean, you never get M and Blofeld in the same room or anything like that, even in later films. But and it's very rare actually you get M with any villain. They're very like basically never face to face or anything like that. Well, it does happen, but rarely. And to have a direct comment like that, that's like, and he's commenting upon not just like the plot of something, but upon his character. That is a very good point, something. It's like well spotted there. I like that. But yeah, the conversation Hilary Bray or Bond has with Blofeld, what is there? Should you want to go into that? Is there anything to say there? I mean, this is Blofeld at the end of the
It
day.
is mostly like stuff when they're talking about genealogy, they're both like BSing to each other. And I think this is also, I mean, this does come after you only live twice, but I think then they're meant to either like you either see this as they both know, but they don't know when they're gonna like pull the rug from underneath the other one, or because if Blofeld makes an MI6 agent disappear, all of a sudden it's like alarm bells are going to go off. But at the same time, you can also take the view of it being this is because this film is probably one of the most faithful adaptations from a book, to the point where they just they kind of retcon the fact that they've met each other in a previous film, to the point where this is their first time meeting each other, and it's just like whose cover is going to be blown first.
I just take it from the angle that I don't know, this is really faithful adaptation, so this is just what they're portraying. But one thing I noticed on when I watched it this time was um Hilary Bray is low-key James, the one who's responsible for James Bond's cover getting blown, because he's the one that tells him the fact the Beauchamp ancestry is in this tomb, and then Bond quotes that later to Blofeld, then Blofeld picks up on it that's actually false. So this flipping bookworm university whatever was just I don't know, he just fucked up James Bond instead.
They say so. Campbell didn't blow his cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
there's something else that blows its cover later, which I only just noticed this time, but I'll tell you later.
No, go on. You might as well say it now.
It'll happen when the scene happens.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's
so after this meeting, Bond goes to. This is when Bond pulls up his kilt and sees the number 8 written on his thigh in lipstick. So you've got the music cue as well, of course. Very racy.
But that's more appropriate then,
Yeah. And anyway, so he sat in his room, like I said, Henry Ball, studying, procrastinating,
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's so interesting,
Yeah.
It's
and he
quite
sits there
good,
and he's trying to work out how to escape from his room, because, you can only be let in from the outside. So he goes up to the door and he gets a metal ruler out, gets a little electric shock, uses some Year 7 physics to get around that.
Scared me as well.
Because the rubber will neutralize the absorb
breaks the current.
When James Bond's just sat there studying, that's complete perfect representation of me when I'm trying to attempts to revise or whatever. And it's my mind will literally look at anything and everything else and just think, oh no.
That's just how everyone is.
It's just fun. I don't know. Some people are robots; they can just do it seemingly. But and I don't know when he sticks the ruler or whatever up the door, he the thing electrocutes him. I don't know about you two, but that made me jump when I was little, because when he was studying or whatever, my brain was asleep because it's mundane activity he's doing, and then I don't know. That's another good sound design, I guess. Sound effect side of things that I think they did really well on.
I kind of like as well that that they later on show that the girls have already found a way to do this as well, because they've probably bored out of their minds. They probably figured a way, but there's no reason for them to really go around now. But now there is, because it's a bloke, supposedly. When they kind of almost they almost kind of show him up in the fact that he's using this really complicated method, when they're just I got his wooden nail file, and he's just oh yeah, I wish I just thought of that, and he adopts it later on as well.
But he doesn't even really. Oh yeah, he must have taken one of those. But it's quite funny how the situation progresses. He's really cautious and stuff, waiting for Irma Bunt to go down the elevator or whatever, and then and then he gets out and cautiously goes into visits these girls and stuff, and then later when he's comfortable in the routine, you see him just getting out, strutting around, just tapping the fingernail file against his chest, and then but ironically that's the time he gets blown. So
I love as well. The thing that's kind of funny is he's doing this to obviously get information, from them, as well as he just catches them in the middle of Blofeld's ASMR session, which is psychedelic or whatever. Is kind of, it's not trippy, but it's to that kind of effect. I like it. It's kind of funny because he recycles the exact same pickup lines, with them as well. Oh yeah, and he with the second one, he's kind of hurrying through it, he's yeah, and he's got 10 more after this, come on, man.
There's a moment even as he's recycling the line, he looks up and checks if there's a fireplace to make sure that it still fits. And even twice as beautiful in the
yeah,
firelight.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he goes and seduces them as
Wait,
Hilly,
wait.
you know,
What-
gives
what
himself
Yeah,
a little.
hilly. Yeah.
What did you
Hilly.
say? Like, what needs to fit up the fireplace?
Yeah, he needs to make sure that it fits with
The
his
fireplace is there, so his line still works.
pickup line.
Oh,
Plus,
yeah,
if you're
yeah.
putting the LED light.
So anyway, while this the next morning, you know, Bond he's like goes and plays curling.
Curling,
That's the
yeah.
name of the game.
He has to pretend to be bad at it, you know.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Like slipping over and stuff,
He's
which is
probably like
quite
trying.
funny.
He's
Very
like
character.
embarrassed, you know, like I'm letting
Yeah,
myself
yeah.
loose to all these women, you know, like.
Yeah, well, I mean, while he's getting his end away, you know, and just like living the life, man. Campbell, he's like grafting, man. He has a
Yeah.
confrontation with Gunter, you know, like has a bit of a bust up down at the ski resort, and then like starts climbing up. You know, like Campbell's really drawn the short straw, man, in terms of Bond now. That's what he has to do, you know. And he
like-
gets fucked anyway. Like some pigeons or some birds come and like you know blow his location, whatever. He gets shot at, gets escorted down into like some like dark dungeon, man, like and Bond's there, and I wonder if this is like the thing which I don't like is like Bond doesn't really seem to care, you know, and and up until this viewing, I for some reason I always assumed this guy was an MI6 agent, but obviously not. He's Draco's guy, unless it's weird because Bond and Campbell they never actually directly exchange words. But for some reason, maybe I don't know why I read
You always
into it so
assume
much
they
into
know
this
each
character,
other,
but I
like-
feel like they have like some kind of like partnership, you know, like they know each other well. I don't know if you two got that. And
Yeah, I
maybe
kind of
maybe
originally
I
thought
have
that.
this like
Not
theory
really.
that Campbell is an MI6 guy and like they
Maybe he's
Bond pulled in a
ex-MI6.
favor. I think like Bond pulled in a favor, like, oh, can you help me out with this, whatever. You know, I kind of get that from it. I don't know why, because he
could
doesn't
be.
feel like a Draco guy, even though he is like at the construction site. So I guess.
Yeah,
but,
because he is British as well. So
yeah,
maybe
there's
that's
that.
the case, but it's like
He comes
it's
across as
not
like the
said in the film.
typical. He comes across as the typical English tourist as well when he's not getting his way. It's like,
Oh, bloody
oh,
hell.
I've seen them advertised, I'll tell you. And then he's like,
He becomes a Karen, you know. It's like, oh, the authorities will hear about this.
yeah, no.
It's
And
like,
even down at the
where's
cable
the
car,
director? You know, I am the director.
even
like,
at the even at the cable car, he's like, I've seen them advertised, I tell you. Since when? And then he's like, I don't know, he just gets told to piss off basically by Gunter.
yeah,
He just he's just like kind of not so fortunate stereotype of some English tourists that
a lot of English tourists.
yeah.
But obviously that's his cover as well, right? Because he's like he wants to come across as an ignorant tourist, you know, and he gets an earful from Gunther as well. Like screams, "It's closed, gone!" Like
Forbidden.
yeah, but, like,
Closed the
and he's
door.
like, "All right," like backs out.
Yeah, he just backs off as well. Yeah, this is the thing. So while he gets sent down the tube to his death, like Bond, Bond is Hillary Braid. Like he's like catching up with these girls. Like he drops his mitten, or one of them doesn't. And then she's like, "Oh, I need to see you at 8." And another one's like, "Oh yeah, I need to see you at 9." And he's like, "Ah." And then like he passes another one. He's like, "Oh yeah," because he's also he talks to Blofeld beforehand as well. He's like, like he's like, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Why the fuck are you taking so long, like studying my ancestry?" And he's like, "Well, I just had to take I only take a break this afternoon." And he's like, "Well, you already had the morning off, like what
Do you
are you
know?
doing?"
No, do you know what I think? Like, I reckon that little line that I could bring up because I want to say something here. Like, I reckon actually that wasn't really referring to the girls. I think he was actually trying to like basically save that blonde. That what's his name? What is his name? Campbell's life. Because
Oh,
like
yeah, that's
he
interesting.
he watches like the thing happen. He sees it's not going that guy's way. So and like I don't know. That's probably like his last ditch attempt to like I don't know like excuse himself from like the place and then like just get this guy something like what the fuck are you doing or whatever and then like I don't know just try and straighten things out but it obviously doesn't go that way like Blofeld basically traps him and that's it that's like
Yeah.
that's Campbell done basically so
The
Yeah.
thing is as well.
Sorry, Henry, because that's the thing. Like with that happening to Campbell, I'm like, okay, the stakes are raised now. Bond like needs to respond to that, and he kind of does, like you said, Tom. But then immediately after that, he just goes back to shagging. It's like, oh yeah, the work's really
Oh, yeah,
piling
that's
up
all he
now.
can
he
do,
has to like
basically,
the
like-
thing is he can't be too forceful because he has to play this like almost squeamish like
I know,
you-
but I just think that line. I mean, yeah, it's a joke, but I think that's one of the. It's just sort of misplaced. He says it to a guard. He's like showing off. I don't know. It's
Well,
like
the thing is as well. Well, yeah, because he says like, "Oh, you already know the work is piling up." I think that guard overheard him talking about like the different times of the girls, because he like when the camera kind of like pans to him, it stays on him, and he's like, huh, kind of like, and he might have like snitched him, like that's what I thought, at least when I saw it. Because that guy's like, he doesn't look like he's buying it. He's just like, yeah, these girls are awful close to him, a lot like.
Yeah, but he's like your typical sort of like German like
Yeah, true.
soldier,
Maybe it's
like
just
whatever.
that.
I think he's just like pretty like indifferent to it. But I just think either way, however you read that scene, it just annoys me that like it's sort of almost okay. Well, Campbell's dead. Then let me just crack on, and continue as I was, sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think he may not know at that point that Campbell's gonna die, but like I think that was, I don't know. We know that that's the last chance he had, but maybe he was just trying to, like, I don't know, get him out of it basically. Because yeah, but that's just how I interpret it.
Yeah. So anyway, Bond later that night, like you say, Henry's like on top of the world. He's like nothing can touch him now. He's like going to like go and shag
Yeah, he's
Ruby.
in Bond heaven basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much until Octopussy, and
Yeah.
yeah. And obviously, this is great because you're fooled into it. He's like walking, he's strutting about. He's like, yeah, and then he gets into bed. He's so short, and then like bang, like just
Has
the
that
last
old,
person
has
you
that
want to meet in
old
bed.
cow told you, and then just like, and it's just her.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
what-
He even says that. I was that old cow, and then it's just like the last phase. I just.
Yeah, it
The
scares the
effect of that,
shit
she
out
just
of
like
me.
her face comes out of the bed, and you're just like, what? And then even at that moment, Bob goes, "Fancy me? You here for a line?" And then you just get a bang,
Yeah,
Yeah, he tried. He
trying
tried to
trying to
redeem
be
that so badly, and then it just didn't. Obviously, wasn't going to work. But it's just funny. But like, I don't know. It's funny. Like, do you reckon like Irma Bunt had like a recording of Ruby Violet or something playing there when she makes that noise or whatever to
Yeah,
full
that's
stop?
interesting.
Or whether she had to like, I don't know, bring back like the last vestige of like her femininity and track James Bond with
Well,
something.
yeah,
that
you ought
was
to be
fucking-
fair. Blofelder has like he plays tape recordings in all the rooms. You can assume that he's probably recording everything in there as well. Because
He would have
Bond,
cottoned on so much earlier if he was though.
well,
Because
because Bond is
I
also
wondered that. Do you think perhaps that Ruby was in the room then? She was being held to like
well, no,
play
because then
along.
it'd be way too suspicious as well. Like then she'd ask questions, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's true.
Maybe they're just like, oh yeah, Ruby, you sleep in the spare guest room for tonight for no particular reason. It's for your chicken allergy.
Well, she must have been aware of something because obviously she was told to leave her. If she wasn't in the room, then that's unusual. But yeah, I mean, she's
Yeah, but they're
like you
able
said,
to
Tom.
fool
She's
them into
probably not like
thinking,
the sharpest pencil. So like
yeah, they're able to fool them into thinking, yeah, it's totally normal that you can't use your second names, you can't share a book around, you can't
Yeah.
like
Do you
open
want to
your
like
doors at night,
in the next step of your allergic recovery, we're gonna make you sleep in a room full of chickens tonight, and it's like that's probably what they did.
Yeah, maybe.
yeah. So anyway, Bond comes to, and even the coming to thing is cool. Because you have like this like these weird like camera sort of like
Yeah, it's like blurry as well. Like he's
yeah, that's right. And there's like the Christmas tree and stuff, and Merry Christmas 007. What a cool line.
yeah,
Delivered by like the coolest voice ever, man. And then like, but yeah, it's like, oh, it takes more than a few props to fool me, It's like, oh, well, it takes more than cutting off your ears to become a, count.
yeah.
So yeah, that's like interesting back and forth. They have this like, yeah, it's cool.
Yeah.
The cat's out the bag now, like, and he goes, yeah, well, basically like we said, just sort of, oh yeah, Bond gets to. This is again a bit of a like sloppy Bond trope, but it's okay in this context. I think you have like Blofeld explaining his whole plot basically. Bond tries to get as much out of him as possible, but obviously not quite everything. So then Bond is like escorted.
No. Quick before you do that,
Go,
when I
go,
was
go.
really little, like, this is another thing I had to grow on me, like in terms of understanding and therefore enjoyment. Like, is how he was like, oh, I'm seeing the systematic extermination of whole species of cereals and livestock all over.
Yeah.
I just heard the word cereal out of all that, and then I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, man's gonna get rid of cereal. He must be.
Yeah, he's gonna like
stopped.
exterminate shreddies,
So I was like, yeah, that's his threat. Like, yeah, that's
I think
really
that's a pretty big
credible.
threat though.
Yeah, it's less. I mean, obviously we'll rank the villains, and obviously this is part of the ranking, right? We have to sort of assess like the legitimacy of their plot. This one's really interesting. Like,
Yeah, because it's quite aged quite well, I think. Like
well,
biological.
very well. I mean, aged so well, they basically use exactly the same thing in No Time to Die,
Yeah, except to
more or
a,
less.
to a worse like extent because they
Yeah,
never explain
and
anything.
it's like, yeah, obviously with COVID, there's all that as well.
But this is bacteriological warfare, which I think
Yeah, you know what? I
doesn't
mean,
make a lot of sense in terms of the way that bacteria
although
is
you know what is worth mentioning, the fact that this was so like convincing that M or like the person above M, the prime minister, was prepared to buy off Blofeld. They were actually like, yeah, we have
Well,
we,
'cause he's
we
not
have
It
asked
really,
much.
it really
He's
felt
not
like he
really
was
asking
gonna.
that much, actually.
Yeah, and compared to You Only Live Twice, like where he's asking for like 100 million in advance or whatever from random governments, but like in this one, like it really feels like he's gonna get away with it because, relatively speaking, the threat he holds versus what he wants, coupled with what M says, that's like wow, it's over. He's just gonna be a count, and then who cares? Like that's it.
well, that's interesting because yeah, there's that, but then
And the only reason that Bond follows up on it, like, is because he has a personal stake involved. Because Tracy's with him basically. So I don't know.
yeah, that's an interesting point actually. That's a good point. The other thing though worth considering is the fact that with this plot, which kind of makes it a better plot in a way, is the fact that the women are out there. So even after Blofeld gets what he wants, he can still use that later on as leverage. Oh, they're still out there. I can still push this button whenever I like, and then he can use that as like leverage
Yeah, he's, like,
further on down the
permanently got
line
the
as
world
well.
at
That
hostage.
threat is always present because how are they going to know where those women are until obviously later on they kind of like find a way. But before then, there's no
Also,
way.
he says, like, yeah, because like Bond is kind of like grasping at straws. To be honest, he's like, oh yeah, they won't believe you. And he's like, well, you're going to be very helpful for that. Like he's going to like torture him in front of a TV or something like that.
Yeah, like
Um,
what one thing that really, like, sorry to cut you off, but like
Bubble.
he it's like he really cuts Bond down to size, and he's like
Yeah.
oh, you do realize what will happen if I don't report? And he's like, oh, once they've vital sampled this thing, they'll have more important things to think about than you. And then he's like,
Yeah.
and he's right as well. Like the world would be like not caring about him, and so it's like, wow, like it makes the villain feel so much more like credible. Like I don't know, the villain's threat sometimes, like if it's a lackluster villain, they like kind of bounce off James Bond a bit, and it's like, yeah, no, you're not actually gonna like get anywhere with
Yeah,
him.
it's
And
not
then it's like,
believable, really.
but this one really breaks past that, and is like, yeah, no one's gonna care about
He's
you if
like,
this happens.
he has like such a cool line where he says like to him like oh yeah, well I'll be able to, they'll know that I mean what I say and I'll do what I claim. Well, he's got the cigarette as well, like he's just like just to like the hand action as well, just to,
Yeah, like gesturing with that. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a great line. Again, executed by Telly Savalas, and this is where
and
like
he's also physically above Bond on the steps as well in that. So
yep. And you've got like, I mean, the direct parallel you think of is Goldfinger, right? Where Goldfinger's, because Bond tries to blag, oh well, the people come looking for me, I'll get replaced, blah blah blah, and then Goldfinger's like, I don't care, I expect you to die, all that, it's like very epic, And this is like the other side of the coin again. It's like the extravagant versus low key sort of, you have Telly Savalas very cool and collected and just like bang, they make the same point, but in different ways, and it's like they're both like, just iconic Bond villains for and that's part of it. And ends with Bond being escorted to his new quarters.
yeah, I like the way they put it as well.
Yeah,
And the fact that
and again,
this
it's like a Goldfinger. Not. I mean, not a nod to Goldfinger, but also Goldfinger ends that conversation exactly the same way as well.
Yeah, I like as well that he tries to fight off the guards, and Blofeld's just like saying he just know, like with all that.
Well, it's worth mentioning. The reason
Yeah.
that happens is because obviously on his
Yeah.
way there, they look out the window and like Campbell's there, like dead as a doornail, which is like
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
grim.
that's a pretty horrific image as well. As a kid, like whoa, that's like scary,
It's
man.
hanging upside down and frozen, like
Yeah, it's
where
like
they killed him.
yeah, it's scary, man. It's like something from a horror film, man.
Yeah, you could have that in like a Saw film. Actually, you basically do, but still.
The way Blofeld
Yeah.
like so kind of like nonchalantly talks about it as well. It's like, oh, so
You prefer
it's
British.
just,
You love your
yeah, I
accent.
know. He's just like, yeah, I don't know. He just adds so much more threat to like him.
Yeah,
as a
yes.
villain.
Oh, these British. Oh, how you love your perverse, whatever. He's like, and that's what tilts Bond. He's like just talking shit about his teammate there, And you know, Bondless, like he tries to fight them off, and like you say, Henry, Blofeld cools a cucumber, man. You know, which is just great contrast because George Lazenby to this point has been that he's been like very, you know, assured and like confident and stuff. And now it's like
He has
the
to think on his
shift.
feet, you know.
Yeah. Blofeld's just like you can't touch me.
He's
Like,
literally got like the whole world in his hand at this point, like more or less. He's got him in the palm of his hand more as well, Bond. And I like as well because he basically, the next thing is they just shut him in this not even a room. It's just like a mechanical like area for the cable cars. Like
he's locked in the bottomless pit.
Yeah,
How
as well.
far
Like,
down does that
It's
thing
it's
go?
a
That
it's
always
scared
scared
me
me
as
as
a
a
kid,
kid.
man.
Man, you know, it's just
did.
like literally a bottomless pit.
That's like the one thing I want to comment on before is like late when there's an action scene where with all like the cogs and stuff. That's really creative, and like I really like that for suspense and the music that's played and like how he ends up finally getting out, which I never really I don't know it like and the bit where he like falls off because his fingers will get crushed otherwise like. And then, like you just see, like the angle, like the things like
Yes,
black.
this is
You
where the
can't
quick
see it.
cuts help a lot, you know.
Yeah, and like
That's
it's
exactly what I
filmed
wanted to say.
brilliantly.
That's exactly where the quick cuts do work. I don't think in the fight scenes they work so well, and here it's
These work,
perfect. You
yeah,
get
this
really
is like
like
the
wow,
perfect
and the
spot for it.
music, oh, it's so good, man.
Yeah,
Then to do it as well later on, where like, because he gets out of this. I mean,
Yes,
he initially fails, and he only just I like he like rips out his pockets as well.
This
Like,
is really great, like because he doesn't even have any gadgets to get him out of this one either. Like and it's a really original concept. Like he's just fighting these cogs basically, and
Yeah,
and a
no-
sheer drop which he might, and if he doesn't, he freezes to death. So there's like no way out of it basically, and
yeah, it's
he and
no,
he
no,
he literally has to rip his pockets out. Like he has no gadgets, no
yeah, he
nothing, and then
reached into his pockets, realizes no gadgets, takes
Yeah.
his pockets out as the gadgets. You know?
yeah.
exactly. And he goes out to the cable car, and the same thing happens again. Just oh, it's so good. You know
Yeah,
what?
but
Those
also he can't land on top of the cable car. Otherwise
big
it
movie
bounces.
mistake though, because like you know you have the cable car, like the distance he is to like the first wheel of the cable car to where he jumps off and lands, just physically impossible.
You
I
But
feel
think
like
it meant. I think
he
it just
might have
meant to like
swung
not know.
himself and then let go or something, but that's other than
I
that,
haven't really
yeah,
noticed it though, so
it's a
it's not
stretch.
like.
oh, next time you watch it, you'll see it. Now you've
Well,
ruined the camera.
From
You
Russia
ruined the
with Love.
beginning for me. Now you get this. That's good.
It's
Yeah.
like in From Russia with Love, where like for a split second there are two Bonds on screen. Same as
No, no,
well.
no. It's like it's real when you notice it. You're like, like that. That's
I
like.
noticed that for a long time, but like it never
And it doesn't bother me. It's just like
didn't like
you sort
take
of
me out of the
when you watch the
moment at
film
all
too many
because
times,
like
you sort of notice that. You know.
Yeah, it's
I
still.
think I think if he swung himself physically, that could have been done, but
No,
like
no chance.
I
No
think
chance.
I'm not
Watch
gonna
there's
try it,
no
but
chance.
like I think within the realm, that's like not it's a stretch, granted, but like I think
Well, it's a Bond film. There are always
yeah.
stretches.
It doesn't matter. I'm just pointing it
Yeah.
out. But
But I like as
but the
well.
moment of suspense is so good, man, because you're like, and that's where the quick cuts again. You just have his fingers there, and like a hand at a time, and it's just like
Like a
like not even
centimeter away
inches
from
away.
like crushing his pinky.
It's
You
so
know.
scary, man. Yeah.
But
It's
I like
brilliant.
as well, like you get like because you had the respite of he managed to make it out of the room, and then he's got to make it to this cable car without getting his fingers crushed, and then like he gets 10 seconds to relax, and he has to immediately go up to infiltrate the base as well, or escape the base actually.
And obviously you have the contrast as well, because while all this is happening, the girls are like, you just go back to this warm, comfortable, cozy environment. The women are there, and they're like receiving Christmas presents. You have this music, and Bunce is there and everything. And it's like,
Yeah, they're
so
still in the Matrix.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah, it's great though, like because if they didn't have that and it was all him out in the cold, the effect of him being out there would kind of like get lost on you. But it's just like taking like going literally like like the torture method, cold hot. Like it like keeps constantly reminding you like yeah he's freezing out there, and he's also in a dangerous location. So I think
That's
it's a very
right.
good
That's right. So,
directorial.
Bond gets in time to overhear some, Blofeld delivering the instructions to their subconscious,
Yeah,
and then he's like, all right, it's time to get the fuck
time
out of
to
here.
dip. Yeah.
Yeah. So he goes and knocks out a guard.
No, I love the way he does this though. Like he
Yeah.
goes down the lift.
Yeah.
And he never, and the lift doesn't like open. This guy, like, he doesn't notice it at first. He's just at his desk and he's like, he's like, what the fuck is someone playing a prank or something? Or am I hearing things? Like, he probably go crazy up there in the Alps with this.
Can you imagine if like he didn't investigate it though, he just like ignored it or something, and then
Yeah,
James
that's
Bond
make
just
some
had to
banging
like
noise in the lift.
James Bond had to like awkwardly come out or something like that.
Yeah. Bond like does like the thing where he's like, he's just like the fake walking down steps behind a desk or something, and then he goes around the end to fight him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Bond knocks out this guy, and he's perhaps he should have been gift wrapped, and so begins the very first Bond
Probably,
ski chase.
in my opinion, the best.
Yeah, it has to be. I love the Spy Love Me. I love the ski chase there.
Yeah, actually, this is a fact as well. Because George Lazenby was the guy to suggest that Bond should have skied off something and then opened a parachute, but they didn't have they couldn't do it for this film because they lacked the resources to pull it off. So that's why they recycled the idea and used it when they could.
Wow,
so
that's amazing.
If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have had that stunt.
I mean, what are the ski chases? I mean, we've got this one. We've got we'll talk about it. This episode's already going to be like really long.
Yeah, true. We need to like stay this from being on like 4 hours long,
But we do have like this ski chase is awesome. Like the music, I was just when I was watching it as well. I mean, there's like multiple ski chases in this, so I'm going to talk about them generally right now. But like, how hard that must have been to film. You have these professional skiers, obviously.
I like that color coordinated as well.
Yeah, they've all got like the props and stuff. And the fact that you have the scenes, especially in the morning after, right? For jumping ahead a little bit, you have them skiing, and then you have like
the cinematography.
It's on the virgin snow. It's on fresh snow, so they had to do that in one take, right? Because otherwise they would have left tracks. Yeah, because otherwise they would have left tracks there from the ski.
What did you call the snow?
It's virgin snow. It's like an
virgin. I've never heard that term before.
Yeah. No, that's an actual term.
Wow.
But there would have been ski trails, so they had to fucking nail that in the first take, basically.
First take,
And when you consider that's probably been filmed on a helicopter, you've got these pros there, it's like that's extremely impressive
choreography. And the thing is, I like as well in this first ski chase, there's a great bit where, they shoot off one of his skis, so he has to ski, with one, which I think was the speciality of this. What made this particular guy they were using.
They had like some Olympic athletes do it.
Yeah.
And you've got these like, what I find funny as well. It's like, almost comical, but it's like it just works. What I love as well is you've got the guys like, the Englander has, in German, whatever he said. What does he say, Henry? You speak German. Like the Englander has escaped. It's like, like I love when you hear that the Englander, like.
I like how he is
the
like
Englander is verschlecken, like he literally just as the Englanders escaped, like.
Yeah, I love it, man. And they say it sort of twice. They refer. I don't know why. I love the word Englishman. Like they refer to him as the Englishman. I think that's brilliant. I don't know why.
There's like something immediately
out again.
There's always something like immediately identifiable about like English people. Something that foreigners like intrinsically know. It's like, the Englishman has escaped, and it's like, okay.
Yeah. I like that.
And you've got also the villains, like the Blofeld henchmen. They're coming out of this like door, which is just like got this flashing red light there. Like they're literally coming from like demons coming from hell, man. It's like. Like I don't know why they had to be so extra with that. Just like it's not just a red light; it's like a flashing one. Like they're like all you're missing is like some screams of torture from down there. Like.
What I like as well with this ski chase as well, that I always remember is like when they're going Lazenby he skis off of like kind of the top of something and there's like a drop and he skis back down like he basically and he lands. I always remember it for some reason as one of the villains falls over comically or something like that. But all of the villain skiers, they're all like, they never cut them down to where they're kind of like comical. Like there is one who like falter or like crash into a tree.
One of them is called an idiot. So
literally like
but that's because one of them failed to like jump over like a pretty tough gap. Like
that's one who flew into a tree. I'm pretty sure.
But the fight scene here on the cliff edge, this is like like really your heart's in your throat, man. At that point, you're just like like that's like how they filmed that is very impressive.
That guard, like Is it when he's like strangling one of them with a ski, you know?
Yeah, and then they have the fight afterwards, and it's like, like they're like right on the precipice, and then like, the guy gets thrown off eventually.
Yeah, I
Oh,
like as well, like
that's tense. Man.
the first guy he swings it like a bat to trip him up, and then he sends him flying over. And I like that they keep the shot going for like the entirety of the fall, just to like hit the
Oh yeah, I
point.
forgot that two of
This
them
is
go over. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
it's like this is a long fall, like just to set up the danger for
And
the
even
fight.
like how, I mean, obviously it's a dummy being thrown over there, but you've got like how the shadow meets the body. Oh, that's so cool, man. I
Yeah,
think this,
as well as like what. Sorry, Tom, but when he's strangling like the guy, and like it's got like the music changes from like the chase to like some like like I don't know, some more low key music, like trying to be like is also like the music itself is trying to be quiet, not to bait him out. Whereas like Blofeld and these four other guys like skiing around like close by to look for him as well.
I think like one thing that's not picked up on with this film is also actually I heard this from Yaphet Kotto, who was the one who played Kananga in Live and Let Die. Like when he was talking about, this is really like out of context, but I'll get into it. Like he like talks about how he wants to be more Bond than like Bond was. He wanted to be like cool, drinking champagne and stuff, and like I don't know, suave villain or whatever. And then he gave a reason. He was like, oh, because the audience knows the villain's gonna lose at this point, and like so you have to whatever. And then but that occurred to me like this must have been the very last film where it looked like the villain could have won, and then like this could have just ended the whole James Bond thing technically. Like it's a very like ultimate kind of the
A lot
plot
of
is good.
finality to it with the
Yeah,
time as well.
and finality to it, and plus Sean Connery's also gone, so like that could have like with all those things thrown together, plus a really competent Blofeld, who is actually not even really going for that much if you stack it up against other villains. But like, you really think the villain could have gotten away with it in this one, and James Bond could have failed the mission for audiences
Yeah.
back then. And and Diamonds Are Forever obviously is just like not serious at all. So from that point on, I think it was just like, given what Yaphet Kotto says, I think that's when it stopped being believable that the villain could have won or whatever.
Yeah, until maybe you get to Daniel Craig's films. I think they kind of
Yeah,
reset.
but
Actually,
I did not think you were going to give credit where it's due there, Henry. I was going to say that to wind you up, but you're right. I think
that's a
that's a
different
really interesting
continuity.
point
I
you
don't
make,
hate
Tom.
Daniel Craig. I just want to point that out.
Yeah, I think that's a
These
really
are my
interesting point you
favourite
make, Tom. I think, yeah, for the day that must have really been the case. Yeah, I think as well with the Man with the Golden Gun, I feel like when it's Roger Moore versus Scaramanga, I think that's like, okay, this could go either way.
Yeah, it's because as well. I think it helps a lot with Scaramanga because at the beginning. But we're talking
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, we need
we're
to.
gonna end up going like we've already mentioned like 3 or 4 other like Bond films at this point. But that's just how much this film's influenced the other ones, I guess.
Yeah, but you got a good point. The stakes are really high in this film. That's for sure.
But the thing that I love, because it keeps going when he gets down to the village.
Yeah. Because he goes, okay, now this is like, if you've ever set foot in Switzerland, you know this sound, the sound of the cowbells. That is the most definitive sound of Switzerland you can ever hear, man. And you get it in like bucketfuls here with like they have the fight in like the cowbell shack, whatever.
Yeah.
With the gunshot as well.
Way.
Yeah, very good, very cool. And then Bond walks away with like this jacket. There's a little bit of money in there, a little change. Yeah, that's quite funny.
Yeah, I like as well. This is like kind of a callback to the bit in Thunderball where he's like going around in like the festival, and it's like proper tense as well because like people make fun of like sometimes people make fun of the him getting like scared by that like huge bear, but he's literally like it makes like the flash sound effect, and it's like as if someone shot him, like. So obviously, you'd be shitting yourself. He's fearing for his life.
Yeah, and again, the quick cuts
one's
here
not
really
meant to
work
be,
well.
but-
Yeah, and that is genuinely like you would shit yourself, man.
And as well, like
And
it's
you
not-
and you hear the guy in the costume actually laughing at him afterwards. The guy's just like pranking him, like, oh yeah, let me play.
yeah,
let
but
me
he
get
doesn't
this
know.
sucker,"
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I like I as well by this point, like he sees that everyone's around him, like he can spot the guards and Immerbunt and so on and so forth, and he's like he literally doesn't know what to do, so he just sits down in the chair, puts the collar up. He's like given up, like really, he's like ready to die almost. and then like so there's someone skiing, ice skating past, and then Tracy is like just pops up out of nowhere.
The
But she
appearance
knows
is
where to
really
be
good.
actually. She
Yeah.
says, but she
And
like
she
proper
like
saves his ass,
I'm sorry, but well, not sorry, because she's like really she's not only a Bond girl, but she's a really good Bond ally as well. Like she really like saves his bacon in this whole sequence, and then like
Mm.
it's really good and fun to watch because for once, it's not James Bond basically carrying the team. It's like someone else, like for a change, and
Yeah.
also carrying Bond as well. So it's really good, and like I really like the realism of this because like that's how you would be acting. And from what I remember, like James Bond enters an ice rink, right, and then he just goes to the side and sits down. So assuming that the goons are around the edge of this ice rink, he can't go out of it basically. So in effect, he's trapped. But he
Yeah.
gets taken out by her, and
Yeah, it was also the
they go to
fireworks that kind of helped.
yeah, that kind of help. They get distracted, and then later when like and driving in this car like um I don't know, you would do what she did in that scenario. You would try and lose them in that little rally race thing and then try and get out. Like there's no gadgets in all of this, and I don't know, it's really good. And I think sometimes people forget there's no gadgets for some reason, but
Let's
like
get you, mate.
it's really good. Like yeah,
Close the
very
call.
good realism, very good action and suspense, and yeah.
I
That's-
agree with you, but you know the little problem I have with this is just you really really have to suspend your disbelief because
Why would she
what
be
are the
there?
chances that she is there? I mean, she explains a
Because
little bit
She
later.
explained that Draco like told her,
I
yeah,
know,
you're gonna be
but
in this place.
okay, yeah, she's in the general area, but the fact that Bond is there, right place, right time, and it's like that is a little bit that is stretching it. But
Maybe she's just chilling in this village waiting for him to pop back down the mountain.
yeah, but how does she know? You know, that's
It's
maybe
probably
I
the
guess it's
closest one
probably
there,
the closest village. Okay,
do you
the
reckon
fact she's skating at that moment. Okay, but you know, and the fact he ends up there at that moment. But okay,
But
what
I love the
what
framing
is great
approach
though
of
is
like
just her presence because you forgot she's just disappeared, you know, and then she's there and she just like and it pans up, you know, from like foot to head, and you just have this. She's
like
like
the
almost
light.
has this like angelic
Yeah, I was gonna
presence
say
there.
like she's like an
yeah.
angel, you know.
Yeah, and it's just like and you're like wow, it's like a
There's
friendly
also
face, you know.
it also helps I think like the kids choir as well, like in the back.
You know, there's like three instances of I don't know what it is with this film. There's like children singing all through this film. It happens at least three times, very
Yeah, I know.
distinctly. It just that always creeps me out a little bit, but yeah, definitely adds to that moment as well. And you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, you know, he's so
And
you know,
she's a little bit oblivious as well, like, until he's playing, yeah, the Spectre trying to kill me, you know. And she's like, oh, all right, then let's get the fuck out, you know. And then the cue the fireworks.
And
Uh,
their dialogue's really good in this scene when, like, he's like trying to pull up his jacket or whatever, and then like half hides his face when they're driving away. He's like, "Oh, I don't think they saw me." He's like, "I wouldn't go bank on that," and it's just like, it really helps like
yeah,
grow their character and refer to like past stuff. And I don't know, just that little line and the dialogue in general that builds into really excellent. Like, you don't get that really in other Bond films.
yeah. So this is not bad. This is a good chase as well. I think probably one of the more memorable car chases because it lasts for longer than 30, like 20 seconds, like in
and it's
Thunderball.
funny because Bond isn't behind the wheel. He's not in
Yeah,
control.
but even so, it's still really good. Like, he's giving directions as well. Like, at some points, it's just like, oh yeah, just take that exit there. That's the way we get out. Like for the competition. I love like the rally car racing thing as well. I think that's a great little bit.
It's like
Uh,
F-Zero.
the thing is that I find um, there's a little known fact here as well. When because there's a bit where they're like they're like bashing a car between them and the Spectre one. That car and the Spectre car flips, and like there's like the effect of it exploding, but it actually did explode. And like Irma Bunt's actress, like she like actually got caught a bit in it, so yeah, it wasn't great for her. Because I think because there was like she also like shouts as well, like or screams in reaction to it, but I think that was actually like odd job, it was real.
Wow, that's really interesting. I never knew that.
Do you know she
Obviously,
actually the actress like died the year after this film
And
was
she
filmed as
didn't.
well?
She died a week before it was released, like
Really?
which
I
is
knew
that's
it
a
was
shame.
close, but not
peak.
that close. Wow.
That's a shame. Well, she's very memorable, and you know that will
Yeah.
reflect. I'm
Respect.
sure it will reflect in the rankings later. Um, anyway, Bond and Tracy they end up in a barn basically. Um, well, what can I say?
you ma-
Bond proposes to
Yeah.
Tracy and
Oh,
to
there's
get
there's like
married.
I don't
there's
know,
one
burst
particular.
anyone's bubble. Sorry, but like, when I've seen this film so many times, and like, I always get caught up in like the emotion of it or whatever. But like, this time I saw it, I just thought like, can you imagine how badly it must reek in there? And it's like,
Yeah, there's only like hay in there.
Never
There's not like
thought of that.
animals, are
Yeah.
there?
Wow. I think it must have been cold enough so that you wouldn't,
Yeah,
like,
exactly. That's what I mean.
I'd have liked to think. But yeah, it's like it is a super romantic, like,
Yeah, no, it's
beautiful
there's
scene.
that one frame where like I think she's on top of him, but like the lighting is literally makes it look like an angel, and it's like it's
Yeah,
so it's
it goes all
like no amount of
fuzzy.
like directing could have just like facilitated that. It's just like literally like just perfect, like
And
I don't know,
the way
light from
Bond speaks
outside.
to, yeah, the way George Lazenby speaks to her, it's like he's so soft and genuine, and without like jumping ahead to future films too much, they do try and sort of recreate that kind of, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't hit the same note that they're somehow able to. George Lazenby and Dinah Rigg, like their chemistry in this film, just it just feels so real. In other, not just, it's certainly not limited to Bond films. When you get that, it just feels okay. Yeah, you're watching two actors, and
Yeah,
it's
you
not real.
can
This really feels like like it does feel special. It's like a real like on-screen relationship where you're like, it's authentic and it's earned. And
you definitely couldn't imagine Sean Connery doing this after seeing him in the previous films. Like not to like, rag on him, but like I think it was probably a good thing that George Lazenby was in this rather than him because you don't associate him with the previous films so much because it's not literally him like if like Sean Connery, the same person who is like bedding 50 people, like over the course of 5 films, and not necessarily being the most gentlemanly to women. Um, I don't think he would have been able to sell it as much as George does in this.
That's a really good point. Like, I don't know. I is at the point that was kind of there subconsciously, but it took someone to saying that to like make me really realize it. Like, yeah, that this is like this film really benefits from the fact it's kind of George Late. It's a fresh face basically, and especially given Connery's kind of behavior in the other ones.
Yeah.
the thing is, I think if George Lazenby is in this film and Sean Connery is, I think it becomes a totally different film. I don't think they would include. They wouldn't get him married and stuff. Maybe I'm wrong, but
It's meant to
I
be a
think,
really faithful
yeah.
adaptation, so like
Yeah.
maybe he would
I
have
know,
had to
but
do
perhaps
that.
they just would have made this film full stop. Maybe they'd just, waited for another. I don't know. Like, maybe they'd have done Diamonds Are Forever instead. I don't know. Like, it feels like I don't think they would have done. Sean Connery wouldn't have been in this kind of context regardless because of that.
Yeah, it's funny because You Only Live Twice in the book series is meant to come after this.
Mhm.
So
Well, exactly. That's case in point. So they obviously knew that was the chronological order, and they perhaps just omitted this because they thought, we can't really marry Sean Connery, like da da da, and there you go.
yeah,
And then first
I
chance
like
they got, as soon as they got rid of Sean, not got rid of him, but they like got a new Bond. They were like, okay, now we can try this.
yeah, we can do this while we can. Like
We got
I
like
liked as
yeah,
I
go
liked as
on.
well by the end of this scene, which transitions into the next one. I mean, actually, at the beginning of the scene, they had like a bit of a fake out where like the doors open, they realize it's just the wind, so he like properly shuts them. But then when it cuts to the next scene, it's like you haven't seen them yet, um, but Blofeld and his goons have finally caught up to them, and they open the shed doors, but then they realize they're not there. I don't know why they didn't take the car. Maybe it wasn't a good idea to drive down the mountain, but I don't know. Maybe
Yeah,
it's out of fuel or something, which is I don't know. But anyway,
yeah, like
I like the comedy as well. He proposes to her and they like sleeping, and then like he pulls the stick from underneath
it's
them,
not
like,
used.
it's not New Year's yet. Then New Year's
that's
resolution, like
this is where we get like a candidate for the Sigma quote of the film, I guess. The rug is kind of pulled away from it when he does that, but he's like, the proper time for this is our wedding night, and then which quite, I don't know, you can say that's Sigma, I
I wouldn't
Mm.
guess,
really say it's a Sigma line.
and then like um one question I have though um is like where on earth was Blofeld during that night? Like, was he just like they just chill in some bed and breakfast in the village or something, and then like
yeah, that's a good point.
and then like, or was he skiing like 1 mile an hour down the hill the whole night? And then it's just like,
They're
yeah,
probably looking for
they
him
might
in
have gone
around
here.
the village.
Well, yeah, the last time you see Blofeld was, oh, let's head him off at the precipice. So he probably goes back to HQ and then lets the others sort of deal. Yeah, they probably do stay at bed and breakfast, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like.
Um,
Yeah.
But
I
yeah,
mean, but then
so
I like kind of this. It's kind of seamlessly transitions because they broke up a ski chase and you get another one afterwards, and like it kind of feels like seamless almost like because then you get like this camera pan with some really nice music, like, oh, isn't this such a cool mountainside? Now let's see people like ski down it, like, and immediately basically gets right into it because they're both skiing and then they realize, oh, we're being followed, and then cue the music and then off they go.
They must have been really by the skin of their teeth as well, because like, I don't know, you see how close they are when they're like the ski chase. So it must have gone out like 30 seconds or a minute before they did, and like, I don't know, that just kind of gives me, I don't know, shivers almost, because it's like, oh, if they'd spent like a minute longer, they'd have been caught and that'd have been it. And then it's
Yeah.
like, but no, of course not.
Mm.
Well, of course.
yeah, so they're
not,
skiing
yeah.
along and like one
Yeah.
guy ends up in this like blender basically.
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is-
like it's a snowplow. Like
he had lots
they
of
jump
guts.
over. Like most of them barely make it as well,
Yeah.
like to the edge. This guy, yeah, he fumbles it. He only to be called like an idiot posthumously by his colleague, and then then Lazenby just says that he had lots of guts, like just casually, and then just keeps going.
Skill issue.
Yeah, obviously they go and ski off, and then Blofeld stops, and they go like start an avalanche
Keep
basically.
going.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can
they
you imagine
started-
like, can you imagine it though, like those goons was something that Bloodfeld just didn't like or something, or he had to like, I don't know, there were the three that just happened to ask for a raise most recently, and it's like, yeah, you three fuck off, and then
Yeah,
like
you threw a never making worker of the month. Yeah,
the other two or whoever are left with him, and just like, yeah, I'm
so
just
3, Tom, if you knew how to.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Blofeld
make it a
kills two
one.
birds with one stone. Yeah. Well, he starts off this avalanche, which again is like, oh yeah, you know what? Which is very realistic looking, but I can't believe we haven't mentioned how bad the green screen was for this skiing.
Or for Telly Savalas specifically.
Yeah.
Everyone
But also
else,
for
like,
George Lazenby, it's like it's so bad. It makes
is it
Doctor
green screen
No's.
George Lazenby? Because I thought the entire time it was just the world, like the
it
athletes.
is
You can't
the
see his
guy.
face.
Yeah, but
It is the
okay,
guy,
maybe
'cause
it's not
that's
George
why
Lazenby, but
that's
still,
why
like the
Telly
green screen is
Savalas,
still
though.
awful. It's still awful.
To be fair, though, it must be quite difficult to green screen someone skiing because of the speed. But
and
anyway,
they probably didn't
regardless,
have
it doesn't
much
look that good.
footage for it, I guess.
I guess it's the best they could do, but I still just didn't
Yeah,
age well.
it takes you out of it a little bit, but regardless, like that ski chase is so good. And
Yeah.
like the fact that they end it with the avalanche as well, just kill 3 of his goons as well, classic Bond villain fashion. The other 3 are like next to him, probably just like, oh, you know.
Glad I didn't
And
ask about
they get
Monday
caught
off.
up as well. And I really like as well the fact that with Tracy and Bond, they both get caught up and they both try to hold on to each other as well. You can see, but then eventually, the force of nature separates them, which is a bit of a shame. But in that way, it kind of saves them as well because if they're caught both at the same time,
Yep, true that. And
I'm surprised
then
that, I
obviously,
mean,
it
such
just
a
so
assumes that he
dangerous
buried
thing.
him as well.
yeah, so we basically cut to London because Tracy's dragged off. Blofeld, oh yeah, Blofeld has a great line as well. Oh, a tomb even too deep for 007 to emerge from, something like that.
Yeah.
So they go and they carry Tracy off, and
Yeah, he's having a flashback in the window. It's got that
yeah,
bit. I love that
it's like
bit.
really well done, man.
Yeah.
And it's funny, this is like we get really sort of quite candid moment with M because he's really like this is pretty much the first time, well, and one of the only times you see M basically. He's got a boss as well. He's like he's following orders just like Bond is
He does
effectively.
the Thunderball a
That's
bit
the
as well.
Thunderball as well, but like,
Yeah, that's true.
that's
So
just
this is
worse
the
than
first
Liquid.
time M has
But this M's basically
given-
surrendered. He's like, yeah, this is
Yeah.
it's game over. Because in Thunderball, M was going
he's
into bat for
pulling out
Bond. He's
the
like, we
bomb.
still got my man here. Here it's like, okay, we've played all our cards now, and Bond is like, no, we have to go. He's got this emotional investment in it, of course, but he's also like, we can still like stop them if we take out the central focus of command. And then he goes, it's above me, like forget
It's
about
been
it.
labeled as too risky.
Yeah,
like,
we're not here for personal vendettas, you know. Like,
Blofeld could have gotten away with this if the thing was just like one day earlier. It's like lazy schedule.
I
Because it's like,
love though. I absolutely love
Yeah.
like the next thing he does just rings up Draco, like, and the way that he describes it as well. Yeah, tell him I need some help for some specialist equipment for a new demolition job, you know. Like,
Yeah,
and then,
that's
like,
so
the
cool. Because like
next thing
Emma
is-
helped him was like, all right, fuck you lot then. All right, like, let's do this, you know. And
It's
he's like,
ironic-
yeah, he's like calling up the mate, calling the boys or whatever. Like, yeah, let's
Yeah,
he's
do
also playing
It-
into like Drax's like legal capacity as well for like construction and stuff, which I noticed. Which is
I like
nice.
he rings it on a company phone as well, just like, yeah, I'm dealing with, you know, the guy who you've been chasing as well for the last few years. I really like as well the fact that it's kind of ironic. This film is called On the Majesty's Secret Service, but it's the first time he kind of rebels, like basically dips, and he's like doing
Well, he
everything.
tries to resign earlier, you know, and then
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
he's
only
like
on
doing
Her
everything
Majesty's Secret
outside of Her
Service
Majesty's Secret
for like
Service.
20 minutes or something. So, yeah.
yeah, it's really good. He goes to actually, you know what? I'm sorry, I keep going back to Campbell, but because
Really
is he a
makes me happy.
Draco guy or is he an MI6 guy? Because he's helping Bond in Pitt's Glory when he's on MI6 business. Like Draco doesn't have anything to do with that. So
I think he's Draco.
Maybe he's double
honestly,
agent.
because he's working.
yeah,
construction.
maybe.
Could be
I
MI6
think he's
man in
MI6
there.
and Bond calls him to help him out with the safe cracking thing earlier. You know, that's what I think.
You guys
Or
on
maybe-
Team Draco or Team MI6?
Could be
Please put in the
Yeah.
comments.
Anyway,
double agent get twice the paychecks, you know.
yeah. Anyway, Bond and Draco, they're like in this really great, like these Red Cross helicopters, and they're like
Yeah. The
trying to
music as
bullshit their
well.
way into like attacking Pitt's Glory, you know. And this is great. You just get Draco like just charming his way out of this, you know, like just
Yeah,
being a
if
bullshit
he
artist,
if he was
you
a
know.
British guy like with the
Yeah.
accent, he wouldn't have been able to do it.
It's
But like,
so good. It's so good. And Blofeld's like
Almost
getting
got me the
Blofeld's trying to
murder,
seduce Tracy as well. She has like a
yeah,
she's quite a Sigma female
It
actually.
is
You know,
really
she's like, you know, he's
Sigma.
like, oh, I can make it if you're very nice to me. I can make you a countess. It's like,
Already
but
am.
I'm already a countess. You're like,
I
fuck.
think
Oh,
that's
I
a
felt-
Sigma quote for this film.
the one thing that I felt this scene with Blofeld and her, like it does I feel slightly a bit of a shame because like it tears him down a little bit that he's like being a bit of a baser, you know, he's like leaning in, you know,
Yeah,
like,
he's simping for her, man. Yeah, big time.
so hard as well. Like,
But that
and
is
to
so
be fair,
accurate though as well, isn't it? Because like, yeah, Blofeld, he's so busy. He's like this. I mean, I'm not like I don't want to say like bald, ugly bloke, you know, but it's like he's not Bond, right? And he's aware of that, and he's got like this insecure, and like he knows that's like Bond's girlfriend, presumably. So he's like, you know,
yeah.
he's like trying to, you know, and it's like it's just this thing that's like, okay, yeah, you can have this world domination, but you can never have, you know,
Do you
it's
know what I
like,
think?
Yeah, as
Like,
well.
I
Oh,
think like I think he might even be trying to do it for like the status with like Draco or whatever,
yeah,
because he
just to
knows
roast
that's her
Draco,
dad.
you know, yeah,
And
bang
then
it
like, and then he's like, "Yeah, your own father's company, blah blah blah." And
yeah,
then, like, so I think maybe
good
he's
point.
trying to like, I don't know, do like a little. Even here, he's like trying to do
Like
a
a
little
power move.
business
I'm
business
just like
power
you.
move or
Yeah.
something like that.
Good point.
Yeah.
It's really clever. Like she's really clever and like, because I only picked up to them this later when she was like, they just start quoting poetry at no,
Yeah, she's
like
cultured,
they
you know.
just start quoting like I don't know theater poetry at each other, and then
Yeah.
and like the
Oh,
delivery for all how good the delivery is, they're like these two really good English actors. Like they just like I don't know. I didn't get the purpose of it when I was younger, like, but it's really just so like Tracy could just bring him up onto like full view of the viewing floor basically where
yeah, so
they're
you
at
can
the
get
open.
shot, you know.
Yeah, so like it was easier for her to escape when they get attacked. So I think that's really cool and like really clever. It's not aided by a gadget, of course. It's just again, it's just like one of the characters using their intuition to like get out of a situation really cleverly, and also by like stroking Blofeld's ego or whatever, and
Yeah.
then really well done, I think.
I like yeah, I can imagine like, you know, they put in this like a bit of reciting theater lines from or poetry or something just to maybe like last ditch attempt to get Timothy Dalton to get in, you know. But
I think it's worth mentioning Telly Savalas isn't English though. He's Greek. He's Greek.
Oh, I forgot.
He's Greek,
But-
but he was born. He's like American, like first gen immigrant, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So now we get basically. Okay, I mean that scene with Draco, you know, it's so good, man. He's like, you know, blagging his way there, and basically, basically Yeah, we get the attack on Piz Gloria to the
With
tune
the-
of the James Bond theme.
Yeah, I like that, and there's also the Attack on
So good.
Piz Gloria theme, which is a remix
Yeah.
of the theme, which is so good as well.
It's
yeah,
really
yeah,
the
yeah,
build
yeah.
up is amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
This is maybe one of the coolest uses of the actual James Bond theme as well. Like, is like even if they couldn't have, even if they used the 007 theme, I don't think it would have been as good. Like, especially this is actually something that was just a spur of the moment thing that I think Peter Hunt thought of. But when they had like Bond slide along, like, because you had the contrast of him being useless at it earlier because he was pretending, and then he's like, yeah, fuck you, I actually am good at this shit. And he just shoots like all the guards with a machine gun, you know.
someone can like correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember I might have heard somewhere that like George Lazenby was meant to like, I don't know, go across it normally, and then like they like he didn't want to because he couldn't like skate or whatever, and he didn't want to fall over or something. So he just like they said, oh, you can do it on your belly, like just slide in like that. And then I think the way they put that plus the combination of the Bond theme, classic Bond theme, really cool. Like that's amazing. Like when you think of like action scenes with the Bond theme playing over it, that's like the first one. That and
Yeah.
Nits or Nelly are the ones that like pop into my head.
I think this is the last time they use the classic Bond theme for an action scene like this, because all the other ones since are like they're often remixes or they've changed something about them. But this is so good.
That's
Like,
true. You also get Draco's like henchman. You know, you get the black guy, and he's like got the flamethrower, man. He's like a badass, you know, which is like
yeah,
really
he's,
cool.
he does it down a tunnel,
Yeah.
like just obliterates everyone.
Yeah. It's so cool, man.
I like that you see like all of his henchmen that you've seen throughout the film as well. Like they're popping up. So like
very cool.
You're
You
reminded
get
that
and obviously you
values
get
his work as well.
you get again just puts an extra layer onto Tracy's character. She has like a fight with Gunter, which is like, you know, really like it's a good fight. And it climaxes with him like going onto those wall nails, which are like super weird. And you always think, oh, what if someone like backed into them? And you actually
Yeah,
get
that's
to
so
see it.
convenient.
Yeah.
Like what practical purpose do those
Yeah.
serve
And then you
outside?
get,
Well,
of
you know,
course,
sometimes the villain's just extra, you know, they just got that on there. It's a
yeah.
weird enough clinic as it is, and you know.
Yeah.
I wonder if they removed that from the real Piz Gloria.
Someone's
you
got
know?
like a fear
and
of
there's a great
spikes or
moment. There's a
something.
great line as well where Bond goes to he like fights someone. He goes, oh, and he does in the Hilary Brave voice. Guns make me nervous, you know, like
Yeah,
you get that as well. I think that's a great little
I
throwaway
like
line
that
there.
too.
And then of course you get Bond versus Blofeld, and
Yeah, I like that like with the music when he's going down to like the Batcave to like get all the get like the different locations of where the girls are, just you know, so they can find out what like we don't have this like bacteriological like weapon going around. He's just in the middle of doing that, and you can see in the background Blofeld's actually coming out, and he's like taking aim at him. He somehow fucking misses, but it's not his forte, I guess. Um, Maybe the Spectre training camp, he didn't have to go through it, for being the director. But yeah, and then it just immediately brings back the music, which is like just again, like what can I say? Like whoever was doing the audio in this, like just basically did a perfect job.
yeah, exactly. And so they go and chase each other through the Batcave. You know, Bond runs out of bullets at one point, and you're not something you see very often. And then, and Draco as well, he gets his daughter as well, and they go, and again, this is like, you don't
Yeah,
see this. He like knocks her out literally from hitting her. Says something pretty sexist and like flies off basically without Bond.
Rather spoil the charm. It's like
Yeah, because she wants to like save Bond, and he's like, nah, he knows the score, man. You know, he'll be out, whatever. So he leaves him too, which is pretty ruthless of him. Fair play, you know.
I mean, yeah, like
and good trust in Bond, and they're doing the countdown as well, of course, which is like really cool. It's like the tension, the music, the build up.
Yeah,
It's
they
so
give him
good.
5 more seconds for him to jump out.
and his
Yeah, and then you have like Blofeld jumping out, and then Bond, and then the place blows up. A little bit dodgy. Like I guess you want to talk about the
model work, is it?
Yeah.
It's just a fact. I think you said that the model work just looks. You can kind of tell for a second it looks like a model. But it's not like it's for a split second, so like you don't really. It's like if they held on that frame onto it for a while, it would just look a bit, But it's like a split second thing, and I like you also get Blofeld's reaction as well. He sees
I was just gonna
the
say,
whole fucking his whole like crib has been blown up. It's just like oh shit, you know.
Yeah,
It's just
Yeah,
like
gonna
fuck, Chapter
gonna
wins the
man.
sports,
gonna
you
have
know,
to
go
tell
to
that new
bombs.
batch of gonna have to tell that
And
new batch of patients to go and like
and it
premiere in.
yeah,
Yeah, I guess
and it's
do it like
amazing because Blofeld has just gone from like from on top of the world, like literally got the world in the palm of his hands, man. He's
he's
got the
literally
girl.
on top of the world on a
Yeah,
mountain,
he's
you
got
know.
like, and in the space of like a few minutes, he's lost everything just like that. It's all gone. And that downfall, like so quickly, is like, man, you can imagine, like,
Yeah, because the fight in You Only Live Twice was quite transitional, you know, like they kept going back and forth, both are closing the crater, you know, like closing the shutters, you know, they can't get up to there, you know. But this is like it's just like one big sweep and it's just gone, you know. And that's kind of what you needed
yep,
for this kind
yep.
of threat, right?
And then we get like what I like about this, they get into the bobsleigh fight. And what I love about this is so strange because you have Bond versus Blofeld. This is like
Blofeld
like one
blows
of the
up in
great
bobsleigh.
cinematic showdowns basically that you can have. And it's like, where's the stage for this? It's a bobsleigh fight, which is so unique, but it works so well and it's so different. It's so cool as well. Like, and the music and everything and like the
No,
twists and
I
turns that
want to
happen.
point out something with the music as
Yeah.
well. I don't know why it took me forever to realize this, but this is the same music, which is slightly changed from the first fight. When he drops the grenade in this thing, he's like, "Oh shit!" Hang on, let's
Yeah.
drive
Oh, that's
one
such a
hand in
great
this one.
moment. Yeah. Yeah, he drops the grenade, man.
Yeah, for
Oh,
some
that's
reason,
like
I
the
know
tension there is crazy.
it's
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 like
crazy as well
Blofeld.
because you're worried for Blofeld for a second there for some reason, and it's like it's because of the music, really.
Yeah, like
Like,
I've
it's like, oh
noticed,
shit,
like
I fumbled the ball, you know.
I feel I feel like this one thing I kind of retrospectively appreciate a lot more is when I saw this scene, like it made me retrospectively appreciate Thunderball's like ending fight a lot more because it's like that's also got like the same like frantic energy
Yeah,
about
but
it.
that was
Like
comically like
it wasn't that
no,
like no, not underwater when they're like both fighting on
no,
the
that's
boat
what I
and then
mean. That one was comically cut. Like he has like
the
the
cutting
punch,
is
like
like
the
a bit.
clear cut
That's
punch in
just
the other
one.
way,
That's
you know.
one punch that suffers from it. But like the everything else, where it's like they're both fighting and then like trying to also control the boat from crashing as well as like same energy I get in this one actually.
Yeah, I
So
think the Thunderball one
I
suffered
really
from a
like
lot of
that.
sped up footage.
Yeah, but other than that, I think it suffers from that. But if it didn't suffer from that, it'd be on the same level as this. I think.
This no, but this is Blofeld as well. Like this was like as well as the fact that he really like he knocks him off because he has to get on. He blows up his Bond's bobsleigh, and then Bond has to get onto his one, and he almost knocks him off of it. Like however many maybe
Yeah,
half
big time. You have a
almost
moment
have
where he's
off.
like pushing his head against the ice wall and stuff, and it's like, what, this like really, there's like
Yeah,
the
'cause
upper
he
hand
nearly
keeps changing.
decapitates him basically because like they
Yeah,
go past a gap where it could have
yeah,
just been like boom, and then that's it.
and yeah, and obviously like the upper hand keeps changing, and it's really good. It's like, and this is something that Donald Pleasance and Sean Connery couldn't do. So it's like you need these two blokes like pretty equal match physically, right?
Hmm.
You'd expect Bond's in better shape, of course, but other than that, they're like more or less a pretty fair fight, which you don't see very often, especially with Blofeld. But yeah, it's really good, and obviously it ends with Bond like kicking him up into the tree, like not quite decapitating him, but
Yeah, breaking his neck.
yeah, that's right. And Bond slides off, and Saint Bernard comes up to him with the to fetch the
Like, go
brandy.
fetch the
It's like a
whiskey.
good
Yeah,
line.
the brandy, that was it.
Yeah,
I like that line. Like he's
5-star
just
Hennessy, of course.
yeah, that's right, exactly.
I love that bit as well. Like he's just this is the thing. Like to the credit of George Lazenby, he's gone straight from fighting like James Bond's ultimate villain to just being like, yeah. He's just like like some having banter with a dog of all things. And then they go
It's brilliant.
again. They cut like
Yeah.
I don't know why they show his bobsleigh like sliding off into the up against like the shed because it's his one got blown up, not Blofeld's. But anyway, maybe it's a film error. I don't know.
Well, that's it. Yeah, now you get the transition to like the wedding ring, which we saw earlier, and yeah, Bond's getting married.
For real this time, not like the fake out one they did
Yeah.
for clickbait in Millionth twice.
And this scene is like amazing. Obviously, it's Bond getting married, but like the side characters, you get like
Yeah,
Q Q's there, and they have like, or like, they have like a really like, I love it. He lets his hair down. It's like, Bond, I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but and then Bond's like, well, this time Q, I've got the gadgets and I know how to use it. I love the back and forth there with
There's loads
M
of
as
great-
well.
Yeah,
M
and
and Draco
Draco.
having a chat, they're like this crime boss and like the head of MI6, those two like on the same, and they're like talking about the
you
ages.
cost
They
me
like the
through my
banter,
best men, like
amazing, and of course Moneypenny as well.
I love the bit as well when they drive off. Like Moneypenny's, I always cry at weddings, and then like Q's like, because he's throwing his hat to her like as a nod to he's always.
That's such a beautiful
Yeah.
just that like throwing the hat.
Little
It's just like a
acknowledgement.
great little moment there.
And then he's like,
cute. Yeah.
she's like sad because obviously he's not marrying her, and then like Q's like, oh he's Douglas never had respect for government property.
Yeah, his bear starts like chatting shit
the most
about Bond.
cute
Like,
thing ever. I love
as
it.
soon as he's gone, it's like, oh, okay, like.
Yeah.
It's so good, and it's weird to see Q, Moneypenny, and M next to each other. Like,
Mm.
I really wish
And
I really wish the film just ended at this point. Sometimes I wish the film like ended at this point where you see the Aston Martin driving off, being flower petals being thrown onto it. It's oh, they lived happily ever after. But then again, if we didn't, we wouldn't have any more. Bond.
Yeah, we need to keep making films. So.
Yeah,
and you have like and also I think it's worth noting Draco tries to give Bond £1 million and
he turns it down.
Turns it down. Yeah, respect, man.
Yeah.
Well, and now we get like this is going to be pretty hard to talk about for me, man. This is like one of the most tragic film endings ever. I think this is like really, really horrible, man. Like it's so sad and like depressing, man. It's like just like how can they fucking do this, man? Like. And yeah, of course, unfortunately, and it's just one of those, it's like you can't have the happy ending like them driving off into the sunset. You could, but
it wouldn't be book accurate, would it then?
Yeah, man, like they kill, but it's just like that fourth act, and this is like the next level fourth act where it's like
the worst is like the last thing she's talking about is when they're like how many kids can we have like,
and no the fact she says like now we've got. It's like, I didn't get you a wedding present. It's like, I have the best present I could ever have, like a future, It's like, fuck, like, it's so hard to watch.
It's chilling, yeah. And like George Lazenby be like, right before he's just flexing his dictionary knowledge, like coming up with different I words, and they're just like having their first marriage banter or whatever, and then it's just like, it's tragic.
Come to think of it, actually, because obviously, like most people know, Blofeld driving the car. It's actually in the novel, it's him who shoots Tracy, but in this one, it's Irma Bunt. There's a drive-by, right? And now I only realized this. If it wasn't for the people like honking at them because of the flowers, and he didn't stop because of them, then maybe it would have been a car chase, but he could have survived.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
and it's so sad because like the gunshots happen and then Bond's like, oh, it's Blofeld, let's go get him. He's like goes straight into agent mode, and he stops and he does like this double take and he sees like Tracy next to him dead, and it's like, oh, it's so fucked up, man. Like say, oh, we have all the time in the world, all this stuff. It's just like it's so tragic, man. It's like it's horrible. It's such a horrible ending, like you have like you have like. It's one of the saddest films ending ever, man. I think, like, I don't know. I don't want to spoil any films, but you got like The Elephant Man or something like that, like or Gladiator. But Gladiator has like I don't know. I don't want to spoil these films, but like there's just like have these like really emotional endings, like sometimes tragic endings, and this is really like right up there, I think, for like just and it's so unexpected. It just comes out of nowhere, and you're just like. Fuck, like it's a real like gut punch,
Yeah.
And
well, it's the curse of being Bond. You just can't be married, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you know what fucking spoils this moment? You have this really sad music and like
the policeman.
No, you you have this beautiful ending to the film, like a tragic ending to this film.
It's the Bond theme that pops up.
The Bond theme, just out of no, you're just like fuck off, man. Like like I don't know, like that's
true.
We got a little social commentary almost about useless policemen being there after all the damage has been done. It's like, and then I feel so sorry for Bond there. Like, do you know they had an original shooting of this scene where Lazenby's meant to be bawling his eyes out, and
Yeah, he actually
but-
cried, but then they said no, they said cut, like, James Bond doesn't cry, so
yeah, and then but he acts like so well in this. Like he's just like he has to be steely enough, but like this is like the worst thing emotionally that can happen to him in his lifetime. Like, and then he's just like he just I don't know, he just feels so completely broken by it. He's just like he's like in shock, but he like has to explain it to this random person who's police or whatever who's shown up. Like, and then he's like, "Oh, we have all the time in the world," and then that's like just it. And
the
then
thing is, as well as I mean, this is relatively well known. He actually had, because when he read on a Majesty's Secret Service, like that scene actually made him cry. So he had the book. I mean, there's also reciting. He had the book for him. He had the book underneath the dashboard, the thing where you can stow stuff, and he read it just before this scene, which is why, like, in order to make himself cry. But then they wouldn't. They said literally that you can't. So. They
I
wouldn't
like
do that.
he
It's like
does.
it's ironic. They won't let James Bond be married because it doesn't. It's just not how James Bond is, and he's not even allowed. The actor's not allowed to cry because that's not how James Bond is.
I mean,
Yeah,
he does. He is
does
about
cry.
to cry, though. He
And then
does
he,
have
like,
tears
They
in his
don't
eyes
show
and stuff,
him,
right?
he like buries.
He has
his
tears in his
face
eyes, and it's like his voice is breaking as well. It's like it's as good as, I think.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
horrible though. It's so hard to watch, man. And they even talk about it's just like
and that's
it
that's
never
literally
fails
the
to
end
hit
as
the
well.
feels. Yeah.
And the thing is, as well, with George Lazenby is when he was at the premiere, and people would come out like the cinema crying. He thought they hated the film because of it, but a lot of the time people actually liked it, even though the critics like despised it. And this is the thing, the last bit of trivia I have for you, which is also tragic. The actress for Emma Bunt, I don't know how to pronounce this, but it's a Steppert is my best guess. She was actually meant to reappear in Diamonds Are Forever, but since she died, she couldn't.
oh, could you
So
imagine how good that would have been?
that's the problem, because Diamonds Are Forever,
Oh.
because she died, is basically like dead on arrival, because there's no point doing it if you don't have Emma Bunt.
Yep.
I think it's a blessing in disguise though, because this film like works so well as a standalone Bond film, and the fact it doesn't have a sequel, the fact none of the actors come back in terms of the main ones, Telly Savalas or George Lazenby,
Yeah, they can't really ruin it almost.
Or
yeah,
Diamond Rig.
yeah. And that
As
in itself is
reoccurring
a bit of a
actors
tragedy
made
that this
in
film
later
never got a
ones, but
sequel. But
It kind
it's
of immortalized it though.
yeah,
Like
yeah, and it's
that's
aged
yeah.
so beautifully. It's just such a
this is,
good film.
this
And
is
it's
why
just,
it's
I don't
probably
know,
one
man.
of my favorites, if not my favorite.
Yeah.
It's why I think it's the best one and also second only to yeah, we'll talk about it later.
Spectre.
That's time for another
Yeah,
episode.
it brings us nicely onto the rankings.
Before we
Now we can actually talk about the Bond actor. So number one, Sean Connery. We have a new entry, George Lazenby.
I mean, he has to go second, I assume.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
agree.
this is the
he
thing
has
that
to, but I think we've done him justice. It's not like he's like a bad or
Bond
Bond.
actor.
He's
There
Fair enough
are
to do.
there are a couple I would put him above, but we'll get
yeah,
onto
yeah,
that
same.
debate
Yeah.
soon enough. Well, not soon enough. But
Henry's there. He's like shitting himself, and he knows. I can't wait for these episodes coming up. But is it worth going into the why George Lazenby didn't come back? I mean, he got like bad legal advice, basically, right? I
Yeah,
mean, that's
he
worth discussing.
he
He was
thought-
basically told, "Oh, this Bond franchise isn't going anywhere," like, right?
yeah,
Yeah, he
that's what
got-
he was told, which is like honestly known as like one of the worst bits of advice anyone has ever been given. Um, but you can kind of see why he thought it was the case. I mean, because it was going to like kind of the hippie era, and like this guy running around in a suit with a gun maybe wouldn't have been. He thought there'd be more more sophisticated films would take over, but I mean, because we kind of know today Bond is like a franchise that evolves with time. It didn't kind of look like that was the case back then. He probably thought they would always be like the way they always have been,
yeah,
which is being a little bit over the top, or like like fantastical.
And it's a shame with George
But they do
Lazenby because
change the
his career since is obviously like as
Yeah,
as
right.
non-existent as it was before this film, effectively, right? And when you
Yeah,
see
he was-
interviews
he
with him,
was-
you see interviews with him, he's so bitter, and it's a shame to see that, like it's like it's strange because he's obviously remembered so fondly as a Bond, but then It's really is like a one-hit wonder. He probably didn't earn that much money from
bittersweet.
the film. He probably gets a lot of money from like appearances and stuff like that. But like
That's why he
again,
does.
he's still like when he is bit, oh yeah, it's George Lazenby, and probably a lot of casuals sort of go, oh who, if you remember. If you're, I mean, you've got levels of casuals with Bond, right? You've got like people that are like the bottom of the ladder that have don't know about Bond before Daniel Craig, and you've got like, oh yeah, Roger Moore, Sean Connery, yeah, I know them, I've seen a few. Like, you have to be quite in there to know about George Lazenby and like have that. So
like you just ignore
unfortunately, he
Timothy
suffers from
Dalton.
that as well, which
And
is a
then
real
you've got
shame.
people like us at the Millionth podcast
And
who
and
know
to be fair, he
everything
hasn't
about James
he hasn't
Bond.
aged very well either compared to like the other actors as well. He's like
But
got
it
pretty
certainly helps when you have a
overweight.
lot of money. You can age well.
Well, yeah, I know, but yeah, well, I suppose, yeah, but
Yeah.
it's a shame. It's a shame with him, but
I've
we definitely salute him, and his legacy is like and his film is. I think he's just a great Bond, and I haven't got a bad word to say about him in terms of his portrayal.
Yeah.
I hope
Me
like
neither, really.
I've heard things that he only he's only ever seen the On Her Majesty's Secret
Yeah,
Service.
that's bullshit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Pierce Brosnan hasn't seen a Daniel Craig
But
Bond.
like,
so I
yeah,
don't know about
can you, I wouldn't, but I kind of like, it's not like you can't, I don't know,
It's
you'd have to be
speculation,
very bitter over.
Yeah,
we can
he's
also get that.
mad bitter. When you see any interview or quote from him, he's just full, and you can understand why, man. Like you said, he like probably got the worst bit of advice of all time, man. So
Yeah.
Bond girl number 1, Domino. Number 2, Honey Rider. Number 3, Tatiana. Number 4, Aki / the wife. Number 5, Pussy Galore. This is no brainer.
Easily number 1.
Yep.
Probably forever.
Yep. I don't think we need to go into that too much. We'll just put
We've
Tracy
said
there. Number
everything
1.
a lot.
Yep. The villain, number 1, Blofeld, Donald Pleasance. Number 2, Goldfinger. Number 3, Dr. No. Number 4, Rosa Klebb. Number 5, Emiliano Largo. Where are we putting Telly Savalas's
Got
Blofeld?
Emilio Largo as bottom.
It's tough, really.
It is very difficult.
Because
I think I'm going to make the tough call, and I'm going to suggest that he goes 3rd. Which is
'cause
really
the thing
harsh, but
is-
he's just not as iconic.
it's
And
because he doesn't have the scar,
Yeah, he's not like a when you remember Blofeld, you remember Donald Pleasance visually, and it's
And he's
I
not
rem-
like.
I like Donald Pleasance. Sorry, but like Donald Pleasance is like the one that comes to mind. But Telly Savalas is like a very very quick afterthought that happens after I remember Donald Pleasance first when you mentioned Blofeld. It's
and the
those
rest of them
two.
like playoffs.
Yeah, they're like flipping bottom feeders, man. Like and they just rest on the laurels which these two created, and it's just like, yeah, okay.
I think with Donald Pleasance's one, he's more memorable. Probably this is because of Telly's one is like kind of more down to earth. Like that also makes him kind of less memorable. In the fact that he's literally Donald Pleasance's one is allowed to be literally like very not vibrant but like vivid, really, with that scar down the eye you're never going to forget. So it'll obviously stay in your memory as the first thing you remember when you see Blofeld. To the point where they were I think they might have considered bringing it for Telly Savalas because that concept art exists, and obviously they did for a later Blofeld, who shall not be named. But yeah, I think, and also with Goldfinger, he is more memorable than this one as well. And
by the way, I still think Goldfinger should be number 1 here, but
that's your problem.
I'm surprised actually. I thought Henry would want Telly Savalas to be above Goldfinger, but okay, well, I'm
so
fine.
we're all agreed he goes 3rd.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess.
Okay, so that's below Goldfinger and above Dr. No.
Yeah.
Okay, let me just write that down. Blofeld, TS. Okay, henchman / woman now. We have number 1,
Well, we have
Oddjob.
Fiona.
Number 2, Red Grant. Number 3, Fiona. Number 4, Hans. So, so we have
below Red Grant personally.
I
Buns.
don't know.
She could go above him maybe, but
She kills Bond's wife, man.
yeah, again the final cock block of all time.
I think, yeah, like I don't know. I've kind of putting her around the Fiona area because like
No. I
Fiona's
think
really good though. Like
Heresy.
she's like
she hasn't got
Fiona.
a patch on Bunce
She
though.
does. She's like femme fatale, like defining almost in like at least the Bond franchise. Like she's very like. I
Yeah,
mean,
but she's not scary. That's the whole thing. Like
I
she's
don't
not.
know. She's I don't know. She's not scary, but I don't know. She doesn't have to be
No,
scary.
there's
She's
like
good.
me and Henry, like with previous rankings, there's always like a dotted line where we go like, these are
Yeah.
elites, these are like there's like, okay, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's a huge gap between two. In this case,
Yeah.
I think it'd be a harsh third to put below Red Grant, but I think it's probably fair
Yeah.
because Red
Per,
Grant is like
per,
Red
Red
Grant
Grant
had
like
like
basically
so much
fuels the
influence
entirety of the
afterwards
film.
as well. So I think Bunt going third is, you know,
I think
above
that's very
Fiona and below
generous,
Red
but
Grant.
like, okay.
Oh, so that's how democracy works.
Car/vehicle. I don't think we have really. I mean, we have the DBS,
Could have the
which
You got the
bobsleigh,
skis,
bobsleigh
Yeah.
if you want, or
the
whatever.
cable car that gets blown
okay.
up.
So M, Q, and Moneypenny stays the same. Okay, the ally/Felix Leiter. We have number 1, Tiger. Number 2, Quarrel and Leiter. Number 3, Karen Bay. Number 4, Leiter and Goldfinger. And number 5, Leiter and Thunderball. Where are we putting? What's his name? Draco and Campbell.
I think Draco goes.
I would
I
actually
still
put
don't
him
like
number
how
five.
I still don't like how we mix the two. Like, but whatever.
What?
I
We're gonna do a
think
second
like
one for
I think you
side ally.
just have like the primary one, but whatever. Like Draco goes second, I think, fairly solidly.
Below Tiger.
Yeah, Tiger's
I
like
think
I think Tiger's like I don't know. They kind of both serve their purposes like within each film. Like You Only Live Twice is more action film, but like and Tiger's
We're
like
having this. I keep hearing throughout this whole ranking thing it's really is your preference whether you prefer like the extravagant like side of Bond, the Goldfinger syndrome sort of thing, or the On Majesty, so the more low key subtle. And I keep seeing this with like when we're talking about Blofeld, when we're talking about the Allies now.
I
think
think Tiger
it's
goes
tough.
first.
It's
Though.
tough.
okay, let me make my case here, right? This is like he's like if Karen Bay was done right, because he's believable to be like a mafia boss,
So wait, you want to put
like, and it
Draco first,
reflects.
right? You're arguing for Draco
Yeah.
first.
Yeah. He is like, it reflects those henchmen who are actually also characters who you see throughout the film. Like, and his relationship with his daughter as well actually gives him a stake in the film itself, not just like, oh yeah, I'm just James Bond's mate, like, he's like, James Bond's my son-in-law, man. Like he's going to be at least. So I've got to make sure I give him a hand, And he like scrambles the resources when, when M and MI6 aren't there for him, he basically manages to solo it with Bond, like brings in the choppers, like he takes down Spectre's like the head of Spectre when MI6 can't, and they don't want to. So
Yeah, but
he's got the balls to do what had to be done, along with
I think
Bond.
his as well. He's like very sophisticated. He's got the charisma. This is why like he's like shades of Karen Bay as well. It's like he's got that charisma and like like Bond's uncle sort of thing almost.
yeah, but that's we're supposed to be looking at them in this capacity of an ally. And if you think about it, like he doesn't really he does not stop Blofeld ultimately doing the ultimate wound on James Bond personally, short from
Yeah,
killing
I
James
guess
Bond
Tiger
himself.
does.
And Tiger stops Blofeld himself from shooting James Bond. So like, and like Tiger Tanaka is like a lot more involved in the action, training James
He
Bond,
literally goes in and
getting
guns with
getting him out of like situations, and like yeah, that's all you can ask for from an ally. Like he's like, and he's like also the bit where Draco just punches Tracy to get her to stop arguing is a bit like
But this
it's
is
a
not
bit
that's not to do with his capacity as an ally.
yeah, but
And also,
if
he
you're
does
bringing
go in with Bond. That's the thing.
he
Like,
does at the final scene, but other than that, like he's not.
yeah, well,
Tanaka
that's
does
the same
that.
with Tiger. He doesn't
Tanaka
go in
no,
the
it
action
doesn't.
with him.
Tanaka goes in on the
You've just made me realize as well. Like the thing, like Draco's daughter's just been killed by Blofeld, and we never get to follow up on that either. It's just
yeah.
occurred to me.
That would have been like a
Well,
huge
it's
blood
because
feud,
Draco's
but
not a main
like
character.
but
That would have made a great sequel in that context. But I think
I do think
All right.
Tiger's
Well,
better
who
because
would
he
you want
not
to see
only
more
he
of?
not
This is the
only
I know,
question.
but it comes down. It's you're batting for Tiger, Henry's batting for Draco, and
Okay,
this is
I
a
like
question.
Campbell
Who
as
would
well.
you want to?
I just
If
want to
you,
shout
who
out
would you
Campbell as
want?
well.
he
Yeah,
not
yeah. Who
only
would you
goes in
want to
at
see
the end
more of,
though.
though? This is the question.
Yeah, you're just playing off the fact he's a character, not like as the ally of the film. But like character wise,
Yeah, but the character is like basically the deciding factor here as well.
Yeah, but
because
no,
okay,
you
they're
can't
both like
detach them from the
very
character.
competent, very resourceful and useful
But
allies. They
Tiger
both have like
is
effectively. I mean, Tiger's like the M of Japan, while
Draco's a
Draco is
crime
like
boss.
the equivalent. He's a crime
Yeah.
boss.
And
He,
also, he
like-
helps him with the code decoding as well,
Yeah.
organizing all that crane,
Yeah, but-
to lift the gear to him and then back.
Tiger was not only there at the end, he saved Bond's life, and then he like also trained him in that school or whatever. And he was
They
like
didn't
there.
train
He was
him,
there.
did
He
they?
was there in many scenarios when he didn't necessarily have to be, and so like he's like that. Like Draco, fair enough, he's at the end, but he's like a bit older.
Draco
so
basically saves the world, you know,
how?
Hmm.
Oh
because
yeah,
he
well,
blows up Pitt's Gloria.
yeah, but so does Tanaka, doesn't he? Because he like
Actually, no, Bond does it because he's the one who actually pushed the button.
yeah, but he's the one who facilitates Bond being able to get into there.
I think we're getting into. I don't want this to drag on too long.
This is
I've
just
made up
literally
my
down
mind.
to James's preference at this point.
I've made up
so,
my mind. Which way will Caesar's thumb point?
Yeah.
It's got to be Draco #1, man. I think like I wanted to hear the argument. I wanted to be convinced by Tiger, but yeah, it has to be Draco.
It's his
plus
accent,
Campbell.
and he's not dubbed, so
Yeah, and you have Campbell as well, so you know.
he's not
Shout.
dubbed. He already took it.
Gadgets. #1, the attaché case. #2, the cigarette. #3, Oddjob's hat. #4, the rebreather. #5, Wolf PPK. We don't really have any gadgets in this
Should
film,
we just
but
say the skirting key goes to the bottom because it's not even mentioned?
yeah. Does he have any other gadgets?
A photocopier.
Yeah.
The fold.
I don't think this is even worth ranking. There just isn't one really.
Yeah,
The
I think it's
theme-
a fair point.
Yeah, we'll just move on. The theme
It's a
song.
radioactive lint from the very
Yeah.
beginning of the film, like, and
We have
yeah.
the theme song now.
Yeah.
#1, the James Bond theme. #2, Goldfinger. #3, You Only Live Twice. #4, Thunderball. #5, From Russia with Love. Where are we putting the
think-
theme from Mon Majesty's Secret Service?
I would venture to put this first.
I
I
agree.
think it should be because this theme is so good. It actually could replace the Bond theme. It's that good, I think. Because sometimes I hear it and then I think that's the Bond theme. Hang on a minute, no, it isn't.
Yeah, I
Not
agree.
saying I think they're both the same piece of music, but I think this literally could be the Bond theme. They could have replaced it if they wanted to. And it's just multi-purpose. They use it
Tom,
throughout.
what do you
the
think?
film.
Well, 2 against 1, so yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Well, you disagree.
I would personally put a classic Bond theme, but obviously, you two wouldn't, so guess that sells it.
Well, we said it. Well, to
It's
be
a
fair,
tough
you
one.
thought that
But I agree. I think this is just the Bond theme is like obviously it's just so iconic.
to be fair, the way it's used in this is also like
Yeah,
really good.
yeah. But I love this, and like I said before, actually I did say at the beginning of the episode, I think it is probably the best like bit of instrumental music you get in Bond, and there are some stiff competitions. So yeah,
I would actually, yeah. If I had to choose between listening to the two, I would listen to this one more.
yeah. If I, yeah. Okay, the opening. #1, Goldfinger. #2, From Russia with Love. #3, You Only Live Twice. And #4, Thunderball. So, just to recap, You Only Live Twice is like the spaceship / the fake death.
Yeah.
Thunderball's like the funeral. So where are we going to put the opening from here?
I think
Second.
you put it second. I might put it under From Russia with Loves.
What's the opening from Russia with Love again? Oh yeah, Red Grant.
Yeah, because that's very short. It's to the point.
Nah,
It's
I
not
think
the
this goes
best.
second. I think it's just think about like
I think it goes
George
under
Lazenby, the dimpled chin, the cigarette, and everything, man.
Yeah,
the
that
music.
actually, you sold me on that. I forgot about that bit.
Yeah, come on, man.
Tom?
Does it go above Goldfinger? I don't think so. I mean,
Well, I was gonna put it under the Red Grant thing, but I guess outgunned on that one as well.
Yeah, well, there's the power of convincing. But also, I don't think it goes above Goldfinger's one because that had
Yeah,
the job.
yeah.
A lot of people wouldn't have maybe necessarily seen Doctor No From Russia with Love, so they had to basically say like introduce who James Bond is in the span of like 3 minutes, and then just go bang, bang, bang. He's setting up this place to explode. Gets the white tux out. He's also the best dressed after just sneaking in, and then he's just chilling with like his buddy agent, and so on and so forth. Has a fight, dips, cue credits. That's
Okay,
like
now we have the Sigma moment. Goldfinger, I own the club. We released a short of that last week, by the way, so make sure you check that out on the channel.
Yeah.
Red Grant, number 2. Number 3, Blofeld Extortion. Number 4, Dr. No. Number 5, David Niven. Number 6, King and Country. So what moment are we going to nominate, and where are we going to rank it?
I would nominate Bond, not Bond, Blofeld saying, "I mean what I say, and I'll do what I claim." Like also with the you can't say without gesturing as if I've got a cigarette. And I would put it underneath. I would put it above the other Blofeld's line.
I don't think so. I'd
Talk
put a
about
different.
extortion because
I'd put a different one there. I'd put like and if you're very, very nice to me, I can make you my countess. But I'm already a countess. Like the delivery of that is perfect.
Yeah, I quite like that one. There's Sigma female as well. And, it's funny. We've all come away with different lines. I would have probably gone with when Bond tells her to get dressed.
I don't know.
maybe, but it
That's
doesn't
just
leave like
not
the
really.
impact on
He
you.
says that more out of anger than anything else, though. So, yeah, I think I'll go with what Tom... I like that line, Tracy. I'm already a countess.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Actually, I would agree with you on that.
But where would we
So-
rank it? I don't think it goes that high.
I think so. I think it goes at least above like for King and Country.
I think it
Yeah,
goes
I
above
think-
the
Well, we
Actually-
have number 3, Blofeld's Extortion. Number 4, Dr. No. So, Tracy, I think it's not that big. I think maybe it goes below Dr. No, actually.
Yeah, I'm
$1 million,
comfortable with that.
Mr.
Yeah,
Bond.
I guess actually putting it
Yeah.
above like your first line, just flexing your wealth. Would
Yeah,
be just like,
yeah.
yeah, all right then.
And Tracy, Countess. Okay. Oh, it is a good line, though, because you're just like, it's close.
That's on Blofeld, like.
Okay, now we get to. I'm really looking forward to this for the whole episode. We're going to rank the film. Number 1, Goldfinger. Number 2, You Only Live Twice. Number 3, Dr. No. Number 4, From Russia with Love. Number 5, Thunderball. Number 6, Casino Royale. Where are we going to rank On Her Majesty's Secret Service?
I don't want to hear any other suggestions other than number 1.
What do you think, Tom?
I'm comfortable with that.
I don't know.
As painful as it is, but
It's really close. I don't know. I think you two have been very
This is
quick
actually-
to decide that. You
I
don't
think
think
this
there's much
actually-
of a conversation there. I think Goldfinger is stiff competition.
There's a lot of competition and conversation to be had, but I think whether or not you're on it's like which gang side are you on, a Majesty's Secret Service or Goldfinger? Like you previously said, they're both so good that it literally just comes down to your preference. And I know
well, if you could
it's
make
right
a
behind
case
me.
for
I just think
Goldfinger,
Goldfinger is more iconic and well known.
True, and it is well known for a good reason, but still, I think it's
Goldfinger himself. I think everything in Goldfinger. With both films, they're
think
both
being
done to a high standard.
well known is not necessarily always like the
Of course.
ultimate indicator of quality.
It's a
Otherwise,
tough one, man. It's like the Dark Knight versus the Batman almost.
Yeah, literally, it really is actually.
Oh, well, okay. So,
outgunned on this
I mean,
anyways.
what do you think, Tom? Are you like? Do you think like? What do you think?
I'm open to hearing a case for why Goldfinger is better than On Her Majesty's Secret Service, but like it personally, it's my second favorite, and I think like
What this is or Goldfinger?
On a Majesty's Secret Services. I think Tom's internet might be being a bit dodgy, but one thing I wanted to say as well is this is the first Bond
Can you hear
film
me?
that we've reviewed so far that I could watch with a mate and I don't have to be like, oh, there's an awkward bit in it that I have to explain away. Really,
oh
like,
yeah.
like there's no, I mean, like you can't watch Golfing with your mate and then also have to be like, oh yeah, by the way, there's a rape scene in it, so.
Well,
Don't know.
And it's
On
not
Majesty's
like-
Secret does have its moments as well, though.
It's
not
the
as
it's
obvious,
the least
but
it's the least worst offender of its kind so far.
Goldfinger is like a complete Sigma machine in that.
yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
and then I don't know. I just remember one of his really funny lines the other day, where he's like, "I'll work with any enterprise that will increase my stock, which is
Yeah.
considerable." Like he just has to add
Yeah,
that on
man.
the end.
Golfing on the golf course and everything. Odd job. The DB5. I think if there is like a really main deciding factor, it's actually Tracy.
Yeah,
I think
true.
Tracy is, but then Goldfinger, like.
But you also have
Oh.
but this is the thing, right? Tracy is the best Bond girl, right? And you also have Blofeld, who's a very good Bond villain, like to the point where we put him like third. But then you also have with Goldfinger himself is a fantastic villain, but the Bond girl
And Odd Job.
department is the Bond girl department is really lacking.
Yeah, it's a good. I think with
Yeah,
that
but you
in
have Odd
mind,
Job. You have Odd
You
Job,
also
man.
have I know she's not as good as Odd Job, but it's like you got you got like relatively pretty high in all regards, whereas Goldfinger's really lacking in one of the departments that makes Bond.
and Bond doesn't really have like a really decent ally in. You could say he has more of a joke Felix Leiter around the place. Like,
Yeah, that's a good
Uh,
point.
And he
I
also
guess-
you're
Bond
right.
doesn't really. I mean, the only way that he basically saves the day is by like shagging pussy galore, and then that's like,
Yeah.
help him so he doesn't
Yeah,
get blown
yeah.
up at the end. And then
I
in this,
think
he's the instrument of
Tracy is like
Blofeld's
the main
destruction.
deciding factor, but you just pushed it over the edge, Tom, with Draco. That's a great point. On Majesty's Secret Service goes number one.
Yeah, but like deciding between like these two are the best. They are both like so unbelievably good. Like these are films you have to see before you die, basically. Like that's how good.
So that's it. The rankings now: number one on Majesty's Secret Service, number two Goldfinger, number three You Only Live Twice. So this has been a long episode, but
Might be our longest, Steve.
we don't talk about bad films for a long time usually. So I hope you've enjoyed. If you've come this far, then maybe we'll go a bit further. Check us out on if you've listened to us on Spotify, subscribe to us on YouTube, vice versa.
If you're in it for the long haul, ladies and gentlemen.
And you're in it for the long haul, detective. So yeah, thanks for joining. Hope you've enjoyed, and we'll be back next week with Diamonds Are Forever. That's a crash down, back down to reality.
Looking so forward to it.
Yeah. So thanks again, and we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel.